Hi everyone, we hope you're doing well. We're hanging in there though honestly, we haven't been getting much sleep lately. Today, we want to answer a question we get a lot: how do we publish our audiobooks? First, we post most audiobooks on Patreon as paid content. They stay paid for a few months. After that, they become free to listen to on Patreon forever. A few weeks later, we post them on other places like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, things have been a bit slow in terms of new members. So we'd love your help. Please share our site with your friends or in places like Facebook groups, Twitter, X, Discord, Reddit, or novel forums. Even one share can really help us grow. Thanks so much for your support. In the distance, a lake appeared, a captivating blue in the middle of desolation. Indeed, it was the cold lake, which meant they were close to Hidden Stone's village. Deidara, is this the way? Masashi asked. Yes. Follow the river, and once we reach a town, we'll be there, Deidara replied. Masashi nodded and gestured for the delegation to continue. Since everyone was a ninja, there were no large or small vehicles to slow them down. These were capable men with swift feet, so their pace was reliable. After passing the lake, the delegation traveled approximately 15 kilometers north along the river. They then came upon an abandoned town. To the right of the town was a misty mountain range. As clouds moved across the sky and sunlight shifted, the mountains changed from yellow to black. Winds from the other side of the range carried sand into the air, forming the land of Earth's characteristic stone rain. Accustomed to such weather conditions, the group sought shelter in the town to avoid the rain. Inside one of the buildings, they looked out the window to see the mountains fading into the distance and the world outside shrouded in chaos, as if they had entered another realm. The rain came quickly and ended even faster. As the winds subsided, the storm ceased. The group stepped out of the large building, but the air was still filled with swirling dust, unpleasant to breathe. They prepared to continue toward the mountains, only to see a group of Hidden Stone's village ninjas emerge from the hazy distance ahead. The Hidden Stone's village ninjas' gazes first landed on Deidara and Kurotsuchi. Then their eyes fell on Masashi. Upon recognizing his face, one especially burly individual among the Hidden Stone's village ninjas stepped forward. Welcome, envoys from Hidden Leaf Village. I am Kitsuchi, here to guide you, he said. His appearance was a perfect embodiment of the stereotypical Hidden Stone's village ninjas in outsiders' minds. His face was weathered, with rugged features and piercing eyes. His short hair stood stiff, and as he stood in the wind, motionless, he resembled a boulder rooted to the ground, unshaken by any storm. This rock-like man had a stern expression. Kurotsuchi's eyes lit up at the sight of her father. However, her time in Hidden Leaf Village had taught her restraint. Several seasoned doves in the Hidden Leaf Village delegation also perked up, ready to showcase their skills. This wasn't exactly a good habit. During Hiruzen's time as Hokage, the village had not been particularly stable. Before the White Fang and the Sannin came into prominence, Hidden Leaf Village's strategy had always been cautious, avoiding conflict whenever possible. To align with this approach, the doves had developed a habit of showering people with flattering words at the first opportunity. Kitsuchi, however, was no ordinary person. As the son of the Sushi Kage and the Ninja Kage level strength, he was one of Hidden Leaf Village's key watchlist targets. Before the doves could speak, Masashi interrupted. Thank you for your effort. Please, lead the way. He glanced back at the doves with a helpless expression. The doves looked a bit sheepish, realizing they had been too eager to act. They were simply rusty, it had been too long since they'd had the chance to perform. Since the Third Great Ninja War, Hidden Leaf Village had won its subsequent two wars rather decisively. This had left their enemies more eager for peace, rendering the dove's skills somewhat redundant. Being a dove didn't necessarily mean they were true pacifists, sometimes, it was just a side hustle. Masashi didn't particularly want these individuals with him but understood it was standard procedure. These seasoned doves had numerous connections, and the Uchiha clan wasn't entirely estranged from them. During the Uchiha clan's most difficult times, these doves had been among the most supportive. So, while they were a hassle, he could only accept their presence. Under Kitsuchi's guidance, the group pressed onward. As they advanced into the mountains, the air gradually grew more humid. Emerging from a patch of forest, they were greeted by a vast wetland. Grass grew tall, aquatic plants thrived, fish swam, and flocks of birds soared under the blue sky and white clouds. The wetlands stretched endlessly into the horizon. Though Masashi had never been to Hidden Stone's village, he remembered that the village was built within the mountains at the source of a major river to ensure strong defenses and ample water supply. Judging by this wetland, the environment was indeed excellent. He halted, prompting the others to stop as well. Would you like to rest here? Kitsuchi asked, noticing the pause. He assumed Masashi might be admiring the scenery. No, the Sushi Kage himself has come. Naturally, I should wait, Masashi replied, his gaze shifting skyward. Kitsuchi froze momentarily, then quickly understood. Like Masashi, he turned his eyes toward the sky. Chapter 128, The Sweetest Poison. For the first time since that battle, Masashi once again saw Onoki. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, a small black dot first appeared in the sky. Soon, it grew large enough for those on the ground to recognize it as a person. As Onoki's figure became clearer, the Hidden Stones village ninjas present couldn't help but show admiration in their eyes. Except for Kitsuchi. Facing away from the Hidden Leaf village group, his expression was one of utter helplessness. He felt like he and his father were completely out of sync mentally. On practically every issue, their opinions clashed. To Kitsuchi, Hidden Leaf Village sending a powerhouse like the White Ghost as an envoy signified that Hidden Leaf Village's diplomacy under the fourth Hokage followed a tough approach. Under such circumstances, Onoki, as Tsuchikage, should have received them in his office. But how long had it been since he left? The old man had flown over himself. Long time no see, Onoki floated before the group, his gaze seemingly fixed only on Masashi, and surprisingly, his expression was rather kind. After all, he immediately noticed the two youngsters behind Masashi. His heart eased. With his spirits lifted, even his tone became gentler, not as sharp as before. Have you given my previous suggestion any thought? Onoki asked with a smile while stroking his beard. Hidden Stones Village warmly welcomes the Uchiha clan. The Hidden Stones Village ninjas, who had felt a bit helpless by the Tsuchikage personally coming out to greet the Hidden Leaf Village delegation, suddenly had an epiphany. They thought they understood now. His humbling gesture wasn't for Hidden Leaf Village, it was an attempt to recruit the Uchiha clan. That was different, then. Recruitment looked like this, showing sincerity, negotiating terms, and then forming a partnership. Masashi may have devastated the Hidden Stones Village forces on the battlefield, taking down thousands of them alone. But back in the village, there wasn't much resentment towards him. He was just too strong to hold a grudge against. Kitsuchi's expression, however, turned even more exasperated. In his heart, he had a dream, to crush Hidden Cloud's village. And Hidden Leaf Village was, in his view, the perfect ally for this. As long as Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village could maintain long-term peaceful relations, Hidden Stones Village would have the freedom to bully Hidden Sand Village to the south and team up with Hidden Leaf Village to crush Hidden Cloud's village to the north. Hidden Stones Village's happiness was simple and straightforward like that. No, I haven't considered it. Masashi shook his head. Tsuchikage-sama, this tactic is too weak. You're a greedy little guy, aren't you? Onoki pursed his lips. Fine, then. I'll be waiting for you in the Tsuchikage's office. With that, the old man let out a Bayou sound and flew off. Kitsuchi, is your Tsuchikage always this cheeky? The Tsuchikage is a free-spirited man. He can be like this sometimes, Kitsuchi replied, keeping his expression under control. This way, please. He turned and resumed leading the group. An old man sidled up to Masashi and nudged his arm. What is it? Masashi asked, turning to look at him. Masashi, Onoki isn't quite what I imagined, the old man said. This might be promising. The old man was from the Shimura clan. Although it was amusing to say, the Shimura clan was the opposite of the Inuzuka clan, almost everyone in it was a dove, except for the notable exception of Danzō. This particular old man had been one of the legendary doves who stood up to Danzō in the Hokage's office to support the Uchiha clan. He was said to have infuriated Danzō to the point of turning pale but left him helpless. After all, in terms of seniority, Danzō had to call him senpai. He is exactly what you imagine him to be. Don't say anything rash later. This old guy is shrewd, Masashi sighed. He came here to tease us and blow off steam. That can't be, the old man doubted. He's a Kage. Would he really be so idle? You met the first Hokage. What was he like? Masashi countered. The old man froze. Ah, you youngsters love your gossip too much. Don't believe everything those storybooks say. The first Hokage was actually very kind, he muttered, retreating to the back with a disgruntled expression. Masashi's words had reminded him. Having grown too accustomed to Hiruzen's demeanor, he had almost forgotten that a Kage could indeed be idle. Among the old ninja clans in the village, it was common knowledge, the first Hokage was genuinely a good person, but many things about him were complicated. It was just that no one could beat him, otherwise, he would have been disciplined long ago. Following the Hidden Stones Village ninjas, the Hidden Leaf Village delegation passed through the grasslands and re-entered the mountains. This time, it wasn't long before they saw Hidden Stones Village. Unlike Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Stones Village had no walls. On second thought, it made sense. The village was in the mountains, and with every Hidden Stones village ninjas proficient in earth style, what was the point of a wall? But Hidden Stones village did have a gate. After all, the village's buildings were connected by bridges. The so-called gate was at the entrance of the main bridge that linked the mountains. When the Hidden Leaf village delegation arrived, Hidden Stones village had prepared a welcome ceremony befitting their status. The reception's grandeur was usually determined by the status of the envoy, considering not only the village's own standing but also the envoy's rank. For someone of Masashi's Kage-level stature, Hidden Stones village spared no effort in showing respect. As the delegation crossed the main bridge, they saw ninjas and civilians alike standing on the surrounding suspension bridges. Flower petals rained down from above, and fireworks rose from within the village. In this regard, Hidden Stones village wouldn't give Hidden Leaf village any grounds for criticism. Unlike Hidden Clouds village, Hidden Stones village took such matters seriously. Even during the Third War, when the two villages agreed to a ceasefire, Hidden Stones village had sent Kitsuchi to Hidden Leaf village for the signing ceremony, ensuring all proper courtesies were observed. As an old-school ninja from the same era and a longtime rival, Onoki had a certain respect for Hiruzen. Sitting in the Sushi Kage's office, listening to the commotion outside, he pondered how to negotiate with Hidden Leaf village. The yellow flash had become the Hokage. While Onoki acknowledged his strength, he still subjected him to the traditional tests of a Kage's worthiness. The results weren't great. Hidden Leaf village had grown more united, and the Flying Thunder God hadn't disappeared from the battlefield. Its new wielder was now an Uchiha. Meanwhile, the Hidden Stones village ninjas' forces had suffered greatly. An entire division had been decimated, the elite demolitions unit had lost all combat effectiveness, and his disciple and granddaughter had been taken as captives. Though they were eventually returned unharmed, he couldn't help but feel a bit stung. Knock, knock. Come in, Onoki said, rising to pick up his Sushi Kage hat. Sushi Kage-sama, the Hidden Leaf village delegation is about to enter the building. Good. Lead them directly to the conference room, Onoki commanded, fully donning his hat with authority. Let's see how that white ghost plans to negotiate. He was very confident. After all, negotiations required wit and rhetoric. An Uchiha. Give me a break. After entering Hidden Stones village, Masashi officially handed over Deidara and Kirotsuchi to Kitsuchi. Times had changed. Hidden Leaf village no longer needed to use these two kids as bargaining chips in negotiations, their purpose was to earn some goodwill. And goodwill was far more valuable than any hostage. At this stage, all of Hidden Leaf village's diplomacy was based on one goal, to maintain friendly relations with the other villages without compromising Hidden Leaf village's interests and to pressure Hidden Clouds village into submission. Masashi felt that this goodwill was effectively earned. Kitsuchi's expression softened significantly, and during the trip to the Sushi Kage's office with the group, he started engaging in conversation with Masashi rather than staying silent. Upon entering the Sushi Kage's office, he noticed one thing immediately. Among the 5 great shinobi villages, the Hokage's office was undoubtedly the smallest. Kitsuchi, serving as their guide, performed his duty diligently. After receiving the Sushi Kage's instructions from the clerical staff, he led the Hidden Leaf village delegation straight to the meeting hall. Upon entering the hall, the first thing that caught everyone's eye was Onoki, already seated, along with the other Hidden Stones village high-ranking officials. However, Masashi didn't recognize any of them. He only knew Onoki and Kitsuchi. The Hidden Leaf village delegation took their seats in order, with Kitsuchi sitting next to Onoki. The representatives from Hidden Leaf village sat upright, brimming with confidence and enthusiasm. It had been a long time since they had encountered a Kage who adhered to protocol so strictly. They felt a sense of familiarity and were optimistic about delivering an exceptional performance today. Once everyone was seated, Onoki didn't speak immediately, and neither did Masashi. With the two leading figures remaining silent, everyone else could only exchange glances in awkward quiet. Masashi looked at the stubborn, defiant gaze of Onoki and decided he couldn't let the other side act up again. He resolved to take the lead. Sushi Kage-sama, Masashi broke the silence, instantly drawing the attention of both delegations. For decades, Hidden Leaf village and Hidden Stones village have maintained diplomatic relations, advancing hand in hand. The traditional friendship between our two villages has stood the test of time and grown even stronger. Huh? What is this white ghost talking about? All along, under the joint leadership of our two villages, mutual political trust has been firm, and the results of our collaboration have been fruitful. Particularly in maintaining regional peace, we have engaged in close and effective cooperation across various fields. When unrest broke out in the Land of Rain recently, our two villages supported each other and faced the challenges together, demonstrating a brotherly bond in times of adversity. After finishing his long speech in one breath, Masashi, with a confident wave of his hand, boldly proclaimed, Sushi Kage-sama, It is necessary for us to take our partnership further and establish a comprehensive strategic partnership based on mutual trust and win-win cooperation. The entire room fell silent. Everyone was too stunned to react. Hidden Stone's village was dumbfounded, and the Hidden Leaf village delegates were even more astonished. Onoki's previously sarcastic smile had vanished, his mind now buzzing. Supported each other? Faced challenges together? A bond of brotherhood in adversity? What nonsense was this? Mutual trust? Win-win cooperation? Was this even human speech? After replaying Masashi's words in his head, he was shocked. Was this really an Uchiha? Is this what the Uchiha clan has become now? Kitsushi was equally stunned. He looked at Masashi with admiration. So it turns out his kindred spirit was right here all along. The veteran Hidden Leaf village diplomats weren't just shocked, they were enlightened. So, this was how you fabricate nonsense. They had been too hasty. They had assumed the Uchiha clan only knew how to fight and flip tables at the slightest provocation. They were already prepared to step in and salvage the situation if things went south. Now, what was there to salvage? Masashi was way more skilled at this than they were. Masashi, are you flaunting your strength? Onoki suddenly snorted coldly. Between Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Leaf village, how many shinobi have died? The blood debt is enormous. Where is this so-called support? How could it not exist? Masashi countered. Let's not look too far back. Take the Third Great Ninja War, for example. Hidden Stone's village and Hidden Leaf village joined forces to stop Hidden Cloud's village from escalating the unjust war they initiated, ultimately killing the bandit leader, the Third Raikage. Doesn't this demonstrate the deep friendship between our villages over decades of diplomatic relations? Everyone was stunned, so the Raikage was now a bandit leader? Hidden Stone's village's military actions have nothing to do with Hidden Leaf village, Onoki retorted, though his tone had softened considerably. After all, as the Tsuchikage, he had to maintain some dignity. Tsuchikage-sama, you're being overly modest. This is precisely why I propose that our villages establish a comprehensive strategic partnership based on mutual trust and win-win cooperation. Masashi maintained his smile and continued. Think about it, you and the Hokage are miles apart, yet you cooperated so seamlessly in dealing with Hidden Cloud's village. Isn't his mutual trust? Shouldn't we pass down this spirit of sincere friendship and mutual support to future generations? The Hidden Stone's village high-ranking officials couldn't help but nod instinctively. Then they caught themselves, wait, this guy's words were so smooth, and his phrasing so novel, that they had unconsciously gotten swept along. Stop twisting words and distorting facts, Onoki realized he couldn't stay on the defensive. He needed to counterattack. This war inflicted significant losses on Hidden Stone's village because of Hidden Leaf village's expansionism, which escalated the conflict. While we've agreed to a ceasefire, Hidden Stone's village deserves compensation. Sigh. Tsuchikage-sama, Masashi suddenly shook his head, his tone sounding disappointed. Your vision is too narrow? This little Uchiha brat is really infuriating. How am I narrow-minded? For fuck's sake, I'm the greatest Tsuchikage in the village. Everyone says so. What do you mean by that? He suppressed his anger and asked. The trade association is willing to offer various public sector products to the Land of Earth to support its infrastructure development and operations. They can even assist the daimyo's government in issuing special bonds. Huh? Onoki was taken aback. He had heard of this association, it controlled vast resources, but it only conducted business in the Land of Fire and its allied countries. Onoki, having some understanding of economics, had looked into this organization. It was indeed ridiculously wealthy. It seemed Hidden Leaf village was very sincere this time. It looks like the fourth Hokage is very sincere, Onoki said with a smile. He had no choice but to smile. Hidden Stone's village was large, and the Land of Earth even larger. There were countless expenses to cover, and the Land of Earth was perpetually short on funds. The daimyo's government slashed budgets annually, with everyone knowing the unspoken rule, cut every proposal by 30% off the top. Masashi also smiled. The Land of Fire currently had too much money circulating in the market, mainly because the nobles had amassed immense wealth over the years. Now, not only were interest rates being reduced to the point of reaching the nobles' expected yield limits, but the cost of living for the general populace was also rising. This wasn't good. The excess money had to be released into the market. But such a large amount of money required a sufficiently vast and stable market to absorb it. The Land of Water was out of the question. They weren't short on wealth but on investment opportunities, much like the Land of Fire. The Land of Lightning? Forget it. From top to bottom, they lacked the basic spirit of honoring agreements. They'd probably default on their obligations as easily as breathing. The Land of Wind was too poor. Apart from abundant minerals, they lacked everything else. Pouring money into their economy would be like throwing it into a black hole. Masashi was looking to improve financial efficiency, not intentionally lose money. After careful consideration, the Land of Earth was the only suitable option. Its financial system was even more primitive and underdeveloped than the Land of Fires had been. If they didn't take this opportunity, would their conscience allow it? Wage war? By the time Hidden Stones Village realized what was happening, it would be too late. They'd already be entangled with Hidden Leaf Village. They'd have no choice but to fight Hidden Leaf Village's enemies instead. Seeing Onoki's expression, Masashi knew the old man was tempted. His smile became even more amiable. Why aren't the other Hidden Leaf Village diplomats saying anything? With a sidelong glance, he noticed the group of old diplomats furiously scribbling notes. What were they writing? Never mind. As long as they didn't disrupt the negotiations, it didn't matter. Chapter 129, Money Talks. The first round of negotiations between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village ended hastily. Not because the talks went poorly, but because they went too well. The senior officials of Hidden Stones Village felt they had never encountered anything so absurd in their entire lives. What was supposed to be a negotiation between two groups turned into one person, the White Ghost, speaking endlessly. His words flowed like a river, drowning out any attempts at response. The most baffling part? He nearly jumped on the table and pointed at their noses, saying, "Is this all you've got? I've got money, ask for more, damn it." The senior officials of Hidden Stones Village didn't even know what expression to wear. Anger? He's offering investments, and in volumes that could make anyone dizzy. Happiness? How could they be happy after being lectured like children? That would just be embarrassing. In the end, they were stuck, unable to be happy or angry. Truly, they didn't know how to react. Gradually, even Onoki adopted a blank expression. By the end, the Hidden Stones Village delegation couldn't even get a word in edgewise. They had a lot to say but didn't know how to say it because Masashi kept bombarding them with words. They were completely disoriented. In the end, they could only say, "Let's end today's talks here. We'll consider things." They had came prepared to manipulate the narrative and extort maliciously. But what was this? They were scolded and couldn't even get mad about it. Worse, they had to smile. It was maddening. Watching the White Ghost lead his delegation to the hotel to rest, Onoki and the senior officials of Hidden Stones Village felt both confused and stifled. But also a bit excited. If we control the flow of money. Onoki began quietly, his eyes narrowing in thought. We'd become the gateway to the Land of Earth's development. The White Ghost had proposed during the meeting that any loans to the Land of Earth must have Hidden Stones Village as a guarantor. If Hidden Stones Village did not approve of a project, not even the daimyo's authority would matter, the association wouldn't lend a single coin. Guarantees could generate fees, not to mention all the connections this would build. Thinking optimistically, Hidden Stones Village could even leverage this to strengthen alliances. All they had to do was shuffle a few procedures to divert funds. After all, Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't care, as long as debts were repaid on time. If they couldn't repay, according to the White Ghost, they could refinance with conditions or use the daimyo's special purpose bones to swap the debt. And once the debt was swapped, the creditor would become the daimyo of the Land of Earth. Wouldn't that make negotiations much easier? Extending the thought further, wouldn't the Land of Earth have to go through Hidden Stones Village even when engaging in financial diplomacy with allied nations? Before their eyes, the senior officials of Hidden Stones Village began to see a beautiful vision of the future. If Masashi knew what they were thinking now, he'd probably laugh until he banged the table. Unfortunately, he didn't know. At this moment, he was lounging in a chair at the hotel, enjoying the flattery of a group of veteran doves. The tea on the table was constantly refilled with utmost diligence. The hotel staff had been directly dismissed under the pretext of discussing sensitive peace treaty matters requiring confidentiality. As soon as the staff left, the old doves eagerly took on the role of attendants. The younger doves could only watch enviously as their seniors secured the prime spots to ask questions. Masashi, however, felt troubled. These people were simply too enthusiastic. How should we interpret this term guarantee? An old negotiator from the Shimura clan asked, notebook in hand, nodding earnestly. Ah, Shimura-san. Hey. Don't call me Shimura-san, call me Dan. He waved magnanimously. I may be friends with young Fugaku, but we can be buddies too. Let's not let age get in the way. Alright, Dan. Masashi gave in, then patiently explained. This term is tailored for Hidden Stones Village. After all, they also have their own obligations. To protect the interests of the nobles, we need to implement certain credit-enhancing measures. For example, their mission funds can be deposited in banks designated by the association. But how do we know if they're depositing all of it? That's simple. We can set up a specialized trading institution modeled after a currency exchange in the Land of Grass. Those accepting missions from Hidden Stones Village can register their tasks there. The facility would be jointly managed by Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village. Once mission funds are collected, they'll be deposited directly but withhold a portion until debts are cleared. So we don't gain anything? Oh, not necessarily. During the withholding period, the funds can be invested elsewhere. Per the agreement, Hidden Leaf Village will share in the profits. Also, note that these credit enhancements are for medium to long-term products, ranging from 3 to 30 years. Oh? I see. Dan exclaimed in realization. The boy's smarter than his age suggests, he thought. Alright, listen to me for a moment, Masashi said, seeing the crowd of eager note-takers. Are they always this studious? Didn't see this enthusiasm back in Ninja Academy. Is it really true that people love learning as they age? All of us had a long journey and jumped straight into meetings upon arriving in Hidden Stones Village. You all must be tired. Let's rest well today. I predict Hidden Stones Village will initiate the second round of talks soon after tonight. Ah, right. Dan promptly took on the role of protector. What are you all doing? Masashi has had a long day and needs to rest. What if he collapses? The group of old doves froze for a moment, then grew indignant. Excuse me? Weren't you the one asking the most questions just now? Still, they admitted he had a point. Masashi, you must rest well. You're a valuable asset to the village, said the second old dove. Back then, Fugaku said the future of the Uchiha clan would rest on your shoulders, so take care of yourself. Yes. Everyone here is a friend, we can afford to wait. You need to rest. Dan, get out of the way, you're blocking his path to his room. Masashi smiled awkwardly but politely. These old doves were truly a force to be reckoned with, having once worked with Danzō. Many of the enemies who fell to Hidden Leaf Village's covert operations were first sweet-talked and misled by these old doves before Danzō delivered the fatal blow. Masashi wasn't worried about their competence, he just didn't want them messing up his carefully laid plans. Fortunately, they were highly eager to learn, and the foundational knowledge he shared today could help them support the next round of talks. Hidden Stones Village? He had them right where he wanted them. After overcoming their initial discomfort, the upper echelons of Hidden Stones Village quickly adjusted and got into the groove. In the 5 great ninja villages, anyone capable of reaching the top levels of leadership always excelled at assimilating new knowledge swiftly. The same went for the doves of Hidden Leaf Village. Being a dove was no easy task, it required a sharp and quick mind. However, a collection of fragmented knowledge coupled with ungrounded assumptions was no match for a well-established, systematic knowledge framework. Not just Hidden Stones Village, even within Hidden Leaf Village itself, only the upper ranks of the Uchiha clan had systematically received Masashi's relentless, day-by-day cramming sessions. Everyone else just scratched the surface. Thus, on the surface, the Uchiha clan now appeared more concerned than ever with the prosperity of the Land of Fire and Hidden Leaf Village. This stemmed from Masashi's repeated reminders, this whole approach doesn't generate wealth. If we overplay it, we all lose. With this understanding, the Uchiha clan had shared all other powers within the association with Hidden Leaf Village and the Fire Daimyo's government, except for risk control, which they exclusively managed themselves. Anything failing to meet the rigid criteria set by Masashi was outright rejected. Even with such measures, every 3 months, the association compiled a set of statistical reports for him to review. The research on the Land of Earth had started long ago. All plans regarding the Land of Earth had been thoroughly discussed countless times. To be blunt, Masashi knew the market of the Land of Earth better than Anoki himself. He had a clear grasp of Hidden Stones Villages and the Earth Daimyo's needs, understanding their bottom lines and the room for negotiation. Among the many clauses negotiated with Hidden Stones Village, the pledging of non-government mission fees by Hidden Stones Village's Chunin and higher-level ninja, as well as the designated banking and usage rights for deposited funds, were non-negotiable for Masashi. This wasn't just about securing a portion of Hidden Stones Village's funds for Hidden Leaf Village's use. By analyzing fund flows, he could also track the activities of the higher-ranked ninja in Hidden Stones Village, which was far more reliable than purchasing intelligence from Kusa. The upper echelons of Hidden Stones Village were all savvy individuals, but that didn't stop them from falling into Masashi's trap. This was an entirely new set of rules, different from the past. Though still in its infancy, it gave him an overwhelming advantage. No matter how shrewd Hidden Stones Village's leadership might be, their defense against this was non-existent. For instance, from the scale of mission payments and frequency of assignments, one could roughly deduce the level and type of missions being performed. The clients depositing mission fees could provide insights into the geographical range of operations and other details. All data collection was done through the banks, not Hidden Leaf Village as ninja. It was part of normal business processes and beyond reproach. This data was included in the association's statistical reports on the banks, which were then presented to Hidden Leaf Village. Over time, this process would gradually strip Hidden Stone's village's mid and high-ranking ninja of their secrets from Hidden Leaf Village's perspective. Hidden Leaf Village would know better than Hidden Stone's village how many mid and high-level ninja they could mobilize, whether they were preparing for war, and how they planned to allocate personnel. On a larger scale, as the association had increasingly become a critical tool for the daimyo's government in managing the national economy, the inclusion of a large economy like the Land of Earth benefits all classes of the Land of Fire. This was far superior to the crude methods of the past. Just look at how the Land of Rain had been drained. In the original timeline, Nagato, under the name of Pain, attacked Hidden Leaf Village not only to obtain the Nine Tails but also to represent the anger accumulated by smaller nations over time. The root cause was the overly crude, nearly barbaric, and ruthless exploitation methods employed by the larger nations against the smaller ones. That was why Nagato said to Tsunade, "Your peace is our violence." When he destroyed Hidden Leaf Village, he did so with conviction, and it made sense. If strength justified unrestrained actions, then why shouldn't someone with the Rinnegan and most of the tailed beasts have the same right? As rounds of negotiations continued, Masashi's workload began to ease. After all, the veteran doves were quick learners, and he had already laid out the bottom lines for them. Until a final consensus was reached, it was their time to freely negotiate. This groundwork would allow his eventual concessions and unyielding stances to be well prepared. Eventually, he stopped attending meetings altogether. There was too much to argue about. Instead, he began exploring Hidden Stone's village. He was genuinely curious about this village. After all, experiencing a foreign land was like a government-funded vacation. And with an Hidden Stone's village ninja acting as a tour guide, why not enjoy it? Deidara, isn't it a bit stifling to have restaurants inside these fortresses? Masashi asked, pointing to a building. This is just how the village is, Deidara replied, reluctantly acting as the guide. He wasn't thrilled about the task, as he was obsessed with training. And besides, doesn't Hidden Leaf Village eat indoors too? It's different for us, Masashi shook his head. Our air circulates. Our air circulates too, Deidara said, puzzled. Alright, what's for lunch today? Masashi asked, changing the subject. Kurotsuchi loves playing with you. Why aren't you hanging out with her today? TCH. Little kids are so annoying. Deidara grimaced at the mention of her. I have training to do. Who has time to entertain her? Oh, aren't you fancy? Masashi laughed. Having a childhood sweetheart is something to appreciate. I didn't have a girl to grow up with. What does fancy mean? Deidara asked, confused. He figured it was just another of Masashi's bizarre phrases and let it slide. He jogged ahead across a suspension bridge and into a new fortress. Just ahead is a famous snack area in the village. You should try it, Deidara said, pointing to a passageway. Oh? Masashi stepped forward. Sounds good. Let's check it out. Deidara nodded and moved ahead. By the way, is this whole fortress just for snacks? There's more. You can row boats on the lower levels. Upstairs, there are shops and theater performances. I see, a commercial complex, Masashi remarked. What's a commercial complex? Deidara's ears perked up again. You're just a kid, why so many questions? Where's the food? We've been walking forever. TCH. Fine, keep your secrets, stingy. Deidara pouted and sped up. He perked up when the passage opened into a bustling space filled with all kinds of shops. Food smells drifted through the air, making their stomachs growl. Chapter 130, Contracts in Blood and Ink. After spending a few days wandering around Hidden Stone's village, Masashi came to the conclusion that this village wasn't half bad. The first Sushi Kage sure had an eye for location. This place was arguably one of the rare gems in the Land of Earth. Despite the rocky terrain and the snowy mountains up north, the climate here wasn't bad at all. You could tell just by looking at the village ladies, who liked to wear fishnet stockings. No fleece-lined tights needed here. It wasn't too cold or too hot, and their clear, glowing skin showed that the environment was indeed nurturing. Hidden Stone's village's commercial setup even brought back memories for him of the all-in-one commercial complexes he'd seen back on Earth. Back in the day, a trip that included a movie, dinner, and a stroll was his go-to way to pass the time. The street food in Hidden Stone's village also had its own charm. The cuisine here reminded him of the French cuisine, and the lamb dishes were particularly well prepared. Hidden Stone's village was more than accommodating to Masashi's food and drink escapades. As negotiations progressed, and as intelligence reports trickled back to the village, Hidden Stone's village's leadership began to realize something. This whole ordeal didn't hinge on the Hokage's approval, it only mattered if Masashi agreed. Naturally, they needed to earn his goodwill. The food and entertainment costs were trivial, nothing that would strain Hidden Stone's village's finances. So, He ended up living it up in Hidden Stones Village for over 2 weeks. During this time, Deidara still couldn't escape Kurotsuchi's grasp and had to take her along for training. Masashi didn't bother interfering with the two of them. By now, he had grown quite familiar with Hidden Stones Village. However, the negotiations had reached their final stage. The last meeting would be for formal signing. He would attend once more, carrying the Hokage's seal. As Minato's authorized representative, he would finalize the agreement with Onoki. The night before the meeting, Masashi drafted the agreement based on the discussions among the old doves. He knew exactly which parts could be adjusted or removed. The next day, he led the delegation back to the meeting hall they hadn't entered in over 2 weeks. By this point, Hidden Stones Village's upper echelon had a completely different attitude toward the Hidden Leaf Village delegation compared to when they first arrived. Perhaps after days of hashing things out, a sense of camaraderie had emerged. The veteran schemers on both sides even seemed a little reluctant to part ways. After all, it wasn't easy to find an evenly matched opponent back in their respective villages. The satisfaction of sparring with someone on your level was unmatched. Of course, that was only if you were also skilled. If you were the underdog constantly being crushed, it would just be demoralizing. As usual, they started with polite small talk, asking about meals, sleep, and other pleasantries, before getting to the main business. Tsuchikage-sama, can we confirm the signing will happen today? Masashi asked. Of course, Onoki nodded, his expression serious and his focus razor sharp. By now, he no longer saw Masashi as a kid. This guy was a devil. Before these negotiations, Onoki had firmly believed he'd never align Hidden Stones Village with Hidden Leaf Village. But now, he wasn't so sure. Masashi didn't seem like someone who would help Hidden Stones Village out of sheer goodwill. Still, Onoki couldn't pinpoint any major downsides to the deal. Was Hidden Leaf Village simply securing some benefits, or was this all part of a larger conspiracy? The only thing he was certain of was the need to control the scale of things. Cheating wasn't an option, not because he lacked the desire, but because Hidden Stones Village genuinely needed the steel. And besides, the Land of Earth's people, unlike those from the Land of Lightning or the Land of Wind, had a culture that valued contracts. Among the 5 great nations, the Land of Fire and the Land of Earth were the most rule-abiding. The Land of Water, while chaotic during unrest, adhered strictly to rules once stability was achieved. Both Hidden Mist Village and the daimyo's court respected contracts when order prevailed. Otherwise, who would willingly go to war? For most shinobi, warfare was the riskiest undertaking. Preferring sneak attacks during wartime didn't mean a lack of respect for agreements, they were 2 separate issues. Onoki, for instance, always sent a declaration of war before his sneak attacks. Sure, it might have been a bit last minute, but he still followed procedure. Well then, let's finalize the agreement today, Masashi said, pulling out the prepared document and sliding it across the table toward Onoki. The Tsuchikage extended his hand to hold down the paper. Masashi, you're not playing any tricks here, are you? He asked. Tsuchikage-sama, during this time, I've had extensive discussions with Kitsuchi. I believe he has conveyed my intentions fully. That's fine. If this agreement indeed guarantees Hidden Stones Village's rightful interests, I'll stake my name as Tsuchikage to uphold it, Onoki said coldly. But if Hidden Leaf Village uses this to harm Hidden Stones Village, the 2 villages will be at eternal odds. This isn't a threat, it's a statement of fact. My will as Tsuchikage won't change this. Tsuchikage-sama, rest assured. Hidden Leaf Village will get what it seeks, and Hidden Stones Village will get what it desires, Masashi replied solemnly. We've also included multiple measures to prevent unforeseen circumstances or malicious breaches of contract. Such as? What do you mean by unforeseen circumstances? It's all clearly defined in the agreement, Tsuchikage-sama. Please review it first. They exchanged a long look before the Onoki began reading the agreement. On the cover page, the first thing he noticed was a lengthy table of contents. The top entry read, Glossary of Terms. What does Glossary of Terms mean? It's to ensure both parties interpret the agreement consistently. We can verify these definitions on the spot, and revise them if there's any disagreement. That does seem necessary, Onoki nodded and continued flipping through. The room was quiet except for the sound of turning pages. Despite being called an agreement, the document was practically a book. How will the retained mission funds be scaled? He asked suddenly. We can't wait until the debt is fully repaid to recover them, right? And since this money belongs to us as long as we don't breach the contract, how do we ensure you won't misuse it? A dedicated account will be set up under joint control. Every transaction will require signatures from both the Hokage and the Tsuchikage before the bank processes it. During the freeze period, the bank can invest this money elsewhere, and as the rightful owner of the funds, Hidden Stones Village will receive a portion of the profits. Think of it as a risk-free investment. What if the bank incurs losses? They'll cover it. Nobody in this world dares to cheat both the Tsuchikage and the Hokage simultaneously. And how will the scale of the retained funds be determined? It will be a fixed percentage of the remaining debt. Why do we have to pay fees for early repayment? There's no way around that, Tsuchikage-sama. Even if you repay the principal early, investors will lose out on interest. If someone raised funds through an association to lend to Hidden Stones Village, the same rules would apply. You'd have to pay fees for early repayment. Onoki fired off questions, and Masashi answered them all without hesitation. Impressive, the Tsuchikage admitted, though grudgingly, before resuming his reading. Finally, he finished reading the entire document. He had to admit, he was genuinely impressed with Masashi's ability to come up with such an extensive agreement. What kind of brain did this guy have? Honestly, reading the whole thing made his head spin. It was exhausting. The format was also unusually peculiar. In the past, agreements between ninja villages were always simple and straightforward: specify the date to formally cease hostilities, the number of prisoners to be exchanged, and the amount of compensation. Everything was clear and concise. Even at its lengthiest, such agreements were only a few pages long. But this, it was way too detailed, and to make matters worse, even signing this massive document wasn't the end. Both parties would still need to sign a bunch of additional agreements with the association, followed by 3-party agreements. Good grief. Was it always this complicated? Onoki now understood why that association was so successful. It wasn't just because of Hidden Leaf Village's military backing. Their rules and regulations were exceptionally meticulous. Although this document was merely a framework, he could already tell that under such a structure, Hidden Leaf Village would have no way to manipulate financial matters against Hidden Stones Village, unless Hidden Stones Village had a traitor. Onoki initially considered making some changes, but he found himself unable to do so. The rights and obligations of Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village were perfectly balanced, detailed point by point. If he changed something for Hidden Stones Village, he would have to change something for Hidden Leaf Village as well. After all the revisions, neither side gained any advantage. But if he left it unchanged, it would make him, the Tsuchikage, look weak and incapable. So, he decided to propose his own modifications. Overall, it's acceptable, he said. He picked up his teacup, and gulped it down. However, I have 2 suggestions for revisions. Please, go ahead, Masashi replied with a smile. First, the name of this agreement is too long. Something about a comprehensive strategy and military cooperation. It's unnecessarily verbose. We're ninja villages. We should have a name that reflects our identity. Oh? What name do you suggest? Just call it an alliance treaty. No need for all that extra nonsense, Onoki said, tapping the table with his fingers, looking like he was scolding someone for being unnecessarily fussy. Beside him, Kitsuchi gave an approving nod. And the renewal period, every year? That's way too much trouble. How can we even see results that way? Listen to me, make it every 5 years, with renewal 6 months in advance. No problem, Masashi nodded. We'll do as you say. He signaled to one of his scribes, who, along with Hidden Stones Village's scribes, began revising the document. The atmosphere in the room visibly relaxed. From now on, they were allies, so there was no need to remain so tense. Tsuchikage-sama, will you be signing this personally, or will you use your seal? Masashi asked with a smile. Humphrey. Onoki pulled out a pen. I always sign personally. I don't use seals. In that case, I hope you'll forgive me. On our side, we can only use the Hokage's seal. That's fine, but your own signature needs to be on it. I'm not the Hokage. Doesn't matter. If you don't sign, I won't either. Alright, fine. How about we add a representative signature line on the signature page? Whatever. As long as you sign. Okay. I'll sign. Definitely. Masashi relented and called out to the scribes. Add a representative signature line for Hidden Leaf Village on the signature page. And for that continuity seal mentioned in the document, if you don't have a seal, you'll write it by hand. Fine, whatever you say. A while later, the revised agreements were brought back. Both parties began cross-checking the documents to ensure consistency, leaving Onoki and Masashi free to take a break in the tea lounge. Seated with his teacup in hand, Onoki said, Masashi, Deidara and Kurotsuchi have told me about you. Thank you for taking care of them recently. That was the Hokage's decision, Masashi replied with a smile. This kind of favor wasn't worth making a fuss over. The 4th Hokage, huh? A slight smile appeared on Onoki's usually rigid face. He does seem like a reasonable person. If he weren't, you wouldn't have agreed to sign the treaty so quickly. Partially true, Onoki admitted, sipping his tea. I have a question for you. You said that only with guarantees from both our villages and Hidden Mist Village can services be extended to the Land of Wind and the Land of Lightning. Are you deliberately excluding Hidden Sand Village? That's not it at all. The association doesn't have a base in the Land of Wind, and the lands of Fire and Lightning have always been old enemies. It's simply a necessary safety measure. So you're already preparing for the possibility of Hidden Sand Village lashing out in desperation? How could I possibly prepare for that? Such decisions are made by higher-ups. You're not part of Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups? Who is, then? Also, what's with your hostility toward Hidden Clouds Village? Onoki was genuinely curious but had no real objections. This negotiation had given him new insights. Despite his youth, the so-called White Ghost was cautious, capable, and well-established in both strength and status. Even Hidden Clouds Village would find dealing with someone like him difficult. Onoki had a premonition, Hidden Clouds Village would someday suffer for their unpaid debts, likely facing attacks from 3 villages. And he had no complaints about that. Hidden Clouds Village had developed too rapidly. Their greed and aggressiveness, combined with the dominance of their militaristic faction, had placed immense pressure on Hidden Stones Village. Onoki was still in office at his age precisely because he didn't believe anyone in his village could handle the pressure from Hidden Clouds Village. Although Hidden Clouds Village had temporarily lost their Jinchuriki, it hadn't significantly weakened them. They had already mastered the creation of perfect Jinchuriki. Capturing the tailed beasts of other villages wasn't beyond Hidden Clouds Village's reach. Their attack on Hidden Sand Village in the Third Shinobi World War was largely motivated by their desire to capture the One Tail. Onoki's decision to sign the agreement was driven by more than just the financial benefits. The decisive factor was seeing the potential for a genuine alliance between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village, one capable of jointly countering Hidden Clouds Village and Hidden Sand Village. Especially Hidden Clouds Village. For this possibility, he was willing to give it a shot. Once the treaty is signed, I will immediately announce it publicly, Onoki declared. That's what Hidden Leaf Village wants most, isn't it? I'll cooperate with you this time. Just make sure Hidden Leaf Village truly wants peace with Hidden Stones Village. Of course, Masashi nodded firmly. If anyone tries to sabotage the cooperation between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village, I'll be the first to deal with them. Remember what you said. As long as you deliver, Hidden Stones Village can be an ally of the Uchiha clan, Masashi. Chapter 131, Peace Treaty. War brewing. The news of Hidden Leaf Village forming an alliance with Hidden Stones Village spread like wildfire across the continent. When people first heard this, they thought they were hallucinating from working too hard. The third Tsuchikage was widely known for 2 characteristics, never forming alliances with other villages. Always being late with declarations of war. For decades, this stubborn and temperamental Onoki never wavered. And now, he had formed an alliance? At the center of this explosive news was the 4th Hokage, who sat at his desk. All in all, this is extremely good news, Minato said in a deep voice. Now, we must focus on how Hidden Clouds Village will respond. At this moment, the Hokage's office was filled with influential figures. Representing the new era were Minato and Fugaku. And representing the old era were Hiruzen, Koharu, and Hamura. Compared to when Minato first took office, the leadership team hadn't changed much, with only one new face. However, the dynamics had shifted significantly. Minato had fully stepped into his role as Hokage, and no one thought he needed the old generation's guidance anymore. Meanwhile, Hiruzen, now entirely focused on teaching his grandson, was here in body but not in spirit. From the moment he entered the room until official discussions began, he'd mentioned, "My grandson has started learning staff techniques. He's so much like me, to every single person at least twice." Koharu and Hamura, without grandchildren to teach, were eager to remain involved. But Minato's governance style differed vastly from Hiruzen's, rendering much of their experience less relevant. Still, their positions as senior advisors were unshakable. "What do you think?" Minato asked. "Will Hidden Clouds Village back down, or double down with a tougher stance?" Masashi had given Hidden Leaf Village an immense surprise. Nobody had held high hopes for this mission to Hidden Stones Village. After all, Hidden Stones Village wasn't like Kiri. Its internal situation had always been stable, its strength considerable, and Onoki's non-alliance policy was backed by confidence. Most had expected the talks to end like they did during the third Hokage's time, a mutual acknowledgement of setbacks and a decision to reconvene after a few years of rest. Yet the early reports from the delegation indicated that Onoki had chosen to ally immediately. And not just that, he'd signed an agreement thick enough to fill a book. The report also mentioned Hidden Stones Village's plans to send an official delegation to Hidden Leaf Village next year to discuss specific terms of collaboration. "Fugaku, take a look," Minato said, handing the letter to the Hokage advisor. "To be honest, I didn't fully understand it. You're the expert on this, what do you think? Does it seem reliable? Fugaku took the letter, quickly read through it, and said, Onoki does seem genuinely intent on forming an alliance. However, how deep this partnership goes will depend on the detailed terms agreed upon during next year's official visit. He placed the letter back on the desk. That's reassuring. Minato relaxed slightly. So, we just need to focus on Hidden Cloud's village, then. No, there's also Hidden Sand Village, Hiruzen interjected. Though he no longer held much authority, he was well versed in the thought processes of his old allies. After all, it was him who had orchestrated the alliance with Hidden Sand Village years ago. He had to admit, his intentions back then weren't entirely pure. While the treaty itself showed no direct hostility toward Hidden Sand Village, its implementation was laden with disadvantages for them. By now, Hidden Sand Village had likely figured that out. At its core, Hidden Sand Village was much like Hidden Cloud's village, an aggressively expansionist village with a keen eye on the Land of Fire's resources. Their alliance with Hidden Leaf Village was mainly to counterbalance Hidden Stone's village. Now that Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stone's village had allied, Hidden Sand Village might abandon their treaty and ally with Hidden Cloud's village instead. This shift could escalate tensions once more. Are you suggesting we put pressure on Hidden Sand Village? Minato asked. Something like that. Hiruzen took a deep drag from his pipe before suggesting, for this year's Chunin exams, Hidden Leaf Village could propose having Hidden Sand Village host it, with Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village participating. I see. Minato still seemed concerned. Wouldn't that push Hidden Sand Village even closer to Hidden Cloud's village? Those two villages are likely already in contact, Hiruzen said. But it's not a major issue. Hidden Sand Village also seeks better ties with Kiri. This is all just a way to buy time. Our job as adults is to provide a peaceful environment for the younger generation to grow. Agreed, Fugaku said, fully supportive. Still, this is all speculative. We'll need to hear from Masashi once he returns and adapt based on the actual situation in Hidden Stone's village, Hiruzen added with a smile. For Onoki to agree to this alliance, he must have pulled off something extraordinary. I can imagine, Fugaku said with a grin. It likely has something to do with the association. That association's influence is growing, Hiruzen remarked. Even the daimyo's government is paying more attention. Recently, an official suggested bringing the association under direct government control. Did the Fire Daimyo agree? Of course not. The official was dismissed on the spot. Hiruzen exhaled a puff of smoke. But before he could even return to his estate, he was killed. Fugaku, were you aware of this? Not yet. Fugaku nodded. With the association growing so large, internal conflicts are inevitable. It was clear that Tetsuka and his group still had much to learn from Masashi. But that was precisely why it was them, and not Masashi, who had gone. Their role was intimidation, after all. The 5 great shinobi villages generally refrained from harming daimyo, even those of smaller nations, except under special circumstances. The same applied to lesser aristocrats. But special circumstances were another matter entirely. Reports indicated that the association's immense wealth had naturally attracted numerous threats, particularly from small-time nobles who fancied themselves talented but unlucky. These minor aristocrats sought opportunities to display their abilities and gain the favor of major lords. Of course, truly powerful figures wouldn't stoop to such schemes. Hiruzen didn't dwell on this topic. His mention of it was just a subtle reminder. He had been pleased to see the Uchiha clan's transformation. If they'd been like this earlier, he wouldn't have faced such headaches in the past. The conversation soon returned to strategic discussions. Those with true authority in the Land of Fire naturally knew that the real masters of the association were the Uchiha clan. To be more specific, it was Masashi. The title of White Ghost aside, it was almost certain that he would be the next head of the clan. To challenge the association was to challenge Masashi, which in turn was to challenge the Uchiha clan as a whole. No one would willingly engage in such a venture purely for money. After all, these were the great nobles, they weren't desperate for wealth to that extent. And so, just as the Hokage building chose to selectively forget about the matter, the daimyo's residence also did not stir up any waves regarding it. After all, people die every day in this world, what's so unusual about the death of an official? There was no rule that said the Land of Fire couldn't have bandits motivated by greed, right? And so, the matter passed without incident. Because soon, there was a much bigger event to focus on. The Hidden Leaf Village delegation had returned from the Land of Earth. On this day, Hidden Leaf Village was filled with decorations, vibrant and lively. Everyone was joyfully celebrating the triumphant return of their delegation. The alliance with Hidden Stone's village signified that the light of peace had already illuminated most of this land. The only remaining shadow on the continent, stubbornly refusing to let sunlight in, was the Land of Lightning. Subtly, the people of a land of fire, be they nobles, ninjas, or ordinary citizens, began to look at the land of lightning with a peculiar perspective. This was the situation Masashi returned to, leading the Hidden Leaf Village delegation back home. The village was in an uproar, completely immersed in a joyful atmosphere. As the delegation walked through the streets, they were surrounded by endless cheers and praises. The senior members of the delegation were visibly proud. As veteran players in Hidden Leaf Village's political game, they understood very well the significance of the alliance between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village. They also knew how great an achievement this was. While the major credit undoubtedly belonged to Masashi, they didn't mind. Simply participating in this negotiation ensured that their personal and family histories would shine with distinction. The cheers and applause from all around were more intoxicating than any achievement. Masashi himself felt deeply moved. After all his effort, he had finally managed to divert Hidden Leaf Village away from the trajectory of decline, fundamentally avoiding the possibility of a rupture between the Uchiha clan and the village. All internal conflicts inevitably stem from a tightening of the internal environment. As long as he could handle the land of lightning, peace would be within reach. All that remained was to watch over the new generation. Wait a moment. Besides the 12 Genin, there were also Karen and Hiku. Oh, and for some reason, Konohamaru had ended up in the same year as Naruto and Sasuke. Older than Naruto, but younger than Sasuke. This wasn't 12 Genin anymore, it was 14, maybe even 15. Not bad at all. This was truly good. He had fulfilled the expectations of the foolishly optimistic and the overly wealthy members of the Uchiha clan. When they arrived at the Hokage building, the area was already packed with people, but the crowd had thoughtfully left a path open for the delegation. Led by Minato, Hidden Leaf Village's leadership was at the building's entrance to welcome them, all smiles and clearly in high spirits. Hiruzen looked at the young man walking at the forefront. Reflecting on the many honors this individual had brought to the village over the years, he was reminded of Kagami, who had passed away at a young age. The elderly man felt both nostalgic and gratified. Another generation of youth had grown up and was now able to shield Hidden Leaf Village from storms. In a moment of reverie, Hiruzen felt as though he had returned to the time when he first stood in front of the Hokage building, seeing those familiar figures approaching together. Hiruzen, what's wrong? Hamura noticed his old friend's unusual demeanor. It's nothing, just thinking about something. Hiruzen regained his composure and forced a hearty laugh. Seeing the vitality of the young people reminds me of many things from the past. We weren't so different, were we? Us. Hamura thought carefully. Hiruzen had been a top student, Danzo a perpetual contrarian, Koharu always sleeping in class, Dorafu constantly eating, and Kagami arriving earliest and leaving latest, which got him assigned as the class sanitation officer by the instructor. He also enforced penalties for littering. Danzo was the frequent offender. How was this similar? It was completely different. Are we even remembering the same things? Hiruzen, not at all the same. Masashi has become an indispensable ninja for the village, Koharu suddenly remarked from the side. Koharu, what are you trying to say? Hiruzen turned to her. Such a powerful ninja should officially take on a team, don't you think? The academy has indeed submitted such a request. Hiruzen stroked his pipe thoughtfully. I've heard he's already teaching some kids. The Masashi team. Seeming to recall something amusing, he chuckled. At this point, the delegation had arrived. You've worked hard, Masashi. For the village, it's no hardship. I'm sure this is a fascinating story. You must tell us all about it. It's nothing much. Masashi forced a laugh. Honestly, he didn't feel like recounting the story. So much effort, and these people would have endless questions. Let's discuss this inside, Minato said with a warm smile, clearly intent on not letting him off the hook. Go upstairs and wait for us. With an awkward yet polite smile, Masashi entered the Hokage building. The outside was no longer his concern. As for what Minato mentioned, it probably had something to do with Hidden Sand Village. If he were the Kazekage, he'd definitely be reaching out to Hidden Clouds Village by now. While Gaara's father didn't seem particularly sharp, he should have the basic sense to do this as the Kazekage. Familiar with the building, Masashi made his way to the Hokage's office. The guards at the door opened it for him, and the first thing he saw was a pot of tea on the coffee table. It was as blood-red as ever. What was worse, it seemed like this tea had been specifically prepared for him. Expressionless, he retrieved a new cup, brewed fresh tea for himself, and sat down. After a while, the office door opened again, and Minato led the Hidden Leaf Village Council inside. Huh? Minato looked at the untouched tea in surprise. Masashi, why did you brew a new cup? That one's for you. Hokage-sama, just let me do it, please. Alright, you're quite stubborn. Minato chuckled and took the tea himself, he wasn't about to let it go to waste. Masashi, Tell us how you managed this. Chapter 132, Not all storms come with rain. In the Hokage's office, after listening to Masashi's report, the 5 Hidden Leaf Village officials had a unanimous reaction. How can you be so devious? We love it. Masashi felt utterly drained, bombarded with yet another barrage of questions. He had even prepared teaching materials for Fugaku in advance. This lot must have slacked off and spent their time scribbling nonsense instead. I have one last question, Minato asked. Be honest with me, what are your thoughts on the Land of Wind and the Land of Lightning? You're not planning to integrate them into our fold, are you? The other 4 pairs of eyes shifted toward him as well. That was what they all wanted to know. Leaving the Land of Lightning aside for now, the Land of Wind, Hidden Sand Village, specifically, was still Hidden Leaf Village's nominal ally, and its first official ally at that. Of course not. If we let anyone in, what would that turn into? Masashi replied bluntly. Why not? Koharu argued. If we did, it might truly bring about peace. That's impossible. When one party benefits, someone else has to lose. The system can't make everyone prosper, there will always be a group left at the bottom, bearing the greatest losses. So, the Land of Wind and the Land of Lightning are sacrifices? The Land of Wind is already very poor, Koharu said. Poverty is relative, Masashi explained. As a source of raw materials, the Land of Wind is a treasure trove, but it lacks manpower and funding. They don't have the capacity to develop it themselves. What about the Land of Lightning? The Land of Lightning has plenty of manpower, technology, and funding, but they lack raw materials. It's perfect for us to profit from as middlemen. They could cooperate with the Land of Wind. Behind the association are 3 villages. Even if 2 of them cooperated, what difference would it make? Masashi replied. Everyone has needs, but if the Land of Wind causes us losses in the Land of Lightning, the Land of Wind would have to bear those losses. Would they be willing? He made his position crystal clear. The Land of Lightning had to bleed the most. Hidden Cloud's village frequently started wars to bolster the Land of Lightning's image as a powerful and stable nation, attracting wealth from across the continent. In the original timeline, they succeeded brilliantly. The Land of Lightning's financial strength grew, enabling it to sustain and develop Hidden Cloud's village. To weaken Hidden Cloud's village fundamentally, the Land of Lightning had to be weakened. The most straightforward way to undermine a nation was, of course, to target its finances first. The association had already begun its efforts, with the first propaganda campaigns in the Land of Earth underway. Policies for subsequent stages were already being drafted. The goal was to diminish the Land of Lightning's ability to attract investors from across the continent. The first major milestone set by Masashi was to make sure no one dared to invest south of the fortress. Nobles, accustomed to the association as their investment channel, had developed a high degree of trust in its policies. To some extent, the association's policies had become the opinion leader for the aristocracy in their pursuit of wealth. As the association grew more powerful, especially with Hidden Leaf Village, Kiri, and Hidden Stones Village joining, it could now execute such nation-level strategies. There was no rush, it had to be done gradually, step by step. Masashi, you. Minato was torn between laughing and sighing. He truly didn't understand why Masashi disliked Hidden Cloud's village so much. He was starting to worry. If Hidden Cloud's village sent negotiators to Hidden Leaf Village, would they get beaten up? Hokage-sama, Hidden Cloud's village is not like Hidden Stone's village. We can resolve our conflicts with Hidden Stone's village through dialogue, but peace with Hidden Cloud's village will only come if our strength far surpasses theirs, Masashi explained. Minato nodded. He agreed with that assessment. Deep down, Hidden Cloud's village was also his #1 hypothetical enemy. On this point, no one in the office disagreed. Hidden Leaf Village had been provoked by Hidden Cloud's village more times than anyone cared to count. If Hiruzen hadn't been the Hokage back then, and instead just a Jonin, he'd have probably clobbered every Hidden Cloud's village ninja he met. He could never forget how the second Hokage had died. Masashi, Hiruzen cautioned, emotionally, I support your approach, but you must be cautious. Your decisions affect countless lives. I'm fully aware of that, Sandaime-sama, Masashi replied. I won't make it too obvious. We won't take any actions explicitly targeting the Land of Lightning. We're simply redirecting attention toward the Land of Earth. In that case, there's no problem, Hiruzen said, thoroughly satisfied. When it comes to pulling off devious plans, we trust your ability. Masashi looked to Fugaku, hoping his clan leader would clarify things on his behalf. Instead, Fugaku looked back at him with an expression of complete agreement. Can I go home now? Masashi asked, no longer wanting to argue with them. He just wanted to go home. Yes, go ahead, Minato said cheerfully. Now that you're back, can I count on you to keep helping with Naruto? Don't worry, Hokage-sama, Masashi sighed. I need to check the kids' progress anyway. I'll start tomorrow. Haha, that's great. Thank you. Minato laughed heartily, clearly pleased. Also, take care of Sasuke properly, after all, you're his older brother, Fugaku added. Hiruzen fiddled with his pipe. He figured he could handle Konohamaru himself before the boy started school, he had plenty of free time now. But once his grandson graduated, ignoring the freeloaders, Masashi left. Back home, he enjoyed a refreshing bath, met up with Tetsuka and the others at the police force to plan their evening, and then went back to rest. That evening, he woke up feeling fantastic, dressed, and headed out. As he arrived in the most bustling part of the commercial district, all eyes turned to him. There was no helping it, this master hadn't come by for an inspection in ages. Everyone was anxious, questioning their own abilities. Over the past couple of years, constant wars had hurt business, and competition was fiercer than ever. Every day brought some new gimmick. Masashi, however, wasn't thinking about any of that. He simply wanted to enjoy some sake and relax. With so many responsibilities, he was exhausted. He hadn't practiced yin release in countless nights. That wouldn't do. One couldn't grow complacent. His current strength might seem impressive, but that was only because the gods hadn't made their move yet. Whenever he thought of Kaguya on the moon, his motivation for training surged. At the entrance of a cozy bar, Masashi heard the familiar voices before he saw them. You can't just dump sugar in quality green tea. Tetsuka shouted. It completely ruins the natural. Oh, spare me the lecture. Inika rolled his eyes, leaning against a doorframe. Not everyone wants to taste grass water, you know. Grass water? Tetsuka's face reddened. That just proves you've never had properly brewed. Now, Yuko cut in, sharing an amused glance with Yatsushiro. Let's get inside before you two wake up the whole district. They entered the tea house. Look who finally decided to join us, Inika called out, spotting Masashi. He gestured to an empty cushion at their low table. Done with all your important political meetings? Tetsuka was already reaching for the teapot, his earlier irritation forgotten. His movements were precise, each gesture part of a ritual he'd performed countless times. The ceramic clinked softly as he arranged the cups. You're just in time, he said. I've been saving this particular blend. It's from a small farm in the eastern valleys. A gentle breeze carried the sweet notes of a shamisen from somewhere deeper in the tea house, and through the open screens, Masashi could see the beautiful night sky. Tonight, the full moon shone bright. Some things never change, Yatsushiro chuckled, watching Tetsuka's careful preparation. This, Masashi thought, accepting the warm cup, this is what peace feels like. The familiar bickering of his friends, the timeless ceremony of tea preparation, the music floating on the night air. To coming home, Yuko raised his cup in a small salute, the moonlight reflecting off the surface of the tea. Speaking of home, Tetsuka's brow furrowed slightly. Have any of you noticed anything odd? My koi have been acting strange. Here we go again with the fish prophecies, Inika snorted into his tea. What is it this time? Are your precious koi predicting another war? Mock all you want, Tetsuka said, his voice unusually serious. But they've been staying at the bottom of the pond for days now, barely coming up to feed. Last time they did this was right before that storm hit. The weather's been perfectly clear, Yatsushiro pointed out. Not all storms come with rain, Tetsuka muttered, his eyes drifting to the full moon above. Oh please, Inika threw a sugar cube at him, which he caught reflexively. Next you'll tell us your koi are secret summons reporting directly to the Hokage. The group laughed, but Masashi noticed Tetsuka's gaze hadn't left the night sky. He'd known the man long enough to recognize when his usual tea-obsessed demeanor gave way to genuine concern. The night stretched before them, perfect in its simplicity, but somewhere in the back of Masashi's mind, Tetsuka's words echoed uncomfortably. Not all storms come with rain. Boom. Early in the morning, the usual loud explosion echoed across the Uchiha training ground. The Uchiha clan members living nearby, unbothered as always, began their morning routine of washing up and getting ready. This familiarity was oddly comforting. No joke, after 10 years of this, everyone had came to find it more effective than an alarm clock. Masashi's training schedule was as punctual as a clock, it always started on time and ended on time. And being incredibly considerate, he ended with a bang, quite literally, at exactly 7:30 a.m., just in time for everyone to get up for work. Ever since the Third Great Ninja War broke out and he started traveling frequently, the clan had reluctantly returned to using traditional alarm clocks, but they never measured up. The Masashi brand alarm clock was reliable and effective. Hearing it reassured the clan of their prosperous future, and it gave everyone a great boost of energy to start their day. When Masashi was home, nobody in the area was ever late for work. As he walked out of the training ground, some clan members had already left their homes. After exchanging a few greetings, Masashi headed back to his house for a shower before making his way to Hikari's home. Today, he brought chakra induction paper with him. Normally, ninjas didn't test their innate chakra nature until they reached the Chunin rank. However, these kids weren't ordinary, so doing it a bit earlier wouldn't hurt. Arriving at Hikari's door, he knocked and soon heard hurried footsteps inside. The door opened quickly, revealing Hikari, still in her pajamas, her cheeks flushed and breathing slightly labored. It was clear she'd been busy all morning. She was practically filling the role of a mom for her younger sibling. "Haku, you haven't been overdoing it these past few days, have you?" Masashi crouched down, teasing the slightly evasive-looking boy. This kid was a little grinder, give him an inch, and he'd take a mile. If Masashi hadn't strictly regulated his training schedule, the boy would probably train 20 out of 24 hours a day. Most people slack off during training. Haku, on the other hand, slacked off during his breaks by sneaking in extra practice. Masashi wasn't surprised. During his recent absence, the boy had surely been training non-stop again. As a teacher, he could understand. After all, he'd once trained with the same urgency, driven by an intense sense of crisis. Nowadays, though, he'd relaxed a bit, keeping his training to just 8 hours a day. But Haku lacked his experience and couldn't manage his limits yet, which is why Masashi always kept a close eye on him. "What to do with you?" Masashi said with a chuckle, ruffling Haku's hair. Then he stood up and turned to Hikari. "Don't worry too much about him. I'll take care of it. But you need to take care of yourself and get enough rest." "All right." Hikari, extremely flustered, replied in a soft voice. She had rushed out in her slightly sheer pajamas, which made her innerwear faintly visible. She shouldn't have answered the door like that. It was risky. What if someone other than Masashi had been there? Hikari was traditional. At home, she had no problem wearing nothing at all, but outside, she always dressed modestly. She couldn't help sneaking a glance at Masashi's pants. Feeling a bit disappointed, she pouted. Back in Kiri, he had been much more spirited. This outfit wasn't working, she wouldn't wear it again. "All right, head back inside. You'll catch a cold dressed like that," Masashi said, pulling Haku along. He stood in the doorway to shield her, mindful that someone might walk by. Even a gentleman like him was tempted by such a sight. Practicing yang release diligently had its downsides. He was too full of vitality. Fortunately, his control over his energy was excellent, so he didn't embarrass himself. After all, he was a man with a true unbreakable spear. One day, Hikari's teasing would push him too far, and she'd end up scratching his back till she couldn't anymore. But not yet. Transitioning from teacher to brother-in-law was a delicate maneuver. As a technical expert, he wouldn't leave any loose ends. Especially with Bakur living across the street. As an experienced man, he understood that rushing things physically often led to disaster. Back in his first lifetime, he had always focused on emotional connection first. No matter the hidden agenda, once the heart was touched, every sweet temptation became harmless candy. After ushering Hikari back inside and closing the door, Masashi pinched Haku's cheek affectionately. "All right, kiddo. Today, I'm going to teach you a new move." Haku nodded excitedly, his happiness evident. Masashi then went through the usual process, gathering Sasuke, Naruto, and Karen before leading them all to the Uchiha training ground. The weather was getting colder, so they didn't go to the Valley of the End. Besides, there was no need for them to run around today. Bringing the kids into the chakra training room, Masashi handed each of them a piece of testing paper. "Recently, you've all built a solid foundation in chakra molding and control. This little piece of paper will test your chakra nature. First, adjust your state, then try channeling your chakra into the paper." "Teacher, what is chakra nature?" Naruto raised his hand to ask. "I'll explain everything today. For now, just do as I said." "Okay." The 4 kids followed his instructions, adjusting themselves and then carefully channeling their chakra into the paper. After a while, they all raised their hands to signal they were done. Each of their testing papers had changed, showing unique results. Masashi collected the papers and examined them one by one. As expected, the results were mostly within his predictions. Only Karen's was slightly different from what he'd anticipated. "All right, come here, everyone," Masashi said. The 4 little heads huddled around him, their faces full of eager curiosity. "Let's start with Karen, ladies first." Masashi held up her paper for everyone to see. At first glance, it looked unchanged. The 5 basic chakra natures are water, fire, wind, earth, and lightning. The names of the 5 great nations are derived from them. For example, most people in the land of fire have fire as their innate chakra nature. Similarly, those with bloodline limit usually have 2 chakra natures, but these are limited to the 5 elemental styles. The kids nodded, partly understanding. Thanks to Masashi's prior teachings, they already had some idea about bloodline limit and their ancestral legacies. For instance, Naruto and Karen inherited special chakra and strong life force from their ancestors. This life force granted them exceptional stamina and an ability to refine more chakra than normal people. However, they still didn't understand chakra natures fully, so their comprehension was limited. Everyone has at least one innate chakra nature, which manifests differently on the testing paper. Karen has two, water and fire. But her water nature is stronger, so the paper was first dampened, then dried. Chapter 133, The White Ghost Enters the Desert. Based on the chakra nature test results, the four children's natural chakra affinities were mostly as expected. Sasuke possesses fire and lightning. Hueco has water and wind. Karen, somewhat unexpectedly, has fire and water. Naruto, as always, only has wind. However, for both Naruto and Karen, chakra nature was not their primary focus. The Uzumaki clan relied on the uniqueness of their chakra. For most Uzumaki, the five-elemental jutsu was rarely their primary tool in combat. This uniqueness came from their chakra's powerful life force, which was inherently random. Naruto inherited his chakra traits from his mother, granting him a natural ability to suppress tailed beast chakra. His extraordinary vitality was one of the best within the Uzumaki clan, making him a perfect reincarnation of Ashura. Karen's chakra was special in sensory abilities. Her powerful life force also carried strong conductivity and permeating properties. From a team perspective, even though both were Uzumaki, these traits dictated that Naruto and Karen's roles differed greatly. Sasuke was straightforward, like Naruto, he was a front-line attacker. Hueco differed from these two but remained a damage-dealing type nonetheless. After explaining each child's traits, he taught them about the 7 chakra natures. He then explained the differences between nature transformation and shape transformation. The children immediately expressed their desire to learn yin release or yang release, feeling that shape transformation was far too basic. Though I'd love to teach you yin and yang release now, unfortunately, your current knowledge and experience aren't enough to comprehend it yet, Masashi said with a smile. As for shape transformation, he opened his palm. A small flame appeared in his hand, growing steadily until it threatened to expand further. Suddenly, the flame shifted in shape, condensing into the form of a kunai. This was the power of Kagetsuchi. From the outside, it appeared as if fire techniques were performed without seals. By transforming the chakra nature and then using Kagetsuchi to control it, the fire could be manipulated into various forms. Wow! The children exclaimed in awe, their curiosity piqued. Masashi casually threw the fiery kunai, embedding it into the wooden training dummy in the room. The dummy's upper body exploded into a burning mess, with splinters incinerated before they could scatter. Shape transformation has many applications, and compression is one of them, Masashi explained. Chakra transformation is a complete system. Focusing only on nature or shape transformation is incomplete. Except in special cases, the standard approach is to master both. Having said that, he began teaching the children how to perform chakra nature transformations. For most people, nature transformation was passive. Hand seals simplified the process and made ninjutsu more accessible. Indra's character was arrogant and dismissive of the common people, yet his invention of hand seals primarily benefited them. With hand seals, even those who didn't fully understand chakra transformation could follow the steps and perform ninjutsu. However, Masashi wanted these 4 children to comprehend it fully from the beginning. With proper understanding, even basic jutsu could achieve extraordinary results. Simplifying hand seals required individual comprehension, and the ultimate goal of simplification was to perform jutsu without seals, just like he had demonstrated. The fiery kunai's power exceeded that of standard explosive tags. Moreover, explosive tags lacked the versatility of fire-style kunai, making the superiority clear. Of course, this level of mastery depended on Kagetsuchi. Each child held an unsharpened kunai in their hands. Their task was to channel chakra into the kunai to manifest its nature. He had thoughtfully chosen the chakra nature for each of them. Evidently, this task was far more difficult than basic chakra refinement. An entire day passed with no significant progress. Even these talented children felt a sense of frustration. Masashi comforted them, reminding them not to be too disheartened. Many people spend their entire lives unable to master even one chakra nature transformation to perfection. That evening, after sending the children home, he returned to the Hokage's office. Earlier in the day, when picking up the kids, Minato had asked him to attend a meeting afterward. Upon entering, the room was filled with smoke. All 5 of Hidden Leaf Village's elders were present. The air pollution? Thanks to the biggest smoker among them, Aizen, who chuckled as he puffed away. Masashi, how are the kids' talents? Asked the doting grandfather. They're excellent. Hidden Leaf Village has a bright future, Masashi replied in a similarly old-fashioned tone. Good, good. Konohamaru will have some companions soon, Hiruzen said cheerfully. His grandson's talent was his pride and joy. Bragging about it daily was a must for him. Konohamaru, born with all 5 chakra natures, represented the resurgence of the Sarutobi clan's glory. Indeed, Masashi said with a sly smile. Having companions fosters healthy competition. Your grandson's generation is going to be intensely competitive, just wait. Competing alongside reincarnations of Indra and Ajra will be a whole new experience. Sandame-sama, shouldn't we discuss the matter with Hidden Sand Village? Fugaku interjected. As Hidden Leaf Village's premier calligraphy master, he couldn't stand Hiruzen constantly showing off his grandson. If any clan produced the best talent, it was undoubtedly the Uchiha clan. He firmly believed his younger son would outshine everyone in his generation. As for this generation, they were already overshadowed by Masashi. Such was the might of the Uchiha bloodline. Ah, yes, Hiruzen said, patting his head. Old age makes me talkative. I'll start, Minato said, taking the lead. According to intel from the Anbu, ever since we repelled Hidden Cloud's village's attack, their relations with Hidden Sand Village have warmed. After Hidden Leaf Village went to war with Hidden Stone's village, Hidden Cloud's village even provided Hidden Sand Village with supplies. Minato's serious tone caused the elders' expressions to darken. After repelling Hidden Stone's village, we didn't coordinate with Hidden Sand Village to expand the conflict. Now, the bond between Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Cloud's village continues to grow. They're even considering hosting the Chunin exams together. They dare. Someone slammed the table. It was none other than Hiruzen. Hidden Leaf Village saved Hidden Sand Village from destruction. Such betrayal cannot be tolerated. However, it's likely that recent village affairs have left us neglecting our relationship with Hidden Sand Village. This could be an opportunity. We could propose a joint Chunin exam, inviting Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Stones Village as well, with Hidden Sand Village as the host. Let everyone gather and clear up misunderstandings. That's a good idea, Koharu and Hamura agreed in unison, their pacifist tones gratingly similar. Masashi inwardly applauded their impeccable synchronization, finding it both absurd and amusing. The Chunin exams, huh? Minato turned to Fugaku. How many genin from the village can currently be nominated for the Chunin exams? Quite a few, Fugaku replied. Years of war have prevented the exams from being held, leading to a buildup of candidates. Some have even proven themselves on the battlefield. I imagine the same holds true for the other villages, Minato nodded. Then let's proceed. I'm confident Hidden Leaf Village's genin are the strongest. When it came to the Land of Wind, the first impression outsiders usually had was the distant chime of camel bells and yellow sand dancing with the wind. That was not far from the truth. About 90% of the country was desert. Perhaps due to the fierce winds blowing from the land of earth, carrying sand as they passed through the land of stone and colliding with the terrain here, the sand accumulated and created a desert with sand dunes. As the largest desert area on the continent of the 5 great shinobi nations, the Land of Wind's deserts were intertwined with its cities, forming an unusual desert within the city environment. Hidden Sand Village was located deep within these deserts. The environment there was harsh, and the roads were treacherous and far-reaching. At the end of the Warring States period, the Land of Wind, with the help of the Hidden Sand Village ninja forces, unified this vast and ancient land. From then on, the Land of Wind became the homeland for all desert dwellers. Hidden Sand Village's military strength was notable. When the village was first established, it already controlled the One Tail. So, when Hashirama held the first 5 Kage summit to distribute the tailed beasts, the first Kazekage proposed trading their share of tailed beasts for land and money. Naturally, the other villages objected strongly, nearly resulting in a brawl. Although Hashirama, ever the peacemaker, prevented war from breaking out, Hidden Sand Village left the summit empty-handed. If anything, it gained only the disdain of the first Hokage himself, a bitter reward. During the First Great Ninja War, the second Kazekage refrained from engaging in the fierce conflicts. Instead, he focused on studying the One Tail, eventually developing the magnet style and puppet techniques that would define Hidden Sand Village's ninja arts. By the war's end, he was the only surviving second Kage. Under the leadership of the third Kazekage, Hidden Sand Village ranked among the top 3 strongest ninja villages. But then, the curse began. During the Third Great Ninja War, Hidden Sand Village suffered severe losses. Though the village survived, its foundation was shaken. Expansion was no longer possible, but at least it could still protect itself. The real low point came during the original timeline's Hidden Leaf Village crush plan. Orochimaru's flamboyant actions made it seem like the plan was entirely his idea. But in reality, it was Hidden Sand Village that devised the plan. The Snake Sannin was merely an external ally, initially hired by Hidden Sand Village, before joining under the guise of Akatsuki. After the plan's failure, the Hidden Sand Village ninjas were left in complete disarray. This was less a Hidden Leaf Village crush and more of a Hidden Sand Village collapse. Tsunade, as the newly appointed 5th Hokage, extended a timely hand of support to Hidden Sand Village. Gaara, having found mutual understanding with Naruto, became the 5th Kazekage, marking the start of a true honeymoon period between Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Leaf Village. In this timeline, however, Hidden Sand Village still retained its strength but harbored growing discontent toward Hidden Leaf Village. At least, that's how the mining Kage saw it. Damn it. Am I mining for Hidden Sand Village or for Hidden Leaf Village? Wait. Why the hell is the Kazekage, me, mining every day? Unfortunately, due to certain indirect influences, two things deeply stung his increasingly sensitive heart. First, Bakura had joined Hidden Leaf Village. Second, Hidden Leaf Village had formed an open alliance with Hidden Stones Village. Raza couldn't help but feel betrayed. It's not that I'm untrustworthy, but Hidden Leaf Village's behavior is just plain disrespectful. They don't care about their allies' feelings. You can exploit my mining abilities in secret, but you can't openly stomp on my pride. Thus, when the 4th Raikage extended an olive branch, he accepted without hesitation. Of course, Hidden Clouds Village was far from innocent, but to him, Hidden Leaf Village was even worse, practically nothing at all. Damn Minato. He's inhuman. Still, he agreed to Hidden Leaf Village's request to hold a joint Chunin exam. This would likely be the largest Chunin exam ever held since the beginning of the Ninja Village system. 4 of the 5 great shinobi nations were participating, along with their allied villages, effectively encompassing almost every ninja organization at the Geinin level across the ninja world. The only absentees were Hidden Clouds Village and Shimo. The Land of Iron, being a samurai nation, naturally would not participate. But as the only neutral village in the ninja world, Taki signed up upon seeing the scale of the event. For Taki, rankings didn't matter, the main goal was to give their younger generation some exposure. However, such a large-scale joint Chunin exam wasn't just about testing Geinin. The event also served as a platform for villages to interact. As a result, the leading ninja teams from each village drew much attention. Of particular interest were the team leaders from the 3 major ninja villages. Hidden Stones Village's leader, Kitsuchi, the son of the Sushi Kage. Kiri's leader, Mai, a rising star among their Jonin. Hidden Leaf Village's leader, the White Ghost. When this roster was reported to Hidden Sand Village, Raza nearly wrote an order banning the White Ghost from participating. Masashi's reputation had grown immensely. His most famous feat was silently copying enemy jutsu with his Sharingan, completely redefining the ninja world's understanding of its capabilities at the Jonin level. Raza couldn't shake the feeling that Hidden Leaf Village had sent Masashi to steal Hidden Sand Village's unique magnet style and puppet techniques. And what was the point of sending a Kage-level ninja to lead a team? Was this an exam or a demonstration of superiority? After much deliberation and a meeting with the village elders, Raza reluctantly approved. Hidden Sand Village still had its pride. Pride was, after all, part of a ninja village's strength. Thus, the joint Chunin exam, hosted by Hidden Sand Village and co-hosted by Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Stones Village, and Kiri, commenced as scheduled. Leading Hidden Leaf Village's team, Masashi was accompanied by a group of Geinin, the newly promoted Jonin Kakashi, and Bakura, who had joined Hidden Leaf Village. Also included were the recommending Jonin for the participating Geinin. In Masashi's view, this generation of Geinin lacked anyone particularly outstanding. The same was true across the entire ninja world. During this period, most shinobi were normal. But 10 years later, talent would start to explode. Of course, by not outstanding, he was comparing them to prodigies like Naruto and Sasuke. Even so, a few individuals stood out enough to leave an impression on him. From Hidden Leaf Village to Hidden Sand Village will take about 3 days, he said, addressing the group of mixed-age members. I won't elaborate on the environment in the Land of Wind. Just remember, follow orders. You're here to take the exam, not to die. If you must die, do it in the arena. Yes. The Geinin responded loudly in unison. Masashi nodded. While this group didn't have the exceptional talents of Naruto's generation, they excelled in adaptability and discipline, qualities that Naruto's peers lacked. Most of the current generation of Geinin had experienced battlefield conditions. However, the Geinin chosen for this exam were mostly recent academy graduates, with a few slightly older ones still in the young category. Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't send just anyone to a joint Chunin exam. To qualify, a participant needed 2 things, exceptional talent and youth. This was also a matter of village pride. Good. Let's move out. Chapter 134, The Most Confused Fathers in the Ninja World. As the Hidden Leaf Village team entering the Land of Wind made their way forward, they soon encountered a Hidden Mist Village squad coming from the south. At first, the participants on both sides exchanged icy, Sharp glares, filled with a "what are you looking at?" kind of vibe. But when they began to sense an odd tension between their respective leaders, they quietly withdrew their intimidating stares. The atmosphere between the groups quickly softened, transforming into a "have you eaten yet? And how about some onigiri first?" exchange. In an instant, Hidden Leaf Village and Kiri's Gainen bridged a social gap, forming a camaraderie and enthusiastically discussing how to deal with third-party opponents together. "So, you're leading the Hidden Mist Village team," Masashi said with a grin, ignoring the young ninja's mood swings as he chatted with an old friend. "How's Hidden Mist Village doing these days?" "Not bad." My side. "The worst of it is behind us now. The Bloody Mist policy, it's been abolished?" "It has." I nodded, smiling faintly. "The atmosphere in the village is different now. Everyone is working hard and cherishing what we have." Masashi glanced again at the Hidden Mist Village team. The moment he had first met them, one particularly familiar figure had caught his eye. The Takataori clan has joined Kiri. Mai seemed to know what he was thinking. The fourth Mizukage discovered this child named Kimimaro among the Kaguya clan. He's awakened the Shikatsu Myaku, and it's been a long time since the Takataori clan has seen this ability. Indeed, there was a small child among the Hidden Mist Village squad, a prototypical Kaguya, or rather, Takataori clan member, given his attire and demeanor. "The Shikatsu Myaku comes with genetic drawbacks," Masashi commented, turning his gaze away. "Is the Takataori clan planning to protect that child?" "Yes. Though they haven't seen the Shikatsu Myaku for a long time, the Takataori clan has their own ways to mitigate its downsides." "That's pretty good, then," Masashi remarked casually, only to realize that Mai was staring at him. "What are you looking at me like that for? You wouldn't go as far as copying the techniques of an ally, would you?" "Come on, the way you say it. I only copied your boil style, didn't I? That's called mutual understanding through conflict. You need to be more open-minded, it's all in the past." He wasn't about to try imitating the Shikatsu Myaku anyway. It wasn't even part of the elemental styles. And even if he wanted to, it wouldn't be possible. "Hey." Mai let out a cold chuckle. "And how about the Yuki clan orphan in your village? Has he awakened her ice style yet?" "Not yet, but I believe he will." Masashi's confidence was firm. "Not to brag, but my teaching isn't any worse than the Yuki clan's own." Mai couldn't argue with that. This had been compared before. The Yuki clan's secret techniques genuinely couldn't hold a candle to Masashi's modified versions. The Yuki clan's ice style couldn't exactly box a tailed beast, after all. "Here." Mai handed him a scroll. "What's this?" "The Yuki clan's secret techniques. After their downfall, some were preserved." "Wow, generous much? You already have their people. What's the difference?" "Such magnanimity from the fourth Mizukage." Masashi thought for a moment and added, "But I can't take this for nothing. Do you have any requests? During this exam, do your best to demonstrate the friendly relations between Hidden Leaf Village and Kiri." "Got it. Don't worry about a thing. With Kimimaro here, friendliness is guaranteed." Though he was just a child, Kimimaro had been trained as a secret weapon by the Kaguya clan since birth. His combat power far exceeded the Geinin rank. If it came to blows, most of the other contestants wouldn't even survive their first encounter with him. There wasn't much else to say. The two squads merged into one and continued their journey westward. After rendezvousing with the Hidden Sand Village ninjas responsible for escorting them, they began their trek deeper into the desert. Though officially called escorts, they were also tasked with ensuring that the participants wouldn't figure out the exact route into Hidden Sand Village. Since the founding of Hidden Sand Village, there had only been one major breach, during the Third Great Ninja War, when the invading forces of Hidden Cloud's village launched a full-scale attack. Who knew how much groundwork they had done beforehand? To Masashi's trained eye, the Hidden Sand Village escort team had discreetly deactivated numerous traps along the way. If a war ever broke out again, any invading force taking this route was in for a bad time. 2 days later, they finally saw the city standing tall amidst the endless golden sands. The city was lively now. Teams from different ninja villages brought new and diverse sights to Hidden Sand Village. The local villagers were equally curious about these foreign ninjas. After all, in the past, seeing a foreign ninja meant a fight was about to break out, not a friendly visit. Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village weren't the first to arrive, but their presence drew immediate attention. Among the group was Hidden Sand Village's hero, Pakura, standing prominently in the lineup. Additionally, there was someone whose appearance strongly resembled a certain Hidden Leaf Village ninja who had once caused significant upheaval in the village, Hidden Leaf Village's White Fang. As for Masashi, despite being Hidden Leaf Village's most prominent Kage-level figure, he was largely ignored by the Hidden Sand Village ninjas. He had anticipated this reaction. The Hokage's office had likely arranged things this way, not to antagonize Hidden Sand Village, but to achieve certain objectives. Including Kakura in the team made sense. She was familiar with Hidden Sand Village and the Land of Wind, and her presence ensured a higher level of safety given the strained relations between Hidden Lee Village and Hidden Sand Village. As for assigning Kakashi, the fourth Hokage likely wanted him to visit the country his father had once been in, as a way of opening his heart. Hearing about the White Fang's heroism from fellow Hidden Lee Village ninja might not have much impact on Kakashi, but experiencing the fear and respect for his father in enemy territory could make all the difference. With Masashi around, Minato had no reason to worry. If Hidden Sand Village wanted to avoid having their techniques copied, they'd better refrain from causing trouble. In that sense, perhaps the arrangement wasn't entirely well-intentioned. The Hidden Sand Village ninja escorting them, clearly eager to finish their task and leave the White Ghost behind, led the combined team to their lodging as quickly as possible. Suddenly, Masashi stopped in his tracks. He had spotted a Hidden Sand Village child. The boy had short red hair and no mark on his forehead, but it wasn't hard to guess his identity. The child stared at the Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village ninjas curiously. When he noticed Masashi looking back, he nervously took a few steps back before running away. The Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village ninja also noticed how the boy's path cleared as everyone nearby hurriedly moved aside, unwilling to interact with him. That child. Mai murmured thoughtfully. He's probably Hidden Sand Village's top genius right now. What? You can tell that with your Sharingan? Don't underestimate me. I'm serious. Masashi resumed walking. Among all the genin we've brought, 10 years from now, the only one who could take him on is Kimimaro. This Gaara was about a year younger than Naruto, but at this point, he had likely already mastered magnet style. With his mother's chakra fused with his own, his magnet style even had an automatic defense mechanism. That was outright cheating. Apart from the reincarnations of Indra and Azura's chakra, the shinobi world still produced pure prodigies, and Gaara was one of them. Kimimaro was another. But this time, there were no such extraordinary talents among Hidden Lee Village's genin team. To say that this generation of Hidden Lee Village genin was completely devoid of talent was, of course, an exaggeration. Itachi had already graduated from the Ninja Academy and was now officially a genin. However, Fugaku wanted to slow things down. He felt that his son graduating from the academy too quickly and immediately taking the Chunin exams might not be the best idea. This confused father was beginning to realize, albeit belatedly, that taking his 4-year-old son to the battlefield and having him slit a throat might not have been the most appropriate thing to do. At that time, the circumstances surrounding the Uchiha clan were entirely different. Back then, he genuinely wanted his son to mature as quickly as possible. But now, it was no longer the same. He simply wanted his son to grow up healthily. Moreover, Itachi had yet to awaken the Sharingan. Fugaku, like many Uchihas, also suffered from Sharingan syndrome, feeling as if the Uchiha weren't complete without their Sharingan awakened. Yet, he adamantly refused to let Masashi take Itachi to try the infamous tea-drinking method for awakening the Sharingan. As for how Itachi awakened the Sharingan in the original timeline, Masashi honestly couldn't remember. He just thought, what's wrong with using tea-drinking to awaken it? With Itachi absent, this generation of genin genuinely lacked anyone particularly exceptional. As for those who did come, he had already assessed them. In his view, only 4 individuals were outstanding: Anko, a former disciple of Orochimaru, Hyate and Yujao, and from the Inuzuka clan, Hana. The rest were somewhat underwhelming. Even among the 4 mentioned, 10 years from now, they would only reach the level of special Jonin. Anko's case was somewhat unique, but the other 3 had clear talent limitations. Perhaps, given enough time, they might grind their way to becoming standard Jonin, but that would be their ceiling. Still, this lineup was acceptable. Hidden Mist Village had Kimimaro, but the other villages likely didn't even match Hidden Leaf Village's quality. Wait, in Hidden Stones Village's case, since Kitsuchi was leading the team, there was a good chance Tiadara had come as well. TSK. Could these people at least respect the average age of Chunin exam participants for once? Fine, Hidden Sand Village definitely wouldn't. The 3 Hidden Sand Village genius siblings were still developing. Wait a minute, didn't Bakura have a disciple? If she's right, the kids should be in their teens now. Ah, forget it. Too lazy to speculate. After arriving at the inn, the teams from Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village each went to their assigned areas. Before parting ways, however, they arranged to have a meal together. As Masashi put it, if you want to build friendships, start with shared meals. After organizing the genin, he and Mai, as the respective Jonin leaders, first had to pay their respects to the host of this venue, Raza. Regarding the 4th Kazekage, Masashi had only heard of him but never met him in person. He was looking forward to it. This man was even more of a confused dad than Fugaku. Truly deserving of the title the most confused dad in the shinobi world. As the most trusted subordinate of the third Kazekage, Raza inherited the magnet style passed down through generations of Kazekage and single-handedly supported Hidden Sand Village's finances. In fact, Hidden Sand Village's financial resources were now surprisingly impressive. Under his efforts, Hidden Sand Village ranked second in monetary wealth across the shinobi world, right after Hidden Leaf Village. The issue was that some things couldn't simply be bought with money, at least not at a normal price. Hidden Sand Village had plenty of gold, so they weren't short on money. What they lacked were various supplies, particularly food. The continent was not like the modern, materially advanced world, and many products weren't entirely transacted with currency. A lot of deals were conducted through material exchanges. Hidden Sand Village didn't have such trading channels. They could only use gold to exchange for goods, often at high margins. Some items were outright banned, and if Hidden Sand Village wanted them, they had to offer something else in exchange. For example, the most precious mineral resource, chakra-conductive metal. Most of the chakra-conductive metal deposits in the shinobi world were located in the Land of Wind. After forming an alliance with Hidden Sand Village, one important clause was that Hidden Leaf Village would trade supplies for chakra-conductive metal at relatively favorable prices and even accept gold as payment. But even these favorable prices were still expensive. The Kazekage building, when viewed from a distance, resembled a large spherical structure. The architecture of Hidden Sand Village featured mostly curved designs, with almost no sharp edges. Inside the Kazekage building, Masashi and Mai found the other village leaders already present. They were the last to arrive. From afar, Masashi spotted Kitsuchi. "Masashi, my friend." Kitsuchi's broad face broke into a sincere smile. This pro-Hidden Leaf Village faction leader from Hidden Stones Village had maintained a good relationship with Masashi during his time there. "Kitsuchi, my brother. Your village sent you to lead the team, huh?" Masashi greeted him with a grin, and the two bumped fists. "Of course, Deidara came along too," Kitsuchi laughed. "Masashi, we're allies, so when our people meet, we must treat each other well, right?" "Absolutely. And as for Deidara, I'm sure you don't have to worry about him. That explosive brat was definitely not one to be underestimated. Deidara and Kinemaru would likely become the rampage duo of this exam. Hidden Leaf Village's side was a tier below individually and would need to rely on teamwork. For instance, there was one team consisting of a couple plus a third wheel. Anko and Hana were in one team, and their synergy should be decent as well. As for Anko, after Orochimaru fled, Masashi had provided her with some ninjutsu to give her a boost. Who knew how much progress she had made since then? Regardless, she was certainly much stronger than the average geinin. After all, geinin typically had very few ninjutsu in their arsenal. If a geinin could use anything beyond the three basic jutsus, they were already considered impressive. And those proficient with explosive tags were the elite among them. At this moment, a Hidden Sand Village ninja entered and announced to the assembled jonin, "Gentlemen, the Kazekage is ready to meet you." "Please lead the way," Masashi responded. The jonin naturally formed a lineup based on their standings. This was when differences in status became apparent. No one needed to explain anything, everyone instinctively knew their place. Masashi and Kitsuchi led the group. One was the renowned White Ghost, unquestionably Kage level, while the other was the son of the Sushi Kage and a seasoned powerhouse from Hidden Stones Village, also Kage level. Who would dare walk ahead of them? Following the Hidden Sand Village ninja, the group entered a small chamber. Raza sat behind a veil, flanked by his personal guards. "Please, take a seat," he said in a deep voice. Masashi couldn't help but sense weariness in the Kazekage's tone. Could he have stayed up all night mining? Truly, a leader who worked tirelessly for his village. Admirable and respectable. The group sat cross-legged on the ground, gazing at the veiled figure of the Kazekage. "Welcome to Hidden Sand Village. On behalf of the village, I extend my greetings," Raza began. "However, while you are here, I ask that you strictly adhere to Hidden Sand Village's rules to avoid any misunderstandings." "Rest assured, Kazekage-sama," Masashi immediately replied. "Hidden Leaf Village pledges to act in accordance with Hidden Sand Village's regulations." "Hidden Stones Village will do the same," Kitsuchi added calmly. Though he was part of Hidden Stones Village's pro-Hidden Leaf Village faction, he wasn't a dove. He was a hawk, and Hidden Sand Village was among his targets. The other jonin leaders also pledged their compliance one by one, all essentially saying the same thing. "Don't worry, boss. We'll behave. Promise not to cause trouble." Raza, however, dismissed their words as empty promises. This lot would undoubtedly stir up some trouble. But as long as they didn't go too far, he'd turn a blind eye. The ones he was most concerned about were Masashi and Kitsuchi. Both were bona fide Kage-level combatants. If they caused trouble, it would be a major headache. As for Hidden Sand Village's own Kage-level fighters, counting himself, there were only 3. It wasn't like he could ask the 2 village elders to babysit these guys. Very well. Thank you all for your understanding, Raza said, his gaze staying on Masashi and Kitsuchi. Hidden Sand Village is a relatively isolated village, and our villagers are unfamiliar with foreign customs. Such cultural differences can sometimes lead to unnecessary conflicts. If you require anything during your stay, feel free to let us know. We will do our best to accommodate you. In that case, there is something, Masashi said. Please, go ahead, Raza replied. As allies, we often visit one another and occasionally dine together. We'd also like to give our genin opportunities to interact. Would Hidden Sand Village be able to assist us in this regard? This is a minor matter, Raza responded calmly. While Hidden Sand Village's conditions aren't the best, we do have some large restaurants. I'll have someone send you a list later, and you may choose as you wish. However, expenses will need to be covered by our respective villages. Of course, we wouldn't dream of burdening our friends in Hidden Sand Village, Masashi nodded. But since we're all carrying our own country's currencies, that's easy to resolve. The village has currency exchange facilities. I'll arrange for you to use them at your convenience. Thank you, Kazekage-sama, for your consideration. It's nothing. Think nothing of it. Chapter 135, Puppets and Provocations. Leaving the Kazekage building, Masashi exchanged a few words with Kitsuchi before they went their separate ways. He then walked alongside Mai. He seems to be a very charismatic leader, Mai remarked. I've heard he became Kazekage after saving the village. She found this story somewhat reminiscent of their own Kiri. The 4th Mizukage also rose to power during a crisis, though the difference was that the 3rd Mizukage had resigned instead of disappearing without a trace. The death of the 3rd Kazekage remains a mystery. No one knows who is behind it, she sighed. The strongest Kazekage, and yet, this was his fate. High-profile actions, low-profile life, that principle is timeless, Masashi replied earnestly. The 3rd Kazekage grew up under the watchful eyes of the 1st and 2nd. He never faced much adversity. When people get too arrogant, they tend to end up getting cut down. Strongest. Those who flaunt titles like that often end up paying the price. He preferred titles like Lord that exuded a more down-to-earth vibe. It felt less aggressive. He no longer minded being affectionately called Sama by the villagers. This year's Uchiha Ice and Snow Festival, was it finally happening? It had been postponed so many times. He had a lot of good works to showcase. Maybe you're right, Mai acknowledged the wisdom in his words. The 4th Mizukage had nearly fallen into a trap. Perhaps it had something to do with all the fanfare surrounding his rise to power. If Masashi knew what she was thinking, he'd definitely tell her, you're overthinking it. Not many people on this continent even recognize your Mizukage. When the two returned to their inn, they hadn't yet entered when he frowned. What's wrong? Mai asked. Someone's causing trouble, Masashi replied with a smile. Can't blame me for what happens next. With that, he vanished from where he stood. Seeing him disappear, Mai's lips curved slightly, but she wasn't in a rush. She walked toward the inn entrance at a normal pace. Inside the inn, a drama was unfolding. In the section designated for Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas, a group of Hidden Sand Village ninjas had gathered. Bakur's expression was complicated, while Kakashi's could only be described as what the hell is this? Behind them, a group of Hidden Leaf Village genin and a few special jonin looked displeased. Bakura. How could a hero like you betray your village? People who fear death don't deserve to be called heroes. She treated their words like they were just hot air. What troubled her was a young girl. Sensei, have you really joined Hidden Leaf Village? The girl asked with wide eyes. You must have been forced to, right? Hidden Sand Village ninja, haven't you caused enough trouble? Kakashi interjected. He wasn't yet the easygoing person Sasuke and Naruto would later know. At this point, he was still sharp and intense. He had just transferred from the Anbu to the Jonin ranks. If you keep provoking us, don't expect me to hold back, he warned. During the days when his father was alive, Kakashi had been proud and arrogant, rightfully so, given his lineage. After his father's suicide, he had turned inward, developing Chidori in the process. Following Rin's death, he became even more withdrawn, making him difficult to get along with. He prioritized missions to the point that even his Anbu colleagues found him unbearable. While he had softened somewhat by now, he was still rigid and unyielding. Son of the White Fang, this isn't your business. Shut up, killer's son. A glint of cold light flickered in Kakashi's eyes. His time in the Anbu had taught him one thing: When faced with difficult situations or annoying people, don't talk, act. If the person causing you trouble was gone, so was the trouble. His gaze bypassed the group of hidden Sand Village ninjas to lock onto the Jonin among them. The hidden Sand Village Jonin met his eyes coldly and made a throat-slitting gesture. In response, lightning flared in Kakashi's hand, and a chirping sound of Chidori echoed through the corridor. The hidden Sand Village Jonin's cold expression faltered as he realized Kakashi wasn't bluffing. Back off. Kakashi ordered, his voice icy. This is your final warning. The hidden Sand Village ninjas hesitated, insulted by his command. One of them drew a weapon. At the same time, Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas prepared for battle. Sensei. The girl cried out, angry and distressed. Look at them. Are you really going to help Hidden Leaf Village fight your own people? Who the hell is your own people? A voice cut in. Frost began to creep along the floor and walls, quickly forming a layer of white frost. The hidden Sand Village Jonin turned abruptly to see a massive white hand. With a deafening crash, the hidden Sand Village Jonin was slammed into a wall. The wall collapsed, exposing the orange-hued sky outside. Kakashi, Masashi called out. Masashi-sama, Kakashi replied. One decisive blow is better than 100 minor ones. Kill the ones provoking you. No need for talk. Understood. Without hesitation, Kakashi drove his Chidori into the nearest hidden Sand Village ninja. Electric arcs burst forth, and the ninja's upper body was obliterated, revealing the puppet-like mechanisms inside. See? They're all fakes, Masashi said as he clapped his hands. Ice spikes erupted from the floor and walls, piercing each puppet multiple times and severing their hidden chakra threads. With a wave of his hand, Masashi used wind to toss the puppets out through the hole he had created in the wall. Use your Sharingan wisely, Masashi advised Kakashi. Honestly, I suggest you do what Ao does, stop fiddling with your headband. Feels like you're going to tear your forehead off. I'll look into making you a proper eye patch later. Silently, Kakashi lowered the hand that had been about to adjust his headband. Masashi turned his gaze to the lone remaining hidden Sand Village ninja, the young girl. You called someone your own people? Are you the fourth Kazekage? Bakura-sama is my teacher. The girl shouted. Quite the loud mouth. The only reason you're still alive is because of her. Where were you when Hidden Sand Village betrayed her? Even if you were clueless back then, seeing her as a Hidden Leaf Village ninja now should give you some idea. Masashi's voice turned colder. I don't care if you're stupid, malicious, or both. If I see you causing trouble again, not even Bakura will be able to save your life. Turning to Kakashi, he added, next time you see her, hit as hard as you need to. Masashi. Bakura started to speak but stopped, knowing her student was truly that naive. Still, having made her decision, she had no regrets. If she lacked even this level of resolve, she would have died on the battlefield long ago. The hidden Sand Village girl hesitated, clearly torn, but Masashi didn't give her a chance to speak. He picked her up and tossed her out. Out you go. A bond between master and disciple? What nonsense. If the bond was that strong, this wouldn't be happening. He still had to hunt down that coward from earlier. After calming the genin who were about to go into combat mode and exchanging a few words with Kakashi, he went to look for the hidden Sand Village ninja from earlier. For an organization like a ninja village, deliberately stirring up trouble or doing something foolish without reason was simply impossible. Every action that seemed foolish must have a very rational explanation behind it, even if it came at the cost of the village's interests. After all, the conflict between collective and individual interests had existed since the very day ninja villages were founded. While similar issues existed within clans, their smaller scale made such conflicts more manageable, with internal mechanisms in place to handle them effectively. Collectivism did not necessarily mean selflessness, and individualism did not necessarily equate to selfishness. It was not a simple matter of black and white. But this was Hidden Sand Village's business. He didn't need to investigate the truth behind it. All he needed to do was hang up whoever provoked him and teach them a lesson. This was how the joint Chunin exams work. Without a few casualties, the exam would be considered a failure. It was far too much trouble just to promote a few Chunin. The real main players were the Jonin leading the teams. The enemy wouldn't have gotten far. When Masashi sent him flying with a slap, he had already left a mark. It was a clone, he was very clear about that. Shadow clones, although seemingly widespread, remained unique to Hidden Leaf Village. On this point, Hidden Leaf Village had maintained strict control. Before Dobirama invented Shadow Clone Jutsu, skilled ninja used various mediums or specialized techniques to create clones, primarily for demonstrating their abilities. The most famous among these was Hashirama's wood clone, so lifelike that even Madara could be fooled if he wasn't careful. After shadow clones were introduced, Hidden Leaf Village's ninjas expanded on this concept with various mediums, using shadow clones as the foundation. Hidden Sand Village was best known for its sand clones. Sand was more stable than wind, making it a sturdier medium, though not nearly as resilient against the massive ice hands. Using chakra interconnection, Masashi's Flying Thunder God Mark had already been effectively transmitted to the enemy's real body. By focusing on the fundamental essence of chakra, theoretically, no ninjutsu could truly remain hidden, unless the Eight Gates formation was opened, in which case all bets were off. For the Hidden Sand Village ninja, it wasn't theoretical, it was a reality. His skills were simply no match for Masashi, and his presence was thoroughly exposed and under control. As Masashi moved through Hidden Sand Village, his presence drew the attention of many Hidden Sand Village ninja. The jonin from a foreign village who had come this time, every Hidden Sand Village ninja had been given a portrait and had memorized his appearance. One Hidden Sand Village ninja quickly approached to inquire. "Where are you headed?" Masashi was someone who followed rules. Besides, grievances have their respective perpetrators. Even if they belong to the same unit, he wouldn't blame Person B for what Person A did, unless they were from Hidden Clouds Village. He wasn't in a hurry. The Chunin exams would last several days. They were all experienced players, rushing wouldn't suit their level. For these lower-tier ninjas, removing the ninja label for a moment, they were essentially diligent workers. You could talk things out with them, and if that failed, you could resort to a fight later. "I'm looking for someone. Sorry for troubling you all. Don't worry, I'll find them soon." Although his tone was polite, the Hidden Sand Village ninja who had approached him felt very nervous. After all, he was just an ordinary Chunin, the type to clock in and out on time. He never imagined that someone as renowned as the White Ghost would actually stop and explain to him. "Oh, no, no trouble at all. You're too kind," the Hidden Sand Village Chunin stammered. "Who are you looking for?" "Well." Masashi thought for a moment. "It was someone causing trouble at the inn earlier. I figured I couldn't just let them get away, so I'm searching for them." "That's outrageous." The Hidden Sand Village Chunin was shocked and furious. What did this person look like? "Let's see." Masashi considered. They were using puppetry and wearing Hidden Sand Village attire? Sweat began to bead on his forehead. Could it be? He ventured hesitantly, "A misunderstanding?" "My friend, my eyes are sharp," Masashi replied, activating his Sharingan for emphasis. "With these eyes, do you think I could mistake something like that?" "Why, you do have a point." The Hidden Sand Village Chunin was sweating even more profusely. "Don't worry, I get it. Here's what you can do, just relay my exact words to your superiors. Tell them Hidden Lee Village is taking this matter very seriously and is determined to find the culprit who tried to undermine the alliance." "Why yes, I'll do that." The Hidden Sand Village Chunin felt like he had no choice. "Relax, we're allies. We won't make things difficult for you. I was a Chunin once too, I understand." For a moment, the Hidden Sand Village Chunin was moved. Who would have thought that the one who truly cared about them, the grassroots Hidden Sand Village ninja, was a jonin from Hidden Lee Village? "Understood, please keep us informed before you act. We'll coordinate with you." With that, the Hidden Sand Village Chunin rushed off to report. Watching him leave, Masashi was momentarily nostalgic about his own days as a Chunin. No matter the village, lower-tier ninjas were straightforward and hardworking. They didn't think much, they simply worked for their paychecks. The power plays between villages or among powerful individuals, these ninjas could only passively endure them. That was why every ninja aspired to become stronger. Turning back, Masashi continued his pursuit. The number of Hidden Sand Village ninjas around him began to increase. These were from Hidden Sand Village's Anbu, but they didn't interfere with his actions. He finally sensed the chakra. It was odd, though, it felt compressed. Moreover, the target was near the edge of Hidden Sand Village's territory, just outside the village. As he approached the city walls, Hidden Sand Village's defense forces intercepted him. The city walls were essentially part of the mountain terrain. Hidden Sand Village was built among sandy mountains, which not only shielded it from sandstorms but also served as natural military fortifications. As before, Masashi explained everything to the Hidden Sand Village patrol unit and stated his intention to pursue someone. Even Hidden Sand Village's Anbu appeared. "Masashi-sama, I doubt the perpetrator is one of our ninjas." "I feel the same," Masashi replied. "What does the Kazekage think about this?" "The Kazekage has instructed us to cooperate fully with your actions." "In that case, let's take a look." Chakra perception doesn't lie. The target is moving slowly, it might be a puppet. At the very least, we can confirm their identity. "Understood." The Hidden Sand Village Anbu agreed and coordinated with the wall defense unit. After a brief discussion, he returned to signal that all was clear. Masashi pointed out the direction, and the group quickly passed through a tunnel carved into the mountain, emerging into the desert beyond. Chapter 136, Shadows moving under the Hidden Sand Village. Sun outside Hidden Sand Village, a wooden miniature puppet was slowly crawling across the sand. Abruptly, a figure appeared beside it. So it really is a puppet. The newcomer muttered, then swung his hand, sending a wind blade that split the puppet in two. Soon after, more figures arrived at the scene. Masashi-sama, the captain of the Hidden Sand Village Anbu squad, looked at the puppet on the ground. Is this the one? Yes, an impressive puppeteer, Masashi said as he observed the still-moving puppet. Every time I see Hidden Sand Village's puppets, I feel like you guys chose the wrong talent tree. Indeed, very impressive, the Hidden Sand Village Anbu's gaze flickered. To outsiders, puppet techniques were just about creating wooden dolls, adding a bunch of mechanisms, and controlling them with the unique chakra thread technology of Hidden Sand Village. But this art also involved chakra circuits, and it was highly personalized. Every puppeteer's chakra circuits were unique. It was absolutely a form of ninjutsu. If a puppet technique was rated as a rank, it truly had a ni-rank difficulty level for learning. Even after being split by a wind blade, parts of this puppet doll continued functioning. This kind of puppet, equipped with internal power systems that could operate according to preset programming, represented the pinnacle of Hidden Sand Village's puppet techniques. During the Second Great Ninja War, Hidden Sand Village's puppetry shone brightly on the battlefield. For Hidden Leaf Village, if it weren't for Tsunade, the losses would have been far greater. The mechanisms of puppetry might not be visually impressive, but they were devastatingly effective in combat. Unless you had an ability like Shinru Tensei for 360-degree large-scale attacks, or something akin to Susanoo, or if you were immune to poison, avoiding any injuries at all was nearly impossible. Without sufficient detoxification skills, being hit by a puppet attack was practically a death sentence. Looking at the puppet doll before them, the number of people in Hidden Sand Village capable of creating such a puppet could be counted on one hand. Puppet techniques at this level must be recorded in your Hidden Sand Village archives, Masashi said. Take this thing back to the Kazekage. As an outsider, I won't interfere further. Thank you for your understanding. The Hidden Sand Village Anbu genuinely appreciated his sentiment. This issue was undoubtedly Hidden Sand Village's own mess, they couldn't pin it on anyone else. As a member of Hidden Sand Village's Anbu, he didn't even dare speculate about the matter. For such a small puppet, the implications were likely far-reaching. But as the leader of the Hidden Leaf Village delegation, if something like this happens again, don't blame me for taking more extreme measures, Masashi warned them. We understand, and we apologize for the trouble caused. It's not too bad. Internal infiltrators are indeed troublesome. I hope you can resolve it quickly. With that, Masashi disappeared from the Hidden Sand Village Anbu's sight. He reappeared in the Hidden Leaf Village rest area within the inn. At that moment, the Hidden Leaf Village ninjas were discussing what had just happened. When they saw him, they all stood up. Masashi-sama. In the world of ninjas, respect wasn't based on age but strength. As a ninja acknowledged as a Kage-level powerhouse, Masashi was a figure of great importance in the eyes of these Hidden Leaf Village ninjas. Masashi, about those Hidden Sand Village ninjas just now. Pakuro began but stopped mid-sentence. Because Masashi gestured for her to stop. Kakashi, I have a task for you, he said after a moment of thought. During this time, keep a close eye on the surroundings. Also, no one should leave the premises unnecessarily. I'll coordinate with Hidden Mist Village to ensure both our teams act together. Understood, Kakashi nodded. With his Sharingan, he was essentially a visual sensory ninja. Moreover, the Sharingan gifted to him by Obito was of a high level, making him the person with the widest sensory range after Masashi in the group. As for chakra sensing types of ninjas, they were too rare, there weren't many in all of Hidden Leaf Village. Otherwise, security tasks would have been much easier. Masashi-sama, is something wrong? Someone asked. Yes, this joint Chunin exams has drawn many participants, and Hidden Sand Village's defenses against infiltrators have weakened, Masashi reflected on the reactions of the Hidden Sand Village Anbu earlier. If someone from within Hidden Sand Village were causing trouble. But the chances were slim. It was more likely that an outsider was trying to disrupt the situation. And it was someone who was a highly skilled puppeteer. As a transmigrator, Masashi couldn't help but think of a certain individual with a penchant for turning people into puppets. Based on that person's preferences, they were indeed a likely suspect. This joint Chunin exams in Hidden Sand Village had gathered nearly all the powers in the shinobi world, along with a vast array of bloodline limits and strange abilities. It was probably the most concentrated gathering since the establishment of the ninja villages. If he were a puppeteer with a taste for human puppets, he would certainly want to gather materials. But jumping to conclusions was unwise. Assumptions should not be made lightly. For some reason, he felt a strange sense of familiarity with this situation. You don't need to worry too much. Maintain normal vigilance, Masashi assured the Chunin and Geinin present. Your job is to prepare for the exam. We, the leading ninjas, are here to ensure you can participate in the best condition. Even though we're in Hidden Sand Village, you represent Hidden Leaf Village. You don't need to fear anything. If the sky falls, I will bear it, it won't fall on you. Hearing this, the group felt a wave of relief. Kakashi also thought that his teacher had been right in his evaluation of Masashi. When this man wasn't acting frivolous, he exuded a sense of responsibility that was deeply reassuring. Strength didn't always equate to responsibility, and responsibility was far rarer than strength. In Hidden Leaf Village, while there were mixed opinions on giving the position of assistant to the Hokage to the Uchiha clan, opinions on Masashi were generally positive across different factions. This was mainly because he was genuinely reliable when it came to serious matters. The days passed uneventfully. Following Masashi's instructions, the Hidden Leaf Village ninjas focused on preparing for the exam, and Hidden Sand Village noticeably increased its security measures. No similar incidents occurred. Under the arrangements of Masashi and Mai, the participants from Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village maintained friendly relations. However, during group meals, everyone gave Kimimaro odd looks. This was primarily because this delicate-looking boy had a ferocious appetite. For some of the appearance-conscious Kunoichi, it was difficult to watch. They felt that Kimimaro's clan members wouldn't stop until they fattened him up to their own bulky standards. He wouldn't finish a meal without eating an entire bucket of rice, and they would keep urging him to eat more. Everyone now understood why his clan members were all so stocky. The days passed one after another, and finally, Hidden Sand Village announced that the Chunin exams would officially begin. The structure of the exams were actually quite random. In the relatively prosperous environment of Hidden Leaf Village, with its early established ninja academy and advanced academic curriculum, the first exam in the original timeline was a real test, literally an academic test. They handed out written exams. Hidden Sand Village was not like Hidden Leaf Village. Culturally, among the 5 great shinobi nations, the Land of Fire, the Land of Water, and the Land of Earth were relatively developed, with economies that met urban standards. The Blood Mist reputation might make the Land of Water seem like a nation of terrorists, but this was somewhat unfair. The geography of the Land of Water led to a high degree of regional autonomy, but its people were generally quite normal, its resources abundant, and its level of civilization not low. The Land of Earth had a lower average economic level, but it was vast, with relatively well-balanced resources, so its overall civilization level was acceptable. This was why Masashi had recommended to Minato and the daimyo of the Land of Fire that these 3 nations should form an economic and political community of interests. As for the Land of Wind and the Land of Lightning, that was a whole different story. The national character of the Land of Wind, in particular, was heavily influenced by its environment. Living in a desert, the people of the Land of Wind had a dual nature. On one hand, they were accustomed to hardship, the loneliness of their tough lives, and had few desires, making them fiercely independent and resistant to authority. On the other hand, they were simple and straightforward, with an innocent nature free from deceit. Hidden Sand Village amplified both of these characteristics. If Hidden Clouds Village valued a warrior spirit, the Hidden Sand Village ninjas were naturally savage and the hardest group to control. They were crude in action, had strong egos, yet harbored great ambition and a strong desire for power, making it hard to align their interests. Debates over the format of the first exam went on for days in the Kazekage's office. Even Raza slamming the table had no effect. Once the Hidden Sand Village ninjas got into an argument, they wouldn't relent, even if it meant disregarding ties of kinship. Many proposals were put forth, but sitting in a classroom to do a written test was definitely not among them. Hidden Sand Village didn't even have administrative roles like secretaries. Hidden Leaf Village used written tests to evaluate candidates' intelligence-gathering abilities and their mindset when faced with seemingly impossible tasks, but such methods were clearly not to the taste of the Hidden Sand Village ninjas. The first exam had a distinct flavor of the Land of Wind's culture. They designated a section of desert and sent the candidates inside. Each team carried a piece of intelligence with part of a route map, which they needed to decipher. Teams that reached the destination within the set time would pass. It was as straightforward and brutal as it got. While this gave Hidden Sand Village's own participants a geographical advantage, it was only a slight edge. After all, these were all Geinin, and even the locals hadn't explored every part of the vast desert. The host nation needed at least that much of an advantage to maintain credibility. For Hidden Leaf Village's Geinin, the desert environment was largely unfamiliar. During the Third Great Ninja War, the Hidden Sand Village ninjas had been the aggressors, while the Hidden Leaf Village forces mostly counterattacked defensively and never entered the Land of Wind's territory. For many of these Geinin, this was their first time seeing a real desert. Fortunately, Hidden Leaf Village's academic curriculum included desert survival basics, so they weren't entirely unprepared. Additionally, as a former citizen of the Land of Wind, Bakura gave them some last-minute tips. On the day of the exam, participating teams from various villages, led by Hidden Sand Village ninja guides, entered the vast yellow desert one by one. "What do you think?" Masashi asked Bakura as he watched the Hidden Leaf Village teams disappear into the desert. "Will they manage?" "It depends on their luck," Bakura replied. "Even local residents of the Land of Wind can get lost in the desert without sufficient preparation. But with Hidden Sand Village ninjas monitoring the field, any unfortunate cases will simply lose their qualification." "Fair enough," Masashi nodded. He glanced at the scene one last time before turning to her. "Let's go. It'll be a few days, we should head to the destination." Bakura nodded and followed Masashi. Kakashi was already waiting ahead. "There are some promising candidates this time," Bakura said. She had a strong impression of a certain boy. "Like that Deidara you captured. He and Kimimaro are outliers. Letting them compete at this age just to crush everyone else's confidence, Onoki and Yagura are really ruthless," Masashi sighed. Still, he understood their motivations. Hidden Stone's village had long been seen as lacking successors. As for Kiri, it wasn't even worth mentioning, everyone expected them to self-destruct eventually. Sending these two prodigies was a way to change perceptions. Whether you were up against Deidara's clay bombs or Kimimaro's bone powers, no rookie ninja would be able to touch them. Over the past few days, the genin from the three villages had gotten somewhat familiar with each other and established a bit of camaraderie. Otherwise, Masashi would have been worried that someone in his team might have the bright idea to challenge those two. Especially Kimimaro, who had no concept of holding back. He'd probably make friends by saying, "Since my bone didn't kill you, it's destiny that we should be friends." It was hard to imagine who might be fortunate enough to become his best friend in the future. While Masashi and the other team leaders made their way to the destination, the exam in the desert officially began. For Deidara and Kimimaro, despite their young age, their abundant combat experience and overwhelming strength made them thrive. But for the teams from Hidden Rain Village, it seemed the Chunin exams and their village were destined to be incompatible. They were nearly wiped out within the first few hours. Their individual strength was decent, with most of them capable of using at least one or two nature release techniques, predominantly water style. But in the desert, water jutsu were nearly useless, serving only to hydrate plants at best. In the original timeline, the Hidden Rain Village ninjas faced Gaara during the Hidden Leaf Village Chunin exams. This time, they ran into Kimimaro right after the start and were beaten so badly that they were unrecognizable. If that wasn't enough, they later encountered Deidara. Ever since his encounter in the Land of Grass, Deidara harbored a strong dislike for ninja from small nations and didn't hold back against them. Aside from the unlucky Hidden Rain Village ninjas, other villages fared somewhat better. For instance, Hidden Grass Village ninjas were quick to flee at the sight of Hidden Stone's village's ninja team from a distance. After all, Deidara had publicly declared his intent to eliminate all Hidden Grass Village ninjas. This bold declaration even earned him praise from Kitsuchi, who said he embodied the spirit of Hidden Stone's village. Meanwhile, the Hidden Sand Village ninjas monitoring the field coldly observed the candidates' mutual slaughter, offering no favoritism, even toward their own. And in the shadows, hidden figures began to move. Chapter 137, The Kazekage's Interrupted Mining Day. The yellow sand shifted as something small pushed up from below. Sand slid away, revealing what was hiding underneath. It was a hunched man with an ugly appearance and disheveled clothing. A slovenly brute. No, brute might be excessive, after all, you couldn't even see his feet. This was not his true body. He was once known as the Sasori of the Red Sand. Through Hueco, he gazed coldly at the familiar desert before him. Perhaps, just perhaps, a faint ripple stirred in his icy heart. That was all. That old hag. Her defenses are truly tight. Sasori, the most infamous traitor of Hidden Sand Village, now in his 30s, was in no good mood. Born into a family of puppet masters, he had been hailed as the best of Hidden Sand Village's puppet arts, the likes of which had never been seen before and would never be seen again. After his departure, Hidden Sand Village's puppet techniques had dimmed and paled in comparison. But such praise? To say sorry, it wasn't worth a fart. A fart at least made a sound. His demands for his life were minimal, just two things. 1. Don't make him wait. 2. Don't stop him from pursuing the eternal beauty. It wasn't because of the human puppet technique that he pursued eternal beauty. It was the other way around. It was in his pursuit of eternal beauty that he incidentally developed the human puppet technique. In this sense, he and Orochimaru were kindred spirits. The Snake Sannin also dabbled in ninjutsu as a side pursuit of his quest for truth. But Sasori and Orochimaru didn't get along. To this day, Sasori couldn't understand why Pain had recruited such an eyesore. Granted, Orochimaru had his skills, and they both shared a fascination with eternity. But sometimes, dislike was just dislike. He sought eternal beauty, not eternal ugliness. Having an eternal grotesque flitting about in front of him? It was infuriating, to say the least. It was an affront to his art. So many good materials. I can't let this go to waste. With this thought, he began to maneuver Hyuga forward at a leisurely pace. When he left Hidden Sand Village, he had taken with him most of the masterful puppets he had painstakingly crafted, except for that pair he made as a child. Art allowed no place for sentimentality or hesitation. He had to sever meaningless bonds. Yet severing those bonds was far from easy. To accomplish it, he replaced his body with a puppet. But even in his puppet body, a small piece of flesh remained, his imperfect past still trying to haunt him. Without cutting it off, his mind would never be at peace. And so, he returned, not just to collect materials, but to sever everything once and for all. To make them his enemies was the cleanest way to regain silence. Sasori had already chosen his first material. Hidden Mist Village was a gold mine of excellent resources. One day, he would make time to visit the Land of Water. Hyuga's movements left faint tracks on the ground, which were quickly buried by the desert winds. The desert was Hidden Sand Village's battlefield. It was also Sasori's domain. Here, his puppets could achieve their greatest potential. The wind and sand were his allies. If there was one weakness to his human puppet transformation, it was probably his reduced chakra reserves due to the lack of flesh and blood. But freed from the limitations of a physical body, his control had reached unprecedented heights. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to counter that Hidden Leaf Village ninja's technique. It wasn't easy, the other ninja's skill was extraordinary. Among the people he had encountered, that technique stood out as exceptional. Hidden in the wind and sand, Sasori slowly approached his target. It was a squad from Kiri. When Hyuga's unique silhouette began to emerge from the storm, it immediately drew the attention of the Hidden Mist Village ninja. A shuriken flew straight for its face. The sound of metal clashing rang out as Hyuga's iron tail swatted the shuriken into the sand. The Hidden Mist Village ninja finally saw their opponent clearly. Not bad. Sasori was quite pleased. The abilities of these three individuals could be added to his 100 puppets. Human puppets had the limitation of not fully replicating their original strength. But that was irrelevant for Sasori. His goal wasn't to recreate their power but to extract and preserve their unique abilities. And bloodline users. They were the best materials. Poison needles scattered in the wind and sand. The Hidden Mist Village geinin fell one by one, unable to resist. Excellent. Simply excellent. Sasori moved closer, his gaze staying on the fallen bodies with the intensity of an artist admiring a masterpiece. The key to crafting human puppets lay in preserving chakra. The longer the body had been dead, the less chakra remained, until there was none. Conversely, if the puppet was crafted while the subject was still alive, their abilities could be preserved at full capacity. Just as Sasori had done with himself. Was the human puppet technique cruel? Inhumane? Was it an act of violence? A means of torment? He didn't think so. When he turned himself into a human puppet, yes, it hurt, but the pleasure outweighed the pain. That was the difference between someone who pursued art and someone who didn't. As an artist, he respected all other artists, even his enemies. But Orochimaru? He wasn't an artist. To him, eternity was merely a tool. And that, ultimately, was why Sasori despised Orochimaru. Controlling Hyuga, he extended a hand, pulled out a scroll, and prepared to seal the bodies. His poison was a special concoction. It wouldn't kill immediately but would strip the victim of all sensation. Then he heard the faint sound of something slicing through the air. It was Hidden Sand Village ninjas, scouts patrolling the desert who had noticed the disturbance. Hyuga's tail twitched nimbly, deflecting kunai and shuriken with ease. A puppet charged through the sandstorm. His opponent was also a puppet master. But the gulf between puppet masters was vast. The puppet and mechanisms of his foe were crude and laughable to Sasori. Back when he was still a ninja of Hidden Sand Village, he had crafted countless puppets for the village, mass-produced and mediocre by his standards. Not because he couldn't do better, but because the village needed tools for average puppet masters. His masterpieces would have been wasted in their hands. It's like expecting someone who can drive a basic car to handle a high-performance machine. It just wasn't going to happen. In a single clash, Hyuga reduced the attacking puppet to scrap. Meanwhile, Sasori sealed the three Hidden Mist Village ninja into his scroll. Hyuga then slowly turned, facing the surrounding Hidden Sand Village ninja. "Who are you?" the Hidden Sand Village ninja demanded. They had realized this wasn't an ordinary enemy when their comrades' puppets had been destroyed so easily. But these were Chunin, not high-ranking enough to recognize Hyuga or deduce Sasori's identity. Sasori didn't care. "I have no interest in you. If you don't interfere, I won't harm Hidden Sand Village ninja." He already had all the valuable materials from Hidden Sand Village. The rest weren't worth his attention. "Oh, wait, There was one exception. But that person was no longer Hidden Sand Village Ninja. What arrogance! The Hidden Sand Village Ninja shouted. Don't think you can do as you please just because you've got some fancy equipment. The success of puppet techniques had spurred research into mechanical weaponry across the villages. Hiroko's lifelike movements had fooled these mid-tier ninja into mistaking it for a person. Is that so? Sasori pondered for a moment. After all, he had came to sever all ties with Hidden Sand Village. It didn't matter anymore. Kill them now, or kill them later, it made no difference. And so, Hyuga moved. Raza was in his office, reviewing documents. For him, this was one of the rare moments of leisure in his day. Since the era of the second Kazekage, the requirements for becoming Kazekage had changed from 1 to 2. What used to simply require being the strongest now also demanded mastery of the magnet style. This technique was developed by the second Kazekage based on the power of Shukaku. Though magnet style was not exclusive to Hidden Sand Village, the village's version was entirely unique. Raza could still remember how excited he had been as a young man when he finally mastered the magnet style. So why on earth had he decided to take the gold dust route back then? But for the next generation, the magnet style, a technique passed only to males, had already been tested on his eldest son, but he lacked the aptitude. As for his youngest, Gaara, he was a natural-born user of magnet style. The fusion of Shukaku with the magnet style was, from a technical perspective, the ideal outcome. But whether he could truly control Shukaku's power, and whether he even had any feelings of loyalty toward the village, Raza was unsure. The ninjas of Hidden Sand Village were notoriously hard to manage. It didn't matter that Gaara was his son, Kazekage candidates were no exception. Even Sasori had once been a candidate for Kazekage, and he had left without so much as a word. The fact that Raza's wife had died giving birth to Gaara was also a painful thorn in his heart. His feelings toward this son of his were complicated. This was his child by blood, after all. It wasn't as if he had no feelings for him. Kazekage-sama. His mood soured immediately. That phrase was usually followed by "the village is out of money again." Damn it. He was the Kazekage, couldn't they find a more tactful way to ask him to go gold mining? He genuinely disliked holding these Chunin exams. Leaving aside the influx of spies, they were simply too expensive. There were so many areas in the village that needed funding, and the income from the exams couldn't even begin to cover the costs. Ultimately, it was Hidden Sand Village's geographic location that made it poorly suited for commercial development. If the exams were held in Hidden Leaf Village, they would have turned a profit. What is it? Why are you shouting? He reluctantly put down his pen and began warming up his wrists. Gold mining required a proper warm-up. If your body was loose, the process would be more efficient. What time was it now? If he started mining in broad daylight, he could have dinner at 6. There's been an incident at the exam site, Kazekage-sama. A Hidden Sand Village Jonin burst in, his expression grave. Raza's warm-up exercises came to an abrupt stop. Be specific. Yes. The Jonin hesitated as he noticed Raza's movements. Under normal circumstances, he might have been moved by the hard-working spirit of his Kazekage, but now there was no time for that. Several exam proctors in the desert have been killed, and the candidates they were monitoring are missing. The candidates are missing too? Yes. All the proctors were killed using puppet techniques. Raza was stunned. Any leads? Is it the same person as last time? This was no small matter. There was a significant difference between dying during the exams and dying because of the exams. Especially when the deaths were caused by Hidden Sand Village's unique puppet techniques. This wasn't just looking bad, it was a total mess about to blow up. Mishandling it could crush Hidden Sand Village under the weight of public outcry. Take me to the scene. Chiyo-sama just returned from the scene. Raza, who had been about to rush out the door, stopped in his tracks. He looked at his aide, who avoided his gaze. He knew the aide was worried he might lose his temper. Raza thought. As if I would ever lose my temper. Very well. With Chiyo on the case, I'm sure it will be handled appropriately. He returned to his seat. Irritated, he decided he wouldn't mine gold today, he wasn't in the mood. The aide gave an awkward laugh. Keep me updated if there's any news, Raza instructed. Yes, Kazekage-sama. And remember, I want updates promptly. Don't let the elders beat you to it. Understood. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he signaled for the aide to leave. After the door shut behind him, Raza picked up his pen again. But as he read through the documents, his irritation only grew. Puppet techniques. Who could it be? Hidden Sand Village had its share of missing ninja over the years, some of whom were puppet masters. The most infamous, of course, was Sasori. Even now, no one in the village could understand why he had left without a word. The decline of Hidden Sand Village's forces in the Third Great Ninja War was partly due to the simultaneous loss of the third Kazekage and Sasori, two of the village's greatest assets. Either of them alone was worth 1,000 men. Had even one of them remained, Hidden Sand Village wouldn't have fared so poorly in the war. Raza's eyes scanned the documents in front of him, but not a single word registered. So, he put down his pen and walked to the window, staring silently at the landscape outside. This village had many problems. Gold dust techniques could solve financial issues, but they couldn't address the human ones. And that was Hidden Sand Village's greatest flaw. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. "No need to knock," Raza called out. "Kazekage-sama," his aide said as he opened the door. "Chiyo-sama has sent someone to request your presence." "Where?" "At the fishing spot she often visits with Ebizo-sama." "Both of them are there?" "Yes, they are." "I see." Raza took his Kazekage hat from the desk and placed it on his head. "Carry on with your duties. Keep monitoring the exam site, and have the Jonin stay vigilant. The enemy isn't ordinary." "Understood." As the door closed behind him, Raza sighed softly. He adjusted his demeanor, reverting to the confident and stern persona of the Kazekage. He would never let his comrades see any weakness. That was the responsibility of the Kazekage. He could die, but he could never falter. With a swirl of sand, his figure disappeared. About half an hour later, Raza arrived at the agreed location. By a man-made pond, Chiyo and Ebizo were fishing. This unremarkable pond would hardly draw a second glance in Hidden Leaf Village. At the very least, they'd spruce it up with a garden. But in Hidden Sand Village, this was a privilege reserved for the elite. Raza. At 60 years old, Chiyo was considered elderly by ninja standards. She was renowned for developing antidotes that neutralized the poisons of Hanzo of the Salamander during the Second Great Ninja War. Unfortunately, Hidden Leaf Village had produced someone even more extraordinary during the same era. "Chiyo," Raza greeted, stopping a few paces from the pond. "Are you in good health?" The surrounding Hidden Sand Village ninja had retreated once he arrived. None of them were foolish enough to stay and get in the way with the Kazekage present. "Thank you for your concern, I'm still alive," Chiyo replied, turning to face him. Raza noticed a faintly dazed look on her face, something uncharacteristic for the usually strong-willed elder. "What has happened?" "My grandson has returned." The incident at the exam site was his doing. Chapter 138, Sasori's Harvest of Bloodlines. Sasori? When Chiyo uttered the name, Raza felt the heavy stone in his heart finally settle. It all made sense. This was good. As long as it wasn't an inside job, he had nothing to fear. If it was Sasori, everything fell into place. "Because of the human puppets?" Raza asked. "Perhaps," Chiyo replied, her expression returning to its usual calm. "But his actions will plunge the village into crisis." "Perhaps," Raza echoed in the same tone as Chiyo. "What do you intend to do?" "As long as there's no traitor within the village, we have nothing to fear." Chiyo chuckled. "Ah, so you suspected me too? There are only a handful in the village with such advanced puppet skills." "Fair enough. It's only natural to suspect me," Chiyo murmured. "I've met the son of the White Fang. He does bear a striking resemblance." "Well then, since we've identified the culprit, I'll handle it now." Raza turned and prepared to leave. "Raza," Chiyo suddenly asked, "how do you plan to deal with Sasori?" Hidden Sand Village's way of dealing with defectors has always been the same. Watching as him used his sand-based body flicker to leave, Chiyo and Ebizo exchanged a silent glance. "Let's not dwell on this," Ebizo said. "We might have to intervene as well. Who knows?" Chiyo picked up her fishing rod again. "Even though he's my grandson, taking down Raza won't be easy for him." "True," Ebizo agreed, resuming his fishing. Although this fourth Kazekage had spent so much of his time prospecting for gold after taking the title, which surely affected his training, he still wielded the magnet style. In the desert, very few could challenge him. The real problem was Sasori. After all, he grew up in Hidden Sand Village. Even if stopped, he could escape with ease. And as for whether he still had old allies in the Hidden Sand Village forces, no one could say for sure. Raza hurried back to the Kazekage building and promptly announced a meeting of all the active Jonin. Under his orders, any Jonin currently in Hidden Sand Village, regardless of their ongoing tasks, immediately reported to the summons. In terms of prestige, his standing in Hidden Sand Village was unshakable. After all, he became Kazekage by intercepting and defeating an entire Hidden Clouds village army, saving the village in the process. And once he took on the title of Kazekage, his mastery of the gold dust further cemented his reputation. Whenever villagers mentioned him, they would give a thumbs up and sing his praises. In the meeting room, Raza sat at the head of the table, watching as one Jonin after another rushed in. Each Jonin who entered first saluted him, then discreetly studied his expression. There was nothing to glean, he looked as formal and emotionless as ever. After a while, no more Jonin entered. Raza glanced around. Roughly 2/3 of Hidden Sand Village's active Jonin were present. Thankfully, because of the ongoing Chunin exams, he had kept some Jonin from being deployed elsewhere. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been enough people to call on now. Are all the Jonin currently in the village here? Yes, Kazekage-sama. Good. Close the doors. Other than the Jonin, no one else is allowed near this room. Have them wait outside. Yes, Kazekage-sama. The non-Jonin in the room quickly exited and shut the doors behind them. Raza tapped the table, his expression solemn. The content of today's meeting is classified. The elders are already aware, and I trust all of you understand the gravity of the situation. The assembled Jonin immediately straightened, their focus intensifying. Everyone knew what had happened during the Chunin exams. It was clear that this meeting would address those events. The identity of the assailant has been confirmed, it is Seisaori of the Red Sand. The room was silent, and then an uproar broke out. Seisaori was a legend in Hidden Sand Village. To put it bluntly, Raza's obsession with gold was as extreme as Seisaori's dedication to creating puppets. Seisaori had single-handedly supported half of the village's puppet production at his peak. Hidden Sand Village's current puppet crafting techniques were all derived from Seisaori's innovations. Many of the puppets used today were ones he didn't even bother to take when he left. Now, this legendary figure had returned, and had killed Hidden Sand Village ninjas. How could anyone remain calm? His true motives are unclear for now, but one can assume that collecting materials for human puppets is among his goals. This is evident from the fact that he abducted several examinees, Raza continued, dropping another bombshell. As you've probably already guessed, the missing examinees all possess bloodline limit. Kazekage-sama, which villages have missing examinees so far? Primarily Kiri. Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village currently report no losses, Raza replied, inwardly criticizing Hidden Mist Village for flaunting its abundance of bloodline limits. This time, they'd brought trouble upon themselves. He couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Hidden Sand Village was not only located in a literal desert but also suffered from a metaphorical desert of bloodline limit resources. It was well known that the number of bloodline users greatly impacted an ninja village's strength. Hidden Sand Village's development of puppet techniques was fundamentally an effort to compensate for its lack of human resources. That's the general situation, Raza said, clearing his throat. I'm officially announcing that due to the extreme danger posed by Seisaori, all of you must remain vigilant during the upcoming exams. If you encounter him, immediately send an alert. Support each other, and I will arrive as quickly as possible. Kazekage-sama, are we to capture him alive? Eliminating him takes priority. Against someone of his caliber, there's no room for leniency, Raza stated. I trust no one here wants to end up as a human puppet. A chill ran through everyone present at those words. Understood, Kazekage-sama. This concludes today's meeting. Prepare yourselves accordingly. The Jonin rose and left the room one by one. As Raza had said, no one wanted to become a human puppet. He remained seated, waiting until the room emptied before slowly rising. An Anbu appeared at his side. Inform the mines that I won't be visiting for the foreseeable future. Understood, Kazekage-sama, the Anbu replied crisply, though his hesitant expression betrayed him. This hesitation practically screamed, Kazekage-sama, I have something to say but don't know if I should. Are the village funds running out again? Raza's face darkened with worry. Didn't we just extract some gold the other day? How could it run out so quickly? Kazekage-sama, as you know, hosting the Chunin exams has left the village in a financial deficit. Curse Hidden Leaf Village. Raza fumed. They claim to co-host but haven't contributed a single coin. He could understand Hidden Mist Village refusing to pay. Hidden Stones Village's lack of contribution was expected. But Hidden Leaf Village? The village that proposed the exams in the first place? Not chipping in a single cent. The fourth Hokage was outrageous. Then, Raza gritted his teeth, making a decision. I'll go to the mines one last time today. After that, I'm not going. Seisaori is no weakling, I need to prepare myself. Of course, Kazekage-sama, the Anbu quickly consoled. Everyone knows how hard you work. Ah. Raza sighed, overwhelmed by frustration. Let's go. Quickly. We'll extract gold for just an hour today, not a minute more. Hidden Sand Village's movements did not escape the notice of the accompanying foreign squad leaders. The Hidden Sand Village ninjas weren't trying to hide anything, they made their actions as public as possible, ensuring that no outsider could remain unaware. Masashi had already been at the first exam site for 4 days. Each team of participants only carried enough water and rations to last 7 days. This meant that if they couldn't arrive at the location within that time frame, they would be automatically disqualified. However, by the third day, the atmosphere had begun to shift. Some of the participants who arrived at the destination were visibly shaken. When questioned by their team leaders, they revealed they had been attacked by an unknown ninja. The attacker had even killed the proctor ninja who tried to intervene. This news elicited varied reactions from the different villages' leaders. The leaders of smaller villages were understandably nervous, some even requesting Hidden Sand Village temporarily suspend the exam. Meanwhile, the representatives from Hidden Leaf Village, Kiri, and Hidden Stones Village demanded that their respective jonin be allowed to enter the exam grounds. Among them, Mai was particularly insistent. She was worried because Kimimaro had not yet arrived at the destination. Kitsuchi also shared similar concerns. However, he refrained from showing the same panic as the smaller villages, though internally, he was just as worried. Deidara hadn't arrived yet either. The three jonin from Hidden Leaf Village, however, appeared less concerned. After all, those targeted by the attacker were exclusively ninjas with bloodline limits. And as for their participants in this year's exam, well, not a single one possessed a bloodline limit. This was a deliberate decision made by Masashi and suggested to Minato. Ninjas with a bloodline limit were better left out of such events, not because of their skills, but because bloodline limit often attracted unnecessary trouble. While Hidden Leaf Village didn't have as many bloodline users as Kiri, their quality was higher. Each one that participated could become a moving target for problems. Of course, the official explanation was that Hidden Leaf Village prioritized inclusivity, focusing on ordinary ninja. This reasoning wasn't without merit. Ninjas without bloodline limit faced less targeted aggression, allowing them to adapt better to the challenges of the exam. This approach was also a form of protection for these ninjas. Additionally, their performance during the Chunin exams contributed to their overall achievements, serving as a resource shift that favored non-bloodline limit ninja by providing them with more opportunities for advancement. Although, in truth, it was still about safeguarding the bloodline limit users. At least the policy appeared more palatable. Achieving such balance in the ninja world was no easy feat. However, by the fourth day, when some of the promising young Hidden Leaf Village ninjas hadn't returned, Masashi couldn't sit still any longer. Along with representatives from the other three major villages, they collectively began applying pressure on Hidden Sand Village. The Hidden Sand Village proctor in charge of the site was in a tough spot. The three villages' representatives couldn't be ignored. The proctor knew that if Hidden Sand Village hadn't made their security and criminal capture efforts so overt, the three villages would have already taken action. They would have suspected Hidden Sand Village of orchestrating the attacks. In truth, Kitsuchi and Mai still harbored such suspicions. Only Masashi thought otherwise. He doubted Hidden Sand Village would be behind this. Even if the current Kazekage was the weakest among the 5 Kage in terms of raw power, he wasn't foolish enough to sabotage his own village's reputation. Moreover, the upper echelon of Hidden Sand Village wouldn't risk targeting other villages' participants. The perpetrator wasn't selective, they attacked every team indiscriminately. Interestingly, the assailant hadn't targeted Hidden Sand Village participants but had attacked the Hidden Sand Village proctor. Another peculiar detail, only Hidden Rain Village ninjas hadn't been attacked. However, Hidden Grass Village participants claimed this was because Hidden Rain Village ninjas were already eliminated, defeated by Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Stones Village teams. This situation left everyone in an awkward position. By the fourth day, the attacker had become more brazen. Every team that arrived at the site that day reported being attacked. The reason they made it to the destination? The assailant had no interest in them and attacked only to lure out Hidden Sand Village proctors. The attacker, confirmed to be a highly skilled puppeteer, was evidently using Hidden Sand Village proctors to gather materials. This suggested they were either building or modifying puppets on the fly. The Hidden Sand Village proctor in charge was furious, but the team leaders had grown suspicious. This wasn't the work of an ordinary criminal. Even if Hidden Sand Village had been weak during the Third Great Ninja War, it was still one of the 5 great nations. Considering the attacker's skill in puppetry and their intimate knowledge of the desert, they were either a former Hidden Sand Village ninja or someone deeply connected to the village. Based on survivors' descriptions of the assailant's capabilities, dispatching Hidden Sand Village proctors with ease, it was clear they were at least an elite jonin. Could it really be him? Sasori? Masashi thought. No ordinary elite jonin could toy with Hidden Sand Village proctors across the entire desert. After all, there were jonin among the proctors as well. If it truly was him, then things made a lot more sense. For someone like Sasori, targeting participants with bloodline limits during the Chunin exams might seem plausible, but taking on the entire Hidden Sand Village, not to mention antagonizing half the ninja world, seemed excessive. Regardless, it was time to investigate. Facing the pressure from the 3 major villages, the Hidden Sand Village proctor finally gave in. A messenger was sent to the Kazekage's office. Raza, understanding the gravity of the situation, immediately authorized the request. In fact, he wished the villages would call off the exams entirely and leave as soon as possible, saving Hidden Sand Village both money and trouble. With his approval, the Hidden Sand Village proctor relayed the decision to Masashi, Kitsuchi, and Mai. The three were unsurprised and wasted no time. They requested a guide from Hidden Sand Village and headed into the desert. Their speed soon left all signs of civilization behind, with nothing but endless dunes stretching to the horizon. "We should split up," Mai suggested. "Kitsuchi and I need to locate our genin first. Time is critical, so we'll move ahead." "Alright," Masashi agreed. "Though it goes without saying, I'll still remind you, if the assailant is Sasori, be cautious." Kitsuchi and Mai nodded, acknowledging the warning. They then parted ways to search for Deidara and Kinamaru. If the attacker was indeed Sasori, the young genin wouldn't stand a chance. The skill gap was insurmountable. After the two departed, Masashi turned to the Hidden Sand Village guide. "Where are Hidden Leaf Village teams concentrated?" Among the Hidden Leaf Village participants, Masashi believed Hana was the most likely target for her unique abilities. The Inuzuka clan's secret techniques had, over time, influenced their physiology, granting them enhanced agility, heightened senses, and other distinctive traits. For the standard of selecting human puppet materials, such qualities would be highly coveted. Chapter 139, Kindred Spirits. In a sandstorm, an explosion blasted the gravel into the air, only to have it fall back down. The clattering sound resembled raindrops hitting the ground. Kinamaru stared blankly at Deidara, who was pulling out another lump of clay from his bag. There was a reason the two of them were together. "Didn't you say you could blow him up?" Kinamaru pointed at Hyuga, who looked completely unscathed, and gave Deidara a stern look, as if accusing him of lying again. "It would have worked on someone else," Deidara retorted indignantly. "If you're so capable, why don't you do it yourself?" Kinamaru glanced back at Hyuga, who was slowly dragging itself toward them. "Can't beat him," he admitted honestly. "We should just keep running. We're faster than him. If we get far enough, he won't be able to find us." "You've said that before." Although Deidara grumbled, his body obediently started running. In no time, the two kids disappeared into the swirling dust. Sasori watched the two figures retreat into the distance, calculating his next move. The kid from Hidden Stones Village didn't seem to have any special abilities. His skill with explosive clay was decent, but as a human puppet, he wasn't worth much. The boy from Kiri, however, was excellent. The Shikatsu was an extraordinarily powerful bloodline limit, and the boy had been well trained. His taijutsu exceeded the level of a genin, his reflexes were sharp, and he was adept at using his abilities. Combined with the Hidden Stones Village boy's support, the two had managed to hold him off until now. Of course, the main reason was that he didn't want to damage the materials. He hoped to acquire the Shikatsu intact. And these two kids, well, they were annoyingly good at running. It was as if they'd been chased since they were in the womb. It's been 4 days now. That's about enough. Time to pick up the pace, Sasori thought. The Jonin from Hidden Sand Village would eventually catch up to him. No matter how well he knew the terrain, he was just one guy. He couldn't outrun them forever. After that, the fourth Kazekage himself might show up. Forget it. Damaged materials are better than none. He decided to stop holding back. He would acquire the Shikatsu and then leave. Hyuga suddenly picked up speed, and the sluggishness it had displayed earlier seemed to have been a mere illusion. It kicked up even more sand and quickly closed the distance to Kinamaru. "He is catching up again," Deidara said, recognizing the sound of Hyuga's approach. While running, Deidara formed a one-handed seal and muttered a low chant. In an instant, a massive explosion erupted behind them. The shockwave propelled the two kids forward, and they skillfully used it to their advantage. "Do you still have clay left?" Kinamaru asked. "Almost out. Those landmine traps use up a lot of clay," Deidara replied calmly. "Don't worry. We're close to the destination now. I stole the most scrolls," Kinamaru reminded his temporary teammate. "If the Hidden Sand Village ninja ask, you need to admit it." Fine, Deidara replied, annoyed. "You're so stingy." Humphrey. Kinamaru thought to himself that if he hadn't decided not to stab Deidara with a bone spike when they first met, he wouldn't have teamed up with him at all. This was a principle the Mizukage had taught him: if you can't kill someone, make them your ally. Though he wasn't entirely sure what an ally was supposed to be. At the very least, it seemed to mean fighting together. "Your ninjutsu isn't bad, but it's no match for my art," Sasori's voice echoed from above. Deidara and Kinamaru dove left and right, rolling several times to dodge. The spot where they had just been standing was struck by Hyuga, which landed like a meteor. The soft sand cushioned its landing, absorbing the impact. But Sasori's chakra pressure was overwhelming for the two boys. The resulting shockwave was akin to a small explosion, sending them tumbling again. Deidara, having rolled one extra time, immediately bounced to his feet. Pointing angrily at Hueco, he shouted, "Don't casually throw around the word art. You're degrading it." Sasori, who had been about to attack, was intrigued by the boy's strong conviction. "A brat like you, with such a strong belief in art? Interesting." Sasori's voice grew lower. "All right, I'll give you a chance. Tell me, what is your art?" "Art is an explosion." Deidara blurted out his catchphrase without hesitation. But Sasori was disappointed. He had thought he'd encountered a kindred spirit, but this kid was just a child with no real understanding of art. In this world, there was no one who could truly compete with him in the realm of art. In the end, only loneliness could accompany him. How dull. The demolitions unit is nothing but barbarians. To think I assumed you understood art. Hyuga's tail rose menacingly. "Art is eternal beauty. My puppet techniques are the perfect blend of art and craftsmanship. Ordinary people can never comprehend the magnificence of my creations. You don't get it. True beauty in art lies in the fleeting moment, the ultimate peak of that instant. Only explosions can capture that." Deidara, despite knowing he couldn't win, refused to compromise his artistic stance and shouted with all his might. "Is that so? You've gone astray. I've changed my mind. I'll preserve your consciousness so you can understand the true essence of art. Kill me if you want, but I will never give up on my art." Kimimaro, who had been prepared for battle, was bewildered as he watched the two of them chat. What were they talking about? What were they doing? Why did it look more and more like the two of them were on the same side? Bones began to protrude from his body. So that's how it is. It all makes sense now. I've failed to live up to Yagura-sama's expectations. Unwillingness filled his heart. The Mizukage needed him so much, and yet here he was, about to die in this place. But in the face of life and death, this was the moment to fully embody his resolve. He launched himself toward Deidara. More detestable than a powerful foe was a deceiver. Hyuga's tail intercepted him, sweeping him back to where he started. Bones emerged from Kimimauro's arms as he crossed them to block the tail, which failed to penetrate his defenses. Midair, he twisted to launch steadily, sliding backward with a force. His gaze was filled with disappointment. "Don't rush to die," Sasori said. There was still plenty of time. This Hidden Stones village brat had fully piqued his interest. The navigator from Hidden Sand Village was walking far too slowly, and Masashi was growing increasingly impatient. The men of the Land of Wind, weren't they supposed to move as swiftly as the wind itself? To truly know someone, you had to recognize their chakra first. He wasn't sure if other sensory ninjas had this habit, but he always remembered people by their chakra. To truly know someone, you had to recognize their chakra first. In the world of shinobi, everyone could use transformation jutsu. Faces and even genders could be fake, but Chakra was an honest fellow. The familiar Chakra belonged to Deidara and Kimimaro. And there was another one, a less familiar presence. He knew the Chakra but hadn't seen its owner in person. It belonged to the troublemaker he had slapped away earlier. No, he couldn't be called a mere troublemaker anymore. Now, he was a murderer. Unless, of course, he hadn't harmed any Hidden Leaf Village ninjas. In that case, he'd still just be a troublemaker. Judging by the quality and volume of his chakra, it was fitting to label him Kage level. Masashi stopped in his tracks and casually grabbed the guide by the arm. "Masashi-sama?" The Hidden Sand Village ninja tensed up, assuming the worst. It wasn't the potential appearance of the murderer that made him nervous, but the infamous unpredictability of the white ghost standing beside him. Considering he wasn't a Hidden Leaf Village ninja, if a fight broke out, he figured he'd be the first casualty, just to set the mood. Oblivious to the inner turmoil of the guide, Masashi fixed him with a serious look and said, "I've located the enemy. Stay here, don't move. I'll be right back." "Understood, Masashi-sama. Take your time, I'll wait right here." The Hidden Sand Village ninja's face lit up with joy. Thank goodness, it wasn't happening here. He had been scared for no reason. Masashi nodded, and in the next instant, vanished in a blur. He had activated his lightning-style body flicker. Now, this speed was more like it. The desert's scenery was monotonous, the surroundings barely changing, but the chakra signatures were rapidly approaching. Before long, 3 black dots appeared in his line of sight. He activated his Sharingan. The sight of Hueco, the puppet, came into view. Its design was too distinctive. Sure enough, it was Sasori. In the original timeline, this puppet was easily destroyed by Sakura. But in truth, it was a human puppet, Sasori's first human puppet known to the public. Through the Sharingan, he clearly saw 2 distinct chakras within the puppet. No doubt about it, This was indeed a human puppet, capable of using the ninjutsu its original owner had mastered. His approach did not go unnoticed by the three individuals present. The happiest among them was Deidara. To him, this meant his artistic journey could continue. This enemy was utterly insane, completely deranged. The two had debated for ages, but neither had managed to convince the other. The reason? The other guy's logic was watertight, a hardcore devotee of his twisted beliefs. Sasori shared Deidara's view on this matter. At this point, he genuinely didn't want to kill this Iwa child anymore. He couldn't even bring himself to turn the boy into a human puppet. This kid was serious about art, not just dabbling in it. Even though he had taken a wrong turn, his dedication, his pure love for art, was genuine. Sasori acknowledged that. Such a person, with such a mindset, was the perfect companion for his pursuit of eternal art. Turning him into a human puppet would only rob him of the ability to further explore the world of art. As a senior on the artistic path, he had no qualms about guiding a true seeker like this. He wanted to see even greater possibilities. He was not alone in his path. This world, with all its trivial and boring aspects, found meaning only through art. When Masashi arrived at the scene, he was met with an incredibly bizarre sight. You cling to your ridiculous ideas because no one in Hidden Stone's village understands art. You're blindly groping in the dark in that wasteland. Come with me. I'll teach you. Sasori's tone was deadly serious. But he had not ignored Masashi, rather, his confidence in his own strength and his love for art made him unwilling to leave just yet. Finding a prodigy like this was no easy task. Not a chance. Don't look down on me just because I'm young. Deidara snapped. Eternity means stagnation. How can something stagnant stir the soul? Why were these two having a philosophical debate now? This wasn't at all what he had anticipated. His gaze shifted to the side, where Kimimaro sat on the ground, sulking with a pouty expression. The scene was undeniably strange and completely offbeat, but Masashi was a man of the world. Using the intelligence he had gathered, he pieced the puzzle together in his mind, roughly reconstructing the events leading up to this point. Sasori, I expected no less from you, he sighed. Enough chatter. You're not taking this kid today. Oh? Sasori turned Hyuga to face him. White Ghost, I've heard of you. Then you have my sympathies, Masashi smirked. Is there anything in this world, besides the art you revere, that brings you solace? Solace? Sasori's tone dripped with disdain. This child is unique, as I suspected. I will take him with me. And what would you do with him? Masashi recalled the original timeline's dynamics between the two. Your views on art couldn't be more different. The fact that he has the heart for it is enough. With passion, anything is possible. You're not trying to snatch him away from the Tsuchikage, are you? The Tsuchikage isn't fit to teach him. Is that so? Masashi's gaze flicked to the nostalgic Akatsuki cloak on Hyuga. The great Sasori of the Red Sand, reduced to joining a little group like Akatsuki. Do you, trapped in your idealism, still have what it takes to train a disciple? Akatsuki, it was essentially a gathering place for all the Chunibyo of the ninja world. Without a sufficient degree of delusion, even entering the group would leave one unable to find anyone to talk to. Under the black robes adorned with red clouds, each member embodied high coldness, viciousness, cruelty, and violence, all in pursuit of the rainbow after the storm. It was an unparalleled hub for idealists. Sasori's life had been devoid of warmth. He lost his parents too young to fully experience their love. Without addressing the darker parts of his nature, the rigid system of Hidden Sand Village had shaped his withdrawn and lonely personality, leading to a gradual distortion. Only through killing and cruelty could he find a sliver of solace, which gave rise to his obsession with eternal beauty. Whether or not it was tragic, Hidden Sand Village's education system was certainly flawed. But Sasori had never entirely detached from his emotions. Even as a puppet, his soul remained warm. There were too many ninjas like him in the shinobi world. Children who lost their loved ones bore unimaginable pain. When their twisted personalities were neither understood nor treated with kindness, they lost touch with their humanity. It was this kind of world that gave rise to Akatsuki. And this kind of world gave rise to the current Obito. I think I understand your intentions, Masashi said, forming a seal with his hands. But I'll say it again, no one leaves here with him. And those you've taken must be returned. Chapter 140, Coexisting with Darkness. The joys of people were not the same, except when drinking tea or eating food. The pains of people were not shared either, unless the tea shop went out of business. However, the tea houses in Hidden Lee Village were increasing in number, and when Masashi went for tea these days, the discounts were becoming increasingly ridiculous. So, the joy and pain of Sasori were something he couldn't quite empathize with. Mainly because he couldn't find the entry point. Everyone experienced pain, but the difference lay in how they deal with it. If one refused to coexist with the darkness they perceived, then they resisted it and tried to change it. Even if it meant doing the noblest things with the most despicable methods, it was better than living a life filled with pain while repeating the same patterns. After all, that wouldn't be resistance, it would be compromise. And once you'd compromised, becoming one of them, wasn't holding on to grievances only making yourself miserable? In Masashi's opinion, Sasori was exactly like that. Pursuing eternal beauty, at its core, was a form of escapism. Knowing his own limitations, understanding that he couldn't change anything, he chose to numb his inner anger and emotions. He discovered that eternal beauty was the only harbor that could bring peace to his soul, so he clung to it, madly and desperately. He truly resembled a member of the Uchiha clan. The only difference between him and the real Uchiha members was his bloodline. Masashi also looked like an Uchiha nowadays, but only looked like one. Thus, he and Sasori were completely different kinds of people, especially in how they dealt with pain. As he began to release his chakra, the chakra field here underwent a complete transformation. If there were another chakra-sensitive ninja present, they would notice that the area had been dominated by Masashi's chakra. The refreshing chill dispelled the desert's scorching heat. The air, now more humid, became noticeably more comfortable. 3 giant ice constructs resembling Prometheus stood firmly on the ground. Truth be told, puppet techniques, designed for slaughter, could be completely countered by the strength of ice style without taking any damage. Unless Sasori unleashed the iron sand of the third Kazekage puppet. If he did, Masashi was well prepared for that. In the past, his ice giants were just that, ice giants. But now, he was a man who could wield Susanoo. He had grown. So, he first created a cockpit using Susanoo's technique, then built a body around it using ice style. Of course, this was to avoid wasting chakra. However, if Sasori's third Kazekage puppet was already complete, the Susanoo cockpit could immediately expand, allowing Masashi to unleash his unique core art. Don't underestimate him as the founder of the Uchiha Ice and Snow Festival. His artistic aesthetic was above Sasori's. And it had been validated by the market back on Earth. At this moment, only Sasori remained in the field. Right now, his mind was replaying the earlier scene. 2 kids had suddenly been enveloped by a mass of manifested chakra, forming something that looked like a box. Then, the overwhelming ice-style power encased the box, creating the giant now standing before him. It was incredibly fast. The white ghost lived up to his name. Incredible, Sasori said, looking up at the ice giant where Masashi was located. An incredible jutsu. What a pity you don't understand art. Though his own puppet body had been outclassed, Sasori still believed he had won. Art wasn't about size equating to beauty. The white ghost's ice-style construct was devoid of any sense of aesthetics, proving that he was a crude person. People in this world were so shallow. There were too few individuals with pure souls like him and Deidara. Art isn't so fragile, Masashi said, standing in the Susanoo-constructed cockpit and looking down at the now ant-like Hyuga. Can you withstand a single step? So crude. Well, I suppose I'm still a ninja. Sasori's lament was drowned out by the roaring noise as the ice giant moved. Masashi manipulated Prometheus to stomp its foot down. But sand wasn't as supportive as solid ground. To prevent the giant from sinking into the sand, he cranked up the air conditioning and froze the sand beneath the giant's foot. However, this affected its agility. It also made quite the commotion. If Sasori couldn't dodge even this, it would be an insult to the title of Kage level, at least in terms of braggadocio. Before the giant's foot could land, the chill had already frozen the sandy ground. But Hyuga was no longer on the frozen patch. The massive foot still came crashing down, stomping onto the frozen sand that let out a strained groan, but Masashi ignored it. The ice giant raised both hands into a sword-wielding stance, though what it actually materialized was a massive 2-handed hammer. Since the opponent was a puppet, he didn't bother with the Yasaka Magatama. Ice was sufficient. The whack-a-mole game could begin. Here we go. The giant hammer hurtled down toward the airborne Hyuga, who was gliding along the wind. Midair, it suddenly extended a hand. Chakra threads unique to puppet masters shot out and adhered to the hammer's surface. In that split second, Hyuga swung to the side, narrowly brushing past the massive hammer. But this was just the beginning. Its tail acted like a chisel, stabbing into the hammer's surface and propelling him onto the giant's arm. At this point, the hammer finally struck the ground. It was like a heavy artillery blast. The deafening sound echoed as the entire sandy area collapsed into the ground, sending massive amounts of sand spraying into the air. The 2 kids in the well-protected Susanoo cockpit reacted differently. Kimimaro, initially stunned, glanced at the giant he was inside of, then at his own small arms and legs, furrowing his brow in frustration. Deidara, on the other hand, was envious of the hammer's power. It wasn't the hammer itself he wanted, it was its destructive capability. He felt that Masashi was the guide to his art. The effects Masashi produced always gave him new inspiration. That pure burst of power and destruction in a single moment, it was too beautiful. Meanwhile, Hueco had securely landed on the giant's arm, which couldn't be retracted in time. Gliding on the air currents, it launched a rapid assault toward Masashi's location. Interesting, Masashi muttered with a smile, watching the scene unfold. To manipulate a puppet to this degree, Sasori truly lived up to his reputation. Still, the beauty of mesh lay in their sheer power and overwhelming visual impact. Size was justice. He would make Sasori truly understand why meshs were every man's dream. Hueco was surprisingly fast on its feet. It was likely a wind-style ninja. Masashi had been carefully observing this human puppet, noting that all of its ninjutsu were wind-based, and even then, strictly supportive in nature. To be honest, perhaps due to the lack of maturity in the early stages of Sasori's craft, Hueco wasn't particularly impressive when it came to ninjutsu. Its attacks and defenses heavily relied on its puppet mechanisms rather than pure ninjutsu prowess. One thing was for certain though, it was indeed a human puppet, and Sasori had always specialized in crafting human puppets. In the original timeline, after his third Kazekage puppet was destroyed, Sasori refrained from using other human puppets, assuming that Chiyo's presence on the battlefield would limit their effectiveness. This left his actual stock of human puppets something of a mystery. But that was a concern for years later. At this point in time, Sasori's supply of human puppets was undoubtedly limited. If one was destroyed, it was one less he could use. As for his performance of 100 puppets composed of regular puppets, whether Sasori already had this move, it posed no threat to Masashi. Puppet mechanisms, no matter how advanced, were completely ineffective against someone who had mastered Susanoo. Thus, unlike Chiyo and Sakura in the original timeline, his only viable option against Masashi would be human puppets, specifically, those crafted from ninjas with powerful abilities and destructive ninjutsu. Given this, the only puppet Masashi could think of that fit the bill was the third Kazekage, who had been reduced to a mere husk when he first appeared. As Hueco charged along the giant's arm, Masashi didn't stop it. Although he was confident in his assumptions, he was still curious to see how Sasori's puppet mechanisms fared against the structures formed by his ice style. Besides, inside the ice giant, he'd even created a cockpit using Susanoo, a double-layered defense allowing him to deal with any threat effortlessly. While carefully observing Sasori's chakra activity, he confirmed something else. Sasori's chakra was at a tailed beast level. For a ninja's chakra to reach this magnitude, two conditions needed to be met: sheer volume and high efficiency. It required a careful balance, allocating chakra for molding, output, control, and physical recovery with precision, creating the illusion of an inexhaustible supply. Achieving this balance depended equally on quantity and technique. Some ninjas relied more on raw chakra reserves, while others leaned heavily on technique. In Masashi's view, sheer volume mattered slightly more than technique. Techniques could be mastered through training, but chakra reserves were mostly determined by innate talent. Larger reserves made using a lot of techniques easier, while the reverse wasn't true. In battles where both opponents had equal mastery of technique, even a small difference in chakra reserves could lead to overwhelming dominance. Take Hashirama and Madara, for example. Every time Hashirama defeated Madara, he was left nearly drained of chakra. Hashirama's reserves were only slightly larger than Madara's, but that slight edge was enough for him to utterly suppress Madara. With the Sharingan's clarity, Masashi could see Sasori's chakra activity in detail. Sasori's reserves leaned entirely on technique. His precision was absurd, managing his chakra with virtually zero wastage. Masashi couldn't help but grin. Sasori had used chakra threads numerous times to maintain balance, and as Masashi observed, he found himself learning the technique as well. No more carrying steel wires, how convenient. In mere moments, Hueco had reached the cockpit's location, its tail stabbing forward to pierce the ice wall. Masashi understood Sasori's thought process. It was like spotting a helmet lying conspicuously on a battlefield. People couldn't resist kicking it, even if they suspected a trap underneath. After all, how could you know for sure unless you gave it a try? This was probably the same logic Danzo had when he stabbed Susanoo with a kunai in the original timeline. Sasori now had a similar mentality. Wanting him to drop his pretenses and bring out his prized third Kazekage puppet, Masashi decided to indulge him. When Raza had faced Masashi earlier, he'd been extremely cautious, as if afraid Masashi might copy his gold dust techniques. As if. Why would he bother copying gold dust? If he were going to copy anything, it'd be iron sand. Hueco's stinger, made of a special alloy, struck the ice and left a deep scratch. That was it. Masashi's confidence in his ice constructs came not from the armor's external appearance, but from the inherent strength of the techniques themselves. This level of damage? Barely a scratch. It was as good as polishing the surface. Ice spikes erupted beneath Hyuga, but Sasori expertly maneuvered the puppet out of harm's way. Under his control, the puppet performed moves that wouldn't look out of place in professional parkour. His skills were no joke. When Hyuga finally leaped back to the ground, Masashi withdrew the ice spikes he had created. "That's enough playing around," he called out to Sasori. "Do you have any better tricks? Reveal your true form and switch puppets already. This one's useless." Humphrey. Sasori didn't look pleased. The ice-style techniques of the White Ghost were indeed formidable. Hyuga was incapable of dealing with them. He hadn't expected to be forced to reveal his true form here. And he was reluctant to do so. "You seem to know me well," Sasori said. "I'm curious. When I left this village, hadn't you never stepped out of Hidden Leaf Village?" "True, but it just means your Akatsuki has a mole." Masashi chuckled mischievously. Suspicion was good. A little paranoia never hurt. After all, in the ninja world, when in doubt, blame a mole. Ridiculous. Sasori found the Masashi's humor distasteful. Not that he had much faith in pain, but the core members of Akatsuki were few in number. If there was a mole, wasn't it obvious who it would be? Orochimaru. No one trusted him anyway. Hyuga dissolved into a puff of smoke. As the smoke dissipated, a slender figure emerged. A young man dressed in the red cloud robe of Akatsuki, with short red hair. Sasori's facial features were refined, and his eyes really stood out. They drooped a bit at the corners, making him look like an emotionless puppet. But a closer look revealed something unnerving about his gaze, cold and sinister, as if he wasn't looking at a person, but at a lifeless object. "Huh?" Deidara exclaimed in surprise. "So that's what you really look like? You don't look much older than me." Hearing Deidara's comment, a faint smile appeared in Sasori's eyes. "I'm much older than you," he retorted before turning his attention back to the ice giant where Masashi was. The smile faded. "White Ghost, hand over the kid to me, and I'll leave now." Masashi didn't even bother to reply. The ice giant he controlled shifted with a deafening roar, assuming a textbook whack-a-mole stance. The ice giants with Deidara and Kimimaro inside also began to move, forming a triangular formation. "Such nonsense!" Sasori muttered under his breath, his words unclear as to whom they were directed at. A scroll slid out from his right sleeve into his hand. He held it horizontally and slowly unrolled it. Smoke expanded out once again. Chapter 141, Size is Justice. Raza was running at full speed. To be precise, the current Kazekage was leading the charge, followed by a group of Jonin. Among them were not only Hidden Sand Village's ninjas but also Jonin from other villages. Whether they were here to spectate or meddle, Hidden Sand Village had no choice but to let them tag along. Especially considering the presence of Kitsuchi and Mai, the precious assets of their respective villages were on site. The identity of Sasori was no longer a secret. It wasn't realistic to keep such a thing under wraps for long in front of so many Jonin. Finally, as the group crossed a sand dune, they arrived at the battlefield. 3 towering ice giants stood there, unmistakably identifying the person opposing Sasori. Upon seeing this, both Kitsuchi and Mai let out a sigh of relief. They were well aware of Masashi's strength. With him here, the safety of their village's prized ninjas was assured. The Hidden Sand Village ninjas, however, were seeing the infamous ice style of the White Ghost, a technique that had already made a name for itself across the shinobi world, for the first time. Looking at the 3 giants, a chill ran through their hearts. If this technique were unleashed on the battlefield, how many lives would it claim? So this is the power of the White Ghost. One Hidden Sand Village Jonin murmured, unable to contain his awe. It wasn't shameful, everyone witnessing Masashi in action for the first time thought the same. Kitsuchi and Mai, however, remained composed. Particularly Kitsuchi. After all, Hidden Leaf Village's last war had been against Hidden Stones Village, and back then, Masashi hadn't even used this technique to decimate an entire Hidden Stones Village division. Now that was terrifying. He thought for a moment. If his father hadn't been present during that battle and Masashi had unleashed this technique to charge the main forces of Hidden Stones Village, well, that would have been a headache. Even now, he figured he could only stall one of those ice giants at best. "Is that Sasori?" someone suddenly asked. Everyone present was a Jonin, their eyes sharp. Even if their eyesight wasn't sufficient, there were always jutsu to compensate. With Hyuga destroyed, Sasori's true form was revealed, allowing them to see him clearly. They were all shocked that the creator of the infamous human puppet technique, feared across the shinobi world, was such a strikingly handsome young man. Truly, appearances could be deceiving. It seemed that these days, villains rarely looked the part. Sasori was especially egregious in this regard. Not only did he not look like a villain, but with his looks, he could easily win hearts. Kazekage-sama, should we intervene? A hidden sand village jonin beside Raza whispered hesitantly. The group of ninjas from other villages had started discussing Sasori's appearance as if it were a casual gathering, which irritated him. You were all panicking like mad dogs just a moment ago, worrying about your precious comrades going missing. And now you're so relaxed? Since the White Ghost is already taking action, let's observe the situation for now, Raza replied. Give the order to surround the area. Do not let Sasori escape. Understood, Kazekage-sama. The hidden sand village jonin nodded and left to organize the encirclement. Watching him leave, Raza resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Idiot. Can't you see how relaxed these outsiders are now? Sometimes, playing dumb wasn't a bad idea. Kazekage-sama. Suddenly, another hidden sand village jonin shouted. What now? Raza turned his head, displeased with his subordinates' lack of composure compared to the outsiders. Then he saw the expressions on his own jonin's faces, they looked as if they'd seen a ghost. Realizing something was amiss, he turned his gaze back to the battlefield. What he saw almost made his eyes pop out of their sockets. In the battlefield, Sasori, who had summoned the third Kazekage puppet, wasn't in a great mood either. This puppet was originally reserved for Raza. Now, he was forced to reveal it prematurely. Of course, he noticed the hidden sand village ninjas and other village ninjas who had arrived. But he didn't care. The so-called encirclement was laughable. Ever since he had transformed himself into a puppet, Sasori could use reverse summoning to escape as an object at any time. The only reason he hadn't left yet was that he wanted the child and was also eager to test Masashi's ice style techniques. With the sound of grinding, the third Kazekage puppet leaned forward, as if shielding him. Chakra threads firmly controlled the puppet while activating its bloodline traits. It began molding chakra to unleash the magnetic style, iron sand. Unlike his original timeline counterpart, who had fought in a confined space, this third Kazekage puppet was now fighting in an open environment, allowing it to fully demonstrate the power of this jutsu. Under the influence of the third Kazekage's unique chakra, black iron sand rose from the desert. Masashi watched intently. After the 5 great shinobi villages entered the second Hokage era, each of the second-generation Kage, aside from Tobirama, who specialized in sharing jutsu, had their unique contributions to jutsu development. The magnet style of Hidden Sand Village was one of the most remarkable new jutsu of the post-Hashirama era. Combining offensive, defensive, and sealing capabilities, its overall utility surpassed even Hidden Stones Village's particle style and Hidden Clouds Village's lightning chakra mode. It was also one of the foreign jutsu Masashi most wanted to obtain. Whether it involved iron sand or gold dust was irrelevant, they were merely applications of the same core magnet style ability. Ahead, Sasori and the third Kazekage puppet were engulfed by a massive wave of black iron sand. The scale of this attack wasn't as vast as Gaara's future sand tsunami, but it was far from the minor skirmishes of the original timeline. Unlike the sand tsunami, which relied on crushing and grinding to cause damage, the iron sand was composed of countless tiny iron sand bullets. Its method of destruction was far more direct. The next moment, countless iron sand bullets were fired from the black wave. The densely packed projectiles blotted out the sky, accompanied by sharp whistling sounds. On the outskirts of the battlefield, both the Hidden Sand Village ninjas setting up the encirclement and the observing ninjas from other villages were awestruck by the spectacular sight. Even those who had never seen the third Kazekage in action now understood why he was once hailed as the strongest Kazekage due to his iron sand techniques. Truly remarkable, Masashi remarked as he watched the iron sand bullets cascade down like a storm. Under his control, the 3 ice giants raised their massive shields. Thick layers of ice armor quickly enveloped their bodies. The preparation was just in time. The iron sand bullets rained down like a torrential downpour. It was like sitting inside a house when a sudden, violent rainstorm erupted outside. Even within the protective layers of the giants, Masashi could feel the intense vibrations transmitted from the impact. To those outside, the 3 giants had been swallowed by the black cloud of iron sand, leaving no trace of their white forms. The iron sand that fell into the desert stirred up a storm of sand, gradually staining it black. Eventually, everything seemed connected by the iron sand cloud, making it impossible to discern the sky from the ground. The tremors beneath their feet never ceased. Suddenly, 3 brilliant flashes of light pierced through the abyss like black cloud. The iron sand scattered. The 3 lights flashed for just an instant, and then an unimaginably massive, blazing sword of flame slashed through the seemingly bottomless darkness. Sunlight poured down onto the earth once more. What appeared before everyone was a fearsome humanoid chakra construct. It towered even higher than the previous ice giants. It had wings on its back, a massive shield on its left hand, from which extended a segmented whip. In its right hand, it held that terrifyingly large flaming sword. The sight of this enormous creation left everyone in stunned silence. This was nothing like the ice giant they had seen earlier. Its construction was intricate, its terrifying design exuding raw power. At its feet lay shattered blocks of ice, melting rapidly under the intense heat radiating from the flaming sword. It was far too hot. Inside a crystal-like structure on the giant's forehead stood Masashi, along with Kimimaro and Deidara, the two children. From their perspective, Sasori and his puppet of the third Kazekage appeared minuscule, insignificant like grains of sand. Unfortunately, this wasn't yet the fully perfected version of Susanoo, as it still couldn't use ninjutsu or fly. But it was already the most powerful form of Susanoo that he could currently wield. He had also discovered something interesting: Susanoo's appearance could be customized according to the user's preferences. As long as the structure was envisioned beforehand, there was no need for unnecessary transformations during use. As expected of the most potent ocular technique, the Eye of Reflection. This also meant Masashi could save a considerable amount of chakra. The two children were very curious about their current state. In fact, when they were first drawn inside, they nearly started fighting, mainly because Kimimaro suspected Deidara of being a traitor. After all, how could anyone chat so enthusiastically with Sasori and not be on his side? Fortunately, with Masashi acting as the adult mediator, a fight was avoided. Unable to bicker further, the two quickly reconciled. Then, just like children on Earth, they discovered the charm of a giant mecha. The chakra construct was undeniably captivating and fit perfectly with the current level of Masashi's Susanoo. The giant resembled his previous Prometheus, but with sleek, angular armor reminiscent of Iron Man, a glowing core at its chest, and massive wings that looked like molten iron brought to life. Sasori looked at the giant before him, finding it troublesome. As a craftsman, he lived by a simple principle: shoddy work equaled poor performance, and the reverse was equally true. This chakra construct was no exception. Despite being made of a single material, its design was unnecessarily complex. Did it even have an internal skeleton? Sasori decided to retract his earlier evaluation. The White Ghost wasn't someone who just stacked powerful secret techniques on junk. "Is this your art?" he asked, tilting his head upward. Whether or not the White Ghost could hear him was unclear, but as fellow artists, he doubted Masashi would neglect such a basic functionality for communication. "That's right. This is my unique secret technique, Iron Prometheus," Masashi said with a grin, his explanation bordering on nonsense. "Its power? You'll see soon enough." Historically, most Uchiha used Susanoo in a similar fashion. But he had decided to break that tradition starting today. If meshs could operate like this, so could he. This was the collective wisdom of fans of human ingenuity. And Sasori? He was the perfect test subject. "I'm coming, Sasori." The Iron Prometheus moved. The crowd gasped in shock at its agility. It was nothing like the clumsy ice giant they had just seen. Behind Sasori, the black curtain of iron sand rose again. It collided with the flaming sword forged from Kagetsuchi. But the moment the two clashed, the iron curtain was effortlessly sliced apart, the iron sand raining down like black raindrops. With a few quick swipes, the Iron Prometheus cleared away the iron sand that attempted to bind it. Even the occasional iron sand attack that landed on its body was blocked by the protective layer of armament form. "My art surpasses yours," Masashi declared smugly. "It's time to switch puppets." Using Susanoo was truly exhilarating. Aside from the chakra drain, it had no real weaknesses. Still, using it to fight small fry felt like overkill. The Iron Prometheus raised its left hand, and its segmented whip began glowing red. The combination of Scorch style and Susanoo had turned out even better than Masashi had expected. Fully charged, the chakra whip, infused with intense heat, lashed towards Sasori's location. The desert's terrain, while durable, was no match for the attack. The whip tore through sand dunes, shattering them into crystalline fragments from the heat, sending sand soaring into the air. A reddish haze filled the sky as the landscape was devastated. The chakra whip obliterated everything in its path. The observing ninja were silent, watching the terrifying chakra giant wreak pure destruction across the desert. As for Sasori, everyone assumed there would be little left to bury. Even the third Kazekage puppet wouldn't make a difference. Everyone knew that a human puppet's ninjutsu couldn't rival the originals. With the iron sand proving useless, what else could he possibly pull out? So far, there was no sign of new iron sand being created. "Is he dead?" someone whispered. No one answered. No one could confirm. After hammering the battlefield for a while, Masashi paused. Sasori and the third Kazekage's chakra had not vanished. From the beginning, Masashi had simply been targeting areas with chakra signatures. It was too tiring to aim visually. As the Iron Prometheus came to a halt, the sand began to settle, restoring visibility. What lay before them was a desert riddled with scars, almost no part of it untouched. Directly beneath the giant's attacks, some of the sand had even fused into glass due to the intense heat. And there was Sasori. He stood atop a relatively intact sand dune, with two large, conical iron sand constructs floating in the air. They were aimed at the Iron Prometheus. How did he get all the way over there? Kinemaru asked, confused. Sasori turned himself into a human puppet long ago, Masashi explained casually. His movements aren't limited by normal physical functions. The only limit is the material he's made of. But no material could compare to pure chakra. Susanoo was, after all, a cheat-level secret technique. That said, it was draining his chakra rapidly. He needed to conserve energy. This experiment wasn't over yet. Masashi formed hand seals. The Iron Prometheus's flaming sword vanished, and the chakra whip cooled, dispersing its heat. Then, with a powerful leap, the construct launched into the sky. Earth-style, super-lightened boulder jutsu. Its wings spread, and the Iron Prometheus soared into the air. Chapter 142, The Sky Belongs to Susanoo. Watching the Iron Prometheus actually flying in the sky, the onlookers were completely shaken. The difference between being able to fly and not was vast. Take Kitsuchi as an example. As long as the enemy was grounded, he had ways to deal with them. But if they could fly. The third Tsuchikage was a user of the lightweight rock jutsu. Thanks to this ability, he wandered wherever he pleased when he was young. After all, if worst came to worst, he could just fly away. In the shinobi world, most were ground-based units. Most, because there were some who specialized in water techniques. But aerial combatants? Very few. When the spectators realized that this terrifying creation from the White Ghost could actually fly, they felt as though the times were truly changing. Before the first Great Ninja War, ninjas didn't perceive much of a shift in the times. Ninja villages were just larger gatherings of ninjas, the structure hadn't fundamentally changed. It was still mostly just watching Hashirama and Madara showing off. Only after both of them left the stage did the era of the ninja villages truly begin. But now, everyone felt a shift. This White Ghost wielded the power to single-handedly alter the course of events. He didn't even need to do much. Just park this creation outside the village, and it would be enough to make nations tremble. Given its destructive power, a single lap around a country's capital could single-handedly revitalize the real estate market. For example, the fourth Kazekage was thinking, if this thing strutted through Hidden Sand Village, I might just drop dead on the spot. Yes, gold dust could solve Hidden Sand Village's financial problems, but only as a patch for budget shortfalls, not as a solution for the monumental funds this level of destruction would require. The White Ghost, his terror knew no bounds. However, at that moment, neither Sasori nor Masashi was paying any attention to the panicking onlookers. In the air, two cone-shaped constructs of iron sand began spinning rapidly. This was a technique the third Kazekage had devised for siege warfare. Using a siege technique against the Susanoo? Sasori thought it was a reasonable approach. If this didn't work, he'd make a tactical retreat. Masashi's ninjutsu was far too effective against puppetry. Sasori still had other tricks, but there was no point dragging this out. Too many ninjas had already gathered nearby, and there was no way to escape with Deidara. In the sky, the Susanoo also began to transform. Under everyone's gaze, it shifted into the shape of a flying creature with two heads. This caught Sasori's attention. No wonder the structure is so complex. But what's the point of transforming into this form? He often incorporated transformation mechanisms into his puppets, but creating a design that could shift from humanoid to animal-like seemed superfluous to him. Still, he would find out soon enough. Inside the Susanoo, Masashi created a shadow clone, and both his main body and the clone began forming different hand signs. Now in its two-headed dragon form, the Susanoo opened both mouths. From these gaping maws, flames and wind converged into singular points. Sasori, meanwhile, manipulated his chakra threads. Both sides unleashed their attacks simultaneously. The spinning iron sand cones clashed with the fireball and wind sphere launched by the twin-headed dragon. The brilliance of ninjutsu illuminated the sky. Smoke and clouds billowed, vast and boundless, like an ocean stirred by waves. The clouds turned fiery red, the flame seemingly igniting everything. The once white sea of clouds churned, collided, and surged across the sky. When the shock wave from the explosion reached the spectators, even though they knew it was just the residual force, some of the weaker ninjas instinctively shut their eyes, overwhelmed by the terrifying red light and roaring winds. As the chaos subsided, the sky was almost entirely cleared, with only a few wisps of white clouds remaining like trails of silk. The iron sand had completely vanished, leaving only the Susanoo soaring in the sky. As for Sasori and his puppet, they were nowhere to be seen. Sasori used the reverse summoning jutsu to escape. Raza's voice broke the silence. Expand the search perimeter. Turn the land of wind upside down if you must, but find him. Yes, Kazekage-sama. The Hidden Sand Village ninjas replied in unison. Sasori, once the pride of Hidden Sand Village, was now its disgrace and mortal enemy. Moreover, his actions had far-reaching consequences. Hidden Sand Village would now face Hidden Leaf Village with significantly diminished confidence. After all, Hidden Sand Village had been flirting with Hidden Clouds Village recently without raising eyebrows, partly due to the suspicion that Hidden Leaf Village had killed the third Kazekage. But now, Hidden Leaf Village had clearly chosen to ally with Hidden Sand Village, putting past grievances aside. It would take years to fully process this turn of events. Raza turned to the other village leaders, about the Chunin exams. There's no need for concern, Kazekage-sama, Mai interrupted. Sasori's actions were clearly his own and have nothing to do with Hidden Sand Village. Hidden Mist Village will continue to participate in the exams. Exactly, Kitsuchi added. Our trust in Hidden Sand Village won't be shaken by a single rogue ninja. With support from these two major players, the other village representatives quickly echoed their agreement. Seeing this, Raza could only smile. With such reassurances, the exams had to continue. Yet no one was eager to disperse and resume the tests just yet. The reason soon became clear. The winds picked up again, and the ground was cast in shadow. The twin-headed dragon form of the Susanoo descended. As it landed, Masashi deliberately flapped its massive wings a few extra times for dramatic effect. He couldn't help it, he enjoyed the flare. Back on Earth, mecha models were pricey. But compared to this real-life Susanoo, figurines couldn't even come close in terms of playability. As the colossal figure of the Susanoo landed, many of the gathered ninjas took an involuntary step back. This time, they were genuinely impressed by Sasori. To face such a monstrosity without flinching, even daring to engage it in battle, and then escaping unscathed, he was truly something else. Raza, Kitsuchi, and the other leaders remained composed, but they couldn't deny the intimidating presence of Susanoo. Bigger wasn't always better, but bigger was almost always more overwhelming. And the earlier battle had proven that this thing was not just big, it was brutally powerful. The two dragon heads lowered slightly, opening their mouths toward the crowd. The movement startled everyone. But before they could react, two small figures were spat out, landing on the sand with dazed expressions. In their memory, they'd just been grabbed by Masashi, tossed into the Susanoo, and hurled into its interior. The experience was unique. Behind them, the form of the Susanoo began to fade until it vanished entirely into the air. Masashi appeared behind the two children, picking them up one in each hand and depositing them into the arms of their respective guardians. Sasori slipped away as quietly as he had arrived. With the troublemaker gone, the joint exam continued, but with a few fewer participants. Masashi had miscalculated slightly. Sasori's targets weren't only those with bloodline limits but also included those who practiced secret techniques. Bloodline users were most abundant in Kiri, while secret technique practitioners were most numerous in Hidden Leaf Village. Afterward, the villages, together with Hidden Sand Village, conducted a joint investigation and found that, in the first round of exams, around 40 to 50 participants had either died or gone missing. Among the missing, most were from Kiri, presumably captured by Sasori. The fate of those individuals was grim and obvious. However, for Mai, as long as Kimimaro was safe, it was acceptable. It wasn't that she didn't feel pain for the lost candidates from her village, but rather that she had to make a choice between two evils. Preserving Kimimaro was already a very fortunate outcome. After all, while Hidden Mist Village had many bloodline limits, few were exceptionally powerful. Hishikatsu Miyako was their sole representative of such strength. On another note, none of AIM's candidates were taken by Sasori, they were killed outright during the exams. This left the Hidden Rain Village team leader harboring a grudge against Kusa. He believed that if the Hidden Grass Village ninjas hadn't spread the story around, Hidden Rain Village wouldn't have been in this situation. Hidden Leaf Village also suffered some losses among its candidates. However, because most of the participants were civilian ninja without bloodline limits, and with only 2 or 3 using secret techniques, they weren't Sasori's primary targets. Instead, they benefited from him eliminating some competitors, leading to a relatively successful performance overall. The 4 promising candidates from Hidden Leaf Village all advanced smoothly. One way or another, the first round of the exam came to an end. The surviving candidates from each village, whether they passed or not, were taken back by their team leaders to rest. The second round of exams would take place a month later. During the interim, those who advanced could take the time to recover and prepare. As for those who didn't make it, especially those with severe injuries such as lost limbs. They could only recuperate in the hospital. Fortunately, Hidden Sand Village's medical facilities were decent. As long as the injuries weren't too severe, they could usually be treated. For those with crippling injuries, however, the best they could hope for was survival and an early retirement to live as ordinary people. No one complained about this. The joint Chunin exams were inherently a high-risk, high-reward endeavor. Participants were out for blood. If someone ended up crippled but not dead, it was considered mercy on their opponent's part. Few would say, "My ninja way has ended, I might as well die." If one couldn't be a ninja anymore, they would just find another profession. After all, anyone capable of using chakra could easily transition to a respectable job. During this period, Masashi continued to protect Hidden Leaf Village's candidates as usual. The joint Chunin exams generated income, mainly from the nobility of various countries. In essence, the joint Chunin exams had multiple layers of meaning. For the candidates, it was a chance to earn a promotion. For the ninja villages, it was a sanctioned opportunity to gather intelligence, form alliances, and settle scores. For the nobles, it was a way to assess the strength of each village. And for merchants, especially those in gambling, it was a lucrative opportunity. Although Hidden Sand Village's remote location limited commercial opportunities, gambling still thrived due to the heavy investment from nobles. In Hidden Leaf Village during the original timeline, gambling around the Chunin exams reached its peak. Some Hidden Grass Village ninjas even attempted to intimidate Gaara over it, with predictable outcomes. In short, the joint Chunin exams, despite its name, served interests far removed from the candidates themselves. Merchants who dared to bet on the exams often had strong backing. To manipulate the odds, they frequently harassed the candidates, hiring ninja from smaller nations to do their dirty work. The larger villages didn't interfere with this, as it brought in revenue and also served as a test of the candidates' abilities. After all, if they couldn't handle situations more complex than this as Chunin, they wouldn't survive real missions. Masashi's attitude toward gambling was unique. He monitored it closely, not to stop participants from being defeated in fair combat, but to prevent underhanded actions outside the exam arena. The merchants and hired ninjas feared his infamous reputation as the White Ghost, especially after the first round of exams. No small country ninjas dared cross paths with him for the sake of a quick buck. As a result, Hidden Leaf Village's candidates were unusually free from disturbances. At the same time, Masashi, Pakura, and Kakashi began targeted training for the Genin candidates. Most of this responsibility fell to Kakashi. However, Masashi specifically took an interest in Anko. After Orochimaru's defection, she became the only other Hidden Leaf Village ninja to hold a Rechi Cave contract, besides him. That alone was enough for him to offer her guidance. After all, she currently didn't even have the qualifications to enter Rechi Cave. The only reason she managed to sign the contract was that Orochimaru had pulled strings for her. Getting the White Snake Sage to agree to such a favor was no easy feat. Masashi's training for Anko focused on taijutsu and clone techniques. His own elemental ninjutsu didn't suit her abilities. In this timeline, she hadn't been marked with Orochimaru's cursed seal, likely because he left before perfecting the technique. On the flip side, this proved she had the potential to learn Rechi Cave Sage mode. Though it was only potential, Masashi was willing to give her the chance. Anko seemed to be the only one among her peers who might have been limited by external factors rather than her own abilities. Building physical strength was foundational, as the Rechi Cave Sage mode required a strong physique. Every day, he took her into the desert outside Hidden Sand Village for training. This training served two purposes, to enhance her taijutsu and to teach her how to use the snakes of Rechi Cave as a medium for creating clone techniques. Unlike regular clones, medium-based clones could utilize the unique properties of their medium. For example, in the original timeline, Deodara's clay clones could use the stickiness of the clay to trap opponents. Anko, who could summon small snakes from Rechi Cave, could use them as mediums for her clones. If an opponent tried to attack her clones with taijutsu, they'd be in for an unpleasant surprise. She cherished Masashi's kindness deeply. Orochimaru's departure had forced her to mature overnight. She harbored no resentment toward Masashi. The reason was simple, her anger was directed at Orochimaru. After all, he had first trained her to be a loyal ninja for the village, only to betray it himself. In a way, his actions inadvertently protected Anko, though whether that was his true intention was anyone's guess. After all, with Orochimaru, it was always hard to tell. Time flew by, and soon, a month had passed. Hidden Sand Village announced the second round of the exam, which was a straightforward one-on-one duel, much like the third round of the Chunin exams in the original timeline. To give the nobles ample time, Hidden Sand Village postponed the final round by 2 months but held a preliminary elimination round, reducing the number of participants for the final stage to under 20. Anko was among those who advanced. Chapter 143, The three sages' power. It had to be said that ever since Masashi got used to creating mechas with his ice style, his interactions with the giant snakes of Rechi Cave had significantly decreased. Once he unlocked Susanoo, he barely needed them anymore. To him, summoning the giant snakes had become somewhat redundant in most situations. Training Anko to succeed him as their summoner was part of his strategy. After all, having such a large group of snakes not frequently serving Hidden Leaf Village would be a waste. What was the point of the contract otherwise? After confirming her eligibility for the second stage of the exams, Masashi resumed her training. 2 months seemed like ample time. On this particular day, as usual, he teleported her using Flying Thunder God to the outskirts of Hidden Sand Village and began training. The desert climate was harsh, especially for a girl trying to maintain her skin, but chakra was an unreasonable cheat, sparing them the need to worry much about such concerns. Under Masashi's strict instructions, most of Anko's training focused on physical techniques. Anko tirelessly launched one attack after another at Masashi, holding nothing back. "If you don't go all out, how am I supposed to guide you?" he would say. "How can I help you rebound if you don't hit rock bottom for real?" Though blunt, his words were honest. "Your speed is good, but your movements are riddled with unnecessary actions," Masashi repeatedly corrected her form. Her basics were solid, but she severely lacked experience. "Unnecessary movements waste your chakra," he explained as he refined her techniques and taught her how to better control her chakra. "Don't mold too much chakra at once. Your reserve isn't remarkable." "Yes, teacher," Anko replied earnestly, absorbing every bit of instruction and daring not to slack off. Masashi didn't mind her calling him teacher. Her character was reliable enough for him to be willing to teach her. After a round of sparring, he barely broke a sweat, while Anko was left panting heavily. "Take a break," he said, handing her a water flask. "Your stamina has improved a lot compared to a month ago. Good progress." This was no empty praise. She indeed had a knack for taijutsu. After all, Orochimaru wouldn't take an untalented apprentice. "Teacher, can I learn your techniques?" Anko asked with hopeful eyes. "It's not that you can't," Masashi mused, "but your chakra reserves are still too low." His techniques consumed a lot of chakra. While there were countless jutsu in the shinobi world, only a minority used them as their primary combat method, and most of those were jonin. The reason was simple: they consumed too much chakra. Many ninjas would run out of energy after just a few uses. This was also why the Uchiha clan made a fortune selling explosive tags back in the day. For at least 90% of ninjas, they were far more economical and efficient than ninjutsu. Oh. Anko's disappointment was evident, knowing her current limitations in this regard. However, Masashi added, "Given your potential, you can dabble in Ganjutsu. For someone with the potential to master Senjutsu, their precision stat would naturally be high. At the Genin level, physical stamina is often still weak. I'll teach you 2 Ganjutsu, one to drain the opponent's stamina and another to mentally attack them," he explained. He then demonstrated them. Both were low-level Genjutsu, one ranked D and the other C. Given that Anko had already mastered summoning and striking shadow snakes, learning these should be well within her capabilities. After all, as a summoner of snakes, it only made sense to focus on fear and intimidation. Despite her exhaustion, Anko concentrated intently on his explanations. Her dedication earned Masashi's approval. In this regard, Anko resembled Sai a bit, always ready to seize any learning opportunity. "Just focus on understanding them for now," Masashi said. "Later, I'll give you scrolls with detailed instructions. But right now, our priority remains your stamina training. A strong body is the foundation for larger chakra reserves, which is essential if you're to become the rightful heir of Rechi Cave." "Yes, teacher. Before your training ends, I'll take you to Rechi Cave. If you don't want the true masters there to look down on you, you'd better train hard." "Really?" Anko's excitement was palpable. "Teacher, you're willing to take me?" Masashi nodded. Summoning jutsu was one of the most remarkable branches of space-time ninjutsu. It ignored distance entirely. At least in the known world, there were no spatial limits to its use. Thus, as a rightful heir to Rechi Cave, he could freely enter and exit it at will. The problem was the snakes themselves. The unruly inhabitants of Rechi Cave had an unsettling habit of expressing hospitality by devouring people. Contract or no contract, anyone who didn't meet their standards was treated as food. First impressions mattered greatly. With Masashi's assurance, Anko seemed to channel an inner superpower, training harder than ever and making rapid progress. By the time the final month began, she was almost unrecognizable from the novice who had first entered his training. Although she might not have noticed it herself, Masashi could see that, at her current pace, she would likely reach the basic competency required to visit Rechi Cave within a year. At that point, she would qualify to visit under his supervision. Meeting the White Snake Sage, however, was out of the question. Rechi Cave had its own rules. When humans met the White Snake Sage for the first time, it was either to get eaten in a show of hospitality or to offer themselves for a bite. That said, Masashi himself did need to meet the White Snake Sage again. The three great sacred lands were familiar with one another, and he wondered if he could leverage his relationship with the White Snake Sage to gain access to Mount Myabaku. Ever since learning from Black Zetsu, the idea of mastering all three types of senjutsu had reignited within him. The mechanisms behind the tailed beast's resurrection were deeply tied to natural energy. The Ten-Tails, in particular, had the ability to manipulate natural energy flowing through this world. This suggested that natural energy was an indispensable piece of the puzzle to reaching a higher level of power. If the Ten-Tails could manipulate natural energy from the land, air, and water, so could he, eventually. Mount Myabaku's relationship with Hidden Leaf Village was quite amicable these days, and he was determined to learn its senjutsu. Time flew, and the final month of training passed. It was finally time for Anko to step back into the exam arena. With the second round of the joint Chunin exams beginning, for the first time in the history of Hidden Sand villages hosting the exams, the village finally recorded a net positive cash flow. This was no small feat, and for the first time in ages, Raza smiled. As a critical element of the joint Chunin exams, the joint aspect demanded that prominent figures from allied villages attend as collaborators. Expecting Onoki to come to Hidden Sand Village? Absolutely not. Even if he dared, Hidden Sand Village wouldn't be thrilled about it. As for Minato, he wouldn't show up either. With Masashi currently absent, Minato had to remain in Hidden Leaf Village, keeping a watchful eye on Hidden Clouds Village's movements. Thus, the one who arrived was Masashi's old friend, Yagura. Truth be told, when word reached Hidden Mist Village that Sasori had appeared in Hidden Sand Village and nearly abducted Kimimaro, Yagura was thoroughly alarmed. So he seized this opportunity to come in person, not so much to observe the exams, but to ensure that no more incidents occurred. After all, Kimimaro was one of the rare talents he had painstakingly cultivated. His arrival created quite a stir in Hidden Sand Village. Since the first Great Ninja War, no Mizukage had set foot on the mainland, enhancing their mystique. Thus, when Yagura appeared at the gates of Hidden Sand Village, he instantly stole the spotlight from Raza. After all, this was a living Mizukage, something unseen on the mainland for decades. Moreover, Hidden Sand Village had been eager to forge stronger ties with Kiri. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sacrificed Picaro to Hidden Mist Village as a political gesture. Without a stable rear, Hidden Sand Village couldn't focus entirely on combating Hidden Stones Village. Hidden Sand Village viewed Hidden Stones Village the same way Hidden Leaf Village viewed Hidden Clouds Village, as their primary adversary. In Masashi's eyes, though, it was all just business. Long time no see, Yagura greeted warmly, his eyes lighting up at the sight of Masashi. This incident had earned Hidden Mist Village a substantial favor from Masashi. Of course, Yagura wasn't aware that this favor was originally intended to be even greater. However, Masashi felt it unnecessary to overdo it, so he scaled things down. After all, he had checked, the captured ninjas Sasori took weren't from Hidden Leaf Village. He decided it was best to let it slide. Long time no see, Mizukage-sama, Masashi replied politely. Since Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Leaf Village were in a honeymoon phase, any disrespect could lead to Fugaku nagging him later. Fugaku, having savored victory once, had become increasingly full of himself. Masashi figured it was time to showcase his skills once more when he returned. Rumor had it that Fugaku's calligraphy had become a hot commodity on the black market again. Masashi didn't quite understand this obsession, but markets often defied logic. Let's continue our conversation inside, Raza interjected, clearly irked by the apparent camaraderie between Masashi and Yagura. The relationship between Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Leaf Village was delicate at best, but he was genuinely intent on cultivating stronger ties with Kiri. Revitalizing Hidden Sand Village had become his personal mission. Masashi, understanding the situation, graciously stepped aside, yielding the spotlight to Raza as the host. After all, Hidden Sand Village had fully financed this event. It wouldn't do to appear ungrateful, no one likes stingy people. As the two leaders engaged in amiable conversation, Yagura tactfully played along, making Raza feel at ease. With this harmonious atmosphere, the second round of the joint Chunin exams commenced as scheduled. This time, Masashi chose not to attend. With Yagura present, along with Bakura and Kakashi, there was no risk of Hidden Leaf Village as teams facing undue interference. Early in the morning, after seeing off Hidden Leaf Village's representatives, Masashi returned to his quarters and used a reverse summoning. Space shifted, stars swirled, and he found himself in a cavern. The first sound that greeted him was the gentle splash of water. The small snakes of Rechi Cave, noticing the presence of an intruder, instinctively slithered forward to confront him. However, they quickly sensed the power of Uchiha's senjutsu emanating from him. To these low-level, semi-intelligent snakes, this power acted like an overriding command. Without hesitation, they performed an abrupt about-face and disappeared in the opposite direction. The snakes of Uchiha certainly lived up to the earthy reputation implied by the name. They were as practical as they were instinctive. Surveying the cavern's height, he confidently summoned Kuro. To his surprise, he was greeted by the sight of two massive serpents entwined together. Masashi found it rather awkward. "Am I interrupting something?" he asked dryly. "Masashi?" Kuro immediately disentangled herself from Manda, visibly pleased. "Do you need to meet the sage?" "Yes," Masashi replied, glancing at Manda, who looked dazed after being shoved off. "Are you alright?" Being abruptly interrupted during such a moment could be frustrating, he understood. Manda shuddered, shook his head, and glared at Masashi with annoyance. Still, there was nothing he could do. Masashi had grown significantly stronger since their last encounter, to the point where he could easily defeat him. "And no problem." Manda grumbled reluctantly. "Good to hear," Masashi replied, stepping back slightly to avoid any unpleasant contact. "Don't look so glum. I promise I'll return your partner in one piece." Manda couldn't shake the feeling that something about Masashi's tone was off, but he chose not to dwell on it. After all, Orochimaru had always been focused on research rather than frivolities. This had left Manda, despite his many bad habits and penchant for flattery, remarkably naive in certain respects. As Masashi hopped onto Kuro's head and directed her toward the White Snake Sage's domain, Manda decided to let it go and began training to regain his energy. Masashi, watching Manda from a distance, couldn't help but shake his head. Manda was clearly too idle, a sign that Orochimaru hadn't been engaged in any serious battles lately. Things had to be going well on his end. He wondered if Orochimaru had established contact with the daimyo of the Land of Sound. Kuro moved swiftly through the familiar terrain, and soon, recognizable landmarks began to emerge. Finally, Masashi found himself once again at the expansive plaza where the White Snake Sage resided. From afar, he caught sight of the sage's imposing form. "Kuro, you can go now," Masashi said as he leapt down. "I'll handle the conversation myself." "Understood," Kuro replied, her tone surprisingly emotional as she quickly departed. Chapter 144, The White Ghost's Ambition. It had been quite some time since Masashi last saw the White Snake Sage, almost 3 years. Logically, beings like the three great sages, who are each easily over a millennium old, should perceive time differently from ordinary people. Yet the three great secret realms seemed remarkably grounded in their perception of time. From the sages on down, their understanding of time was surprisingly human-like. That said, their naps were impressively long. The White Snake Sage looked the same as always, part of its serpentine body coiled on the enormous stone throne. It wasn't smoking today, its eyes were unfocused, and it remained perfectly still, napping. However, as he approached, the White Snake Sage awoke. It wasn't a swift awakening. Its massive body stirred slowly, as if to show it recognized the visitor as a friend rather than a foe. "So, it's you." Once its eyes regained their sharpness, the sage spoke, then glanced toward the pipe resting on the throne's armrest. Stretching its head downward, it clamped its jaws around the pipe's mouthpiece. Then, it turned its gaze to Masashi. "You've arrived at the perfect time. Light it for me, will you?" A trivial task. Masashi casually performed a fire jutsu, channeling his chakra into a flame that slithered like a snake, diving precisely into the pipe's bowl to ignite the mixture of tobacco and spices within. "You've grown much stronger," the White Snake Sage commented contentedly after taking a puff, adjusting its coils on the throne. "Now, what brings you here today?" "I've come to ask a favor," Masashi replied with a cheerful smile, dispersing his chakra. "Oh?" the sage asked. "Have you already exhausted the power of Uchiha?" "I have no choice." Masashi shrugged. "You've taught me so well that I've learned everything Uchiha has to offer. If I want to improve further, I need to explore other techniques. I figure that if other secret realms can rival Uchiha, they must have their own unique strengths." The White Snake Sage exhaled a puff of white smoke, a clear sign of its good mood. "You've always had a way with words," it chuckled. "I've thought this from the start, you're nothing like Indra." "That was so long ago," Masashi replied. "How could I still be like him?" "Most of the other Uchiha members still are," the sage noted. "Sometimes, when I'm bored, I watch them. They're quite entertaining. Don't believe me? Take a look." The sage gestured toward the crystal ball embedded in its hat, revealing a scene inside. A middle-aged man was seated at a desk, dramatically writing with an exaggerated flourish, his expression one of profound satisfaction and artistic rapture. The crystal ball zoomed in, showcasing the man's writing in great detail. Masashi froze. Fugaku had managed to embarrass the entire clan in Richie Cave. Was there any hope left? Anyone out there, help. This is urgent. Absolutely urgent. Isn't it hilarious? The White Snake Sage chuckled heartily. I must admit, I find it fascinating. None of the young ones here could write like that, even with their tales. The talent is extraordinary. Why don't you bring him over to train in Sage mode? I think he'd do well. Well. Masashi struggled to maintain the clan's dignity. Summoning his resolve, he tried to salvage the situation. You see, true geniuses often have peculiar hobbies that ordinary people can't understand. After all, who writes like that on purpose? Clearly, he's doing it intentionally. To lend credibility to his words, he bit the bullet and added, such seemingly eccentric behavior is actually a pursuit of individuality and spiritual transcendence. We call it the wind of liberation. The Uchiha clan has long endured dual burdens of spirit and lifestyle. In the past, such actions expressed dissatisfaction with reality. Nowadays, they're more about showcasing inner joy, celebrating freedom and individuality. The White Snake Sage, being a snake rather than a human, pondered deeply on this explanation. It found Masashi's reasoning quite compelling. After all, a snake couldn't produce such calligraphy with its tail. For a human to achieve this was indeed extraordinary. You Uchiha are truly remarkable, the sage praised. I've rarely encountered a human with such depth. I'll keep observing him, one day, I'll understand him fully. Whatever makes you happy, Masashi replied with a polite smile. He had done his best. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't be his fault. Well then. The White Snake Sage dismissed the technique, and the crystal ball's image faded. It gazed down at him. What exactly do you wish to obtain from me today? Do you often interact with the other two great sages? What do you think? The White Snake Sage turned its head toward the left. Following its gaze, Masashi saw a stone wall. Part of the sage's body was visible, while most of it extended deep into the earth, seemingly immobile for countless years. Well, interact is more of a metaphor, he clarified. What I mean is, do you occasionally chat with the other two, just to catch up? I've never spoken to the one in the Shikatsu forest, and I wouldn't recommend going there. It's not an environment humans can tolerate, the sage replied, blowing another puff of smoke. From the intensity of its exhale, Masashi deduced that the relationship between Richie Cave and the Shikatsu forest was poor. As for that toad from Mount Mayabaku, the sage's tone softened. If it's awake, I can ask for you. But whether it agrees is up to it. That's more than enough, Masashi said, delighted. The White Snake Sage was reliable. Richie Cave was a true ally. Clearly, the White Snake Sage and the Great Toad Sage were on decent terms, otherwise, it wouldn't have made the offer. Masashi simply wanted to learn Sage mode. For Mount Mayabaku, training one more person in Sage mode without a summoning contract wouldn't be a big deal, they likely wouldn't refuse. For these secret realms, summoning contracts were the real treasure. Meanwhile, the Sage mode techniques that humans valued so highly weren't nearly as important, especially when they didn't involve guarantees of mastery or ongoing support. And he had no need for frogs sitting on his shoulders, he had Ice Style and Suzuno. He didn't need teammates to buy him time. In that case, I'll return in a while, Masashi said cheerfully, preparing to leave. Oh, and next time, I might bring someone along. I hope you will permit it. Oh? The White Snake Sage's interest was piqued. Is it the little one who writes? I wouldn't mind. My opinion remains the same, he's talented and could try learning Sage mode. No, it's another summoner. One of Orochimaru's former disciples. Ah. Just that? The sage sounded disappointed. Do as you please. Understood. I'll take my leave, then. Alright, you can go. Just come back in a year. After bidding farewell to the White Snake Sage, Masashi used a reverse summoning jutsu on the spot. He reappeared in his room. He hadn't spent too much time in Richie Cave this time. It was time to check out the exam venue. Leaving the inn, he asked a nearby Hidden Sand Village ninja for directions to the exam site and then headed in that direction. In the original timeline, Hidden Leaf Village had used an open-air stadium for its one-on-one exam matches, which doubled as a gambling attraction. No, as a proper exam setting. Hidden Sand Village, however, couldn't do the same due to its environment. If they held open-air exams here, by the end of one round, everyone would dehydrate due to the hot sun. So, their exam venue was indoors, a massive convention hall located fairly close to the Kazekage's residence. The security measures were exceptionally tight. However, the security wasn't for protecting the examinees. It was for protecting the audience. Among the attendees were not only residents of Hidden Sand Village but also a group of VIPs. Given the arrangement, it was understandable why Hidden Sand Village had prioritized this. After all, in the original timeline, Hidden Leaf Village had done the same. At the entrance, Hidden Sand Village guards stood on duty. Upon seeing him, they quickly opened a door. After nodding his thanks, Masashi entered, walking through the lobby and descending the staircase marked with directions to the second floor of the building. The area he entered was the section reserved for team leaders. Masashi-sama. Kakashi, seated in the second row, waved at him. Pakura was seated nearby as well. Masashi walked over. As he passed by, leaders from smaller ninja villages stood up and bowed to him. These weren't all allies of Hidden Leaf Village, some were allies of Hidden Sand Village or Hidden Stones Village. However, they dared not show disrespect to him. In the 5 great nations, being a jonin didn't necessarily mean holding a high-ranking position within the village. After all, there were only so many spots available. For an ordinary jonin, their role was essentially that of an elite combatant. But a jonin of Kage level? That was a different story. Such a person was invariably part of the village leadership, regardless of whether they held a formal position. Their influence was undeniable. It was out of the question for these small nation ninja leaders to disregard someone of his stature.